just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar. What a weekend of footy it was. Before we get started, the great Kangaroo and myself, we're wearing, and Maddie as well, we're wearing the first Bloke jerseys. I mean, we've got the old school locker room jerseys. They're like 5 years old. But these are the first Bloke jerseys ever created. And they will be available next Monday at 6 p.m. Next Monday at 6 p.m, the Bloke jerseys will be available. They are limited amount, and also they took us about a year to make and get here. So if you want the jersey, make sure to be there at Monday, 6 p.m. Set your alarms now, because once they sell out, we won't be getting these in for at least another year, at the very least. And if we do again, the design may be different. So if you like these jerseys, go to, bloke.shop, Monday, 6 p.m. next week. Or you join the Bloke Club, www.bloke.club, and you'll get a text message just before it's about to drop to remind you. They'll be $99. $99. I think that's pretty fair.
Nothing beats a rugby league V, does it?
Oh, bro.
Just unreal.
I fucking wear this all the time. It's getting to the point where my missus is like, you're a loser, bro. You wear the same shit every day. So this is, they're high quality, like actually high quality, proper fucking good old school jerseys, and they'll be $99, which I think is a fucking pretty fair deal compared to, what are they, 160 now, some shit?
And the rest, yeah.
And like, that's the different material. Like, this is actual good, honest, true, old school footy material. So $99, Monday, 6 p.m. Be there, limited supply. Set your alarms now at bloke.shop or join the Bloke Club, and you'll get a text when we are about to launch. Also, the stores in Spotlight, Cronus Liquor Gerringong, Pato's Grog Shop. Pato's Grog Shop, what a name, in the ACT. Page Bottler in ACT. Camperdown Cellars, Bronte and Darlinghurst. Charlie's Liquor Barns, all Charlie Liquor Barn stores. We are in all Charlie Liquor Barn stores. Super Cellars Werribee, Blaxland Cellars, they've been with us from the start, Blaxland Cellars. Yeronga Cellars, Reef Gateway, Early Beach. Club Hotel Roma, Harry Brown's Booville, Celebrations, Brightwater. But that's all the jibbity jab out of the way, Guru. Mate, how was your weekend?
Good, mate. A couple of upsets this weekend.
Yeah.
Great round of footy. Can you believe we're a third of the
Call
way
a few
through
of them
the
just quietly.
season?
Call a few of them just quietly. But
Which
we'll get
ones
to
you
that.
get?
We'll get to that, mate. We'll
Brisbane
get to that.
by any chance?
Hey?
Brisbane by any chance?
Among others.
Among others.
They call me a genius after this week.
Can you believe we're a third of the way into the season?
I know, it's fucking wild.
Fucking insane.
Timothy, how was your weekend, brother? Welcome back.
Bloody good, mate. Thanks for having me. I was not sure if I'd get another start, another call up to the potty. Happy to get it. Then sort of the penny dropped for me a little bit. I thought, had I done enough last week to get another go? And then I realised it was actually, last week was the first time I'd met you, Denon, and I reckon as soon as I walked into the studio, you took one look at my snoz and you went, we got a new member of Team Beak here. I can work with this.
Put it this way, your beak got you across the line.
Yeah, I thought that
metaphorically and physically.
Thought that might have been the difference.
Beaks got to unite. If you've got a big beak out there, you've been ridiculed your whole life, but now it's time for beaks to fucking take over. Fuck you motherfuckers that took the piss out of us. We're going to dominate now. We are genetically designed to dominate. We are more aerodynamic. So when we're chasing prey or we're running away from prey, we win. So if you want to fucking go all the way to evolution and see who's going to fucking win the race to the peak apex, it's the blokes with beaks. So fuck you motherfuckers. That's just all my trauma coming out from the growing up and being sprayed about my nose. But
I've never won a race regardless of my nose, though.
Now, Matty, you're also here, mate. How are you?
I'm great. I got 3 out of 8 tips on the weekend, which is, we haven't seen like upsets like this in the last 2 years. So I'm glad that rugby league's back like this.
2 reasons. You follow South and you don't know shit about footy.
South were one of my 3 correct tips. So.
Yeah, but you got punished for it. The guys were like, man, fuck this guy.
Yeah, fair enough.
How was your weekend otherwise, mate?
Yeah, it was good. Didn't do much. Watched every game. Super Saturday was great. It was just unbelievable to watch. Like, there's nothing better in sport than an upset. And then when you've got 2 upsets and then Warriors coming back from the death. Great weekend.
Great weekend of footy. But let's get straight into it, shall we? Ash Taylor, he hasn't officially retired yet. That's why I haven't posted anything on the socials. But it looks like he's going to retire due to a hip injury. This is a mixed one for me, because the first thought I had was, fuck, what a career that could have been. But then you take a step back and go, but really? Like, he played a bunch of NRL, he played some really good footy. it's going to sound cliche, but be happy that it happened rather than it didn't happen. That's the way I see the Ash Taylor. Like, yes, okay, he had a lot of potential, and maybe the Titans being there didn't help, him fulfill his potential, and it was a mixture of being at the Titans, but also him, not fulfilling his potential. But at the same time, it's like, hang on a sec, this bloke played a bunch of NRL, 150 games, played a lot of good games as well. Like, yes, he had seasons where he was a little bit quiet, but he has a solid highlight package. I think he should be super fucking proud of his career. And if you're judging it by, if you take away the fans' judgment or whatever, and you just judge your own achievements, I think he should be fucking incredibly proud.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember seeing Ash Taylor when he was 16, and I don't know if I've ever seen a more complete halfback at that age. He was just insane, and he came in with so much pressure on him. Obviously, he was at Brisbane, left Brisbane, went to the Titans. It hasn't panned out as we expected, but as you said, playing one game of first grade's an unreal achievement. To knock up 150, incredible. So congratulations to Ash. Sad that it ended the way it did. I was really looking forward to him arriving at the Warriors. I thought we might see a corner turned here.
I thought the games he played, especially one of them, I thought he looked good.
Yep.
I thought we were looking at a guy that had, would he reach the heights that we thought? Maybe not. But I thought we were going to get a good, solid first grader at the end of his career. What do you think, Timmy?
Yeah, same as you boys. Very disappointing, sort of probably a premature end to his career. But people will look at Ash Taylor's career and go, he never hit the heights that we expected. He never hit the potential. But at the same time, who's to judge potential and how far a guy can or can't go and that sort of thing? I think it's, obviously Rose's going to speculate and say, he could have been good enough to do this or that. But as you said, mate, a stack of first grade games, a lot of very good ones in there. He's made a career and a living out of it for many years now. So as you said, I hope he looks, and I'm sure he will look back on it and go, mate, I've had a wonderful career.
Yep.
Maybe it was a bit shorter than it could have been due to injury, but mate, he should be very proud of what he's done.
Absolutely. It's just to correct myself, it was 116 NRL games. Matty, what do you think, mate?
I remember when he came in 2015, he played one game for Brisbane. I think that's when he did the compound fracture to his hand, I'm pretty sure. But then 2016, that was when he played the full season for Gold Coast, and Cleary played half a season for Penrith, and it was those two going head-to-head for Dally M Rookie of the Year. I think Ash Taylor won that. He unbelievable player. He's one of those guys that fell a victim to that price tag kind of thing when he got all that money at the Titans, and that's what people decided to judge him off. But he was a fantastic player. It's not like he's just faded out. He's got a career-ending injury, which is highly unfortunate. And I was really looking forward to seeing him play the Warriors. So came out of nowhere, pretty disappointing. But congratulations, Ash.
Yeah, and also I think he deserves a massive rap for the way he handled himself with incredible amounts of pressure from the fans. Very easy for a young man to turn into a dickhead and go, fuck you, get bitter, get on the drink, carry on, be rude to journos. Because think about how under the pump this bloke was. And he didn't sign himself. People are going through much worse than Ash Taylor, and yes, he was on $1 million, but he's still a human being that, doesn't matter how much money you have, if you're getting pumped by the footy community, it's going to be tough. So I think he deserves a bit of respect. He got to a point where he actually needed to leave from the game because he was struggling so much with the pressure and everything going on. So, yes, obviously other people out there are doing it much tougher than Ash, but you respect where it's due, and I think he deserves a lot of respect for how he carried himself as a man. I think his career personally, it's a mixture of, yes, maybe personally he didn't reach the heights, but look at the period that he was at the Titans. A mixture of it is the club wasn't going the best in the years that he was there. Do we really think the same thing would happen if he was at the Storm, if he was at the Roosters, if he was at the, even the Broncos for that period? So, look, I think he should be incredibly proud. Proud.
I think he handled himself very well at a time where he became the scapegoat for a lot of things going wrong at that club. Whether it was fans, media, whatever it was, I think he got very
Look how much better they are roster-wise now, and we're seeing the same problems.
Yep.
So it's,
Like Matty saying he fell victim to that $1 million man, like the price tag and that sort of thing. Even in retirement, I saw different publications saying $1 million man, Ash Taylor to retire. I was like, for God's sake, didn't he start on a training trial deal at the Warriors temporarily to earn his way into the squad, and he still retires as $1 million man? It's like, give the kid a break.
Yeah, well, what's crazy? So you're right, Ash Taylor, the first article is quotation marks, sad end to $3 million footy star's career. The next one, it's a sad end. So it's only sad in, like, the difference is we're not talking about it sad as in, like, we're sad because we think Ash could have been so much more, and this injury has stopped him from continuing to play footy. So, mate, I think he should be super, super proud, and don't let, people on the internet just talk shit. They don't get, he still put together some really, really good footy, and he was the easy scapegoat for a club that had way more problems outside of him. That, unfortunately, we've had a huge roster change, and the club is still struggling at the moment. So to say that he was the problem, it's like, no, actually, clearly there was more problems in Nash. So, as I said, incredible. I thought he had a great career, and I think he's a great bloke as well. I've met him a couple of times. Really nice, humble young kid, and he didn't let the negative energy kind of turn him into a worse person. And I thought when he was at the Warriors and he played those couple of games, I thought he looked really good, really good. So, mate, congratulations, Ash, on an incredible career. To play 120 games or 119 or 16 or whatever, it is not an easy feat. Like, the average games is like 41 NRL games. He doubled that. So, fucking good on him. Congratulations on the career, mate. Now, speaking of the Gold Coast Titans, the great Fifita, he's back in the headlines. He seems to have taken Ash Taylor's mantle as the guy to speak about from the Titans. Look, I understand he's on $1 million, and that is always going to be taken into consideration. Some of it I feel is warranted, as in people that are genuinely looking at it going, is he giving worth $1 million? People are doing that, I understand it. Anyone that's going further than that, you're just carrying on. What do you guys think about the Fifita being moved to the bench? I've got a hot take on Fifita that I will give you, and I've spoken to you, Gurino, about it on the weekend. But Timmy, what do you think about the bench move?
Look, ultimately I'm not a big fan because he's so important to that team. We spoke a bit about it last week, but he's a back rower who... I shouldn't say he doesn't go looking for the ball. We spoke about how edge back rowers need to hold their shape and whatnot. So when he plays 80 minutes, he's not having necessarily 20, 25 runs or a stack of runs and tiring himself out. So he can play 80. I don't hate the bench move as long as it's done right. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he came on around about the 25-minute mark on the weekend. I'd be making sure that I got him on for 60 straight. And when he comes on, particularly for the back end of the first half in that 15, 20-minute stint, I'd be getting him a lot of ball while he's fresh, up against a few tiring forwards and edge players and that sort of thing. So I think it can work playing these gun back rolls off the bench as a bit of an impact player. I don't hate it. I said I'd play him 80, but I can see what Holbrook's doing with it. It didn't work out for a few reasons on the weekend, but I don't think it's the worst move.
Yeah, and I also think that we've still got a bit of an old school mentality in rugby league of if you're benched, you're shit.
Yeah.
And it's not the reality of the situation anymore. Like, if you can get the most impact of a player for bringing them in at a certain moment, he might get more out of that 60 minutes than he would out of the 80 minutes. I understand what Holbrook's doing, but it is tough when you constantly got the $1 million price tag shoved in your face and you're reminded, it makes it hard. But I don't mind your idea, but I'll hand it over to you.
Shoot. I'll get to it. What do you got, mate?
I think last year, because he got moved to the bench at the back end of last year, and I remember the game he got moved to the bench, they won, and then they won their next 3. So maybe Holbrook's got that in the back of his mind that he can come on and kind of do a role and, win. Even though he didn't play great at the back end of last year, there was a couple of games where he came in and injected himself at the end. I think there was a game against Newcastle where he just tore him to shreds. So maybe Holbrook's got that at the back of his mind. As for what my opinion is, I automatically just think he should start. But, I mean, if he can come off the bench after 20 minutes and absolutely kill it, then why not?
So I just want to read you the back rowers' numbers from the weekend. And this is no knock on them. I actually think people are overestimating what back rowers actually do in games. If you go actually look across the entirety of the NRL, most back rowers are around these numbers. One of the back rowers, 10 runs. 109 metres. The other back row was 4 runs, 39 metres. If you go to the Melbourne Storm, who were... was that this week or next week? Sorry, that was last week. Then if you go to this week, and this is against the Panthers as well, so obviously going to be slightly down. Then you go... So that was last week, the 2 back rows that went for Fifita. This week, in 45 minutes, 4 runs from one of the back rowers. Another one, in 80 minutes, 89 metres with 10 runs. If you go to the Melbourne Storm this week, their back rowers, it was, and this is obviously the Melbourne Storm, the cream of the crop, Kaufusi, 12 runs, 110 metres. Bromwich, 11 runs, 71 metres. Now, if you go back 2 weeks to the week that Fifita was the worst player in their team, according to some, which is fair enough. That's their opinion. I disagree with it. Fifita, 14 runs, 131 metres. So tell me what's going on here. Like, yes, he is on $1 million, and yes, he's not delivering $1.2 million worth of value. But that's the Titans' fault for allocating that to a back rower. That is not his fault for allocating it. They should allocate that to their halves and their nines and maybe their one, but usually their halves. So when you look at those numbers, you go, hang on a sec, this bloke's getting absolutely ridden to death. Now, if you wanted to sit there and discuss like the quality of involvements or whatever, like, okay, we can get into the nitty gritty of like, certain effort areas that he needs to improve on. I'd agree with you there. But when we're talking about how crazy it's gotten and you look at those numbers, you go, I don't think anyone reasonable could say the craziness around this is warranted. So, as I said, do I think he needs to improve? Absolutely. That's why I'm going to give you my hot take soon. But I just wanted to read those numbers out so you could get like an understanding of like, if you took out Felice Kaufusi and Bromwich's name and they were on 500-600K, people would say Felice Kaufusi, Bromwich worth 500-600K, and you said, yeah, they run for about 80 metres a game and they take about 10 runs. And you took out their name, people are like, oh, that's a bad game. Like they're doing nothing. But then you put their name next to it, you go, yeah, but they make really good reads, they're good in defence. They're not attacking players, they're defending players. In the game that Fifita got smashed, I think he didn't miss any tackles and he made like 33. Anyway, so that out of the way, I just wanted to put into context of what we're actually talking about. Take away the hyperbolic nature of media, which is fine, it's part of the game, whatever. I personally think, my hot take, put him in the front row.
Start him in the front row? Or
start him in the front row.
Yeah.
Just, it forces him into the game. And he's big enough, he's strong enough. You put him in there, he goes for 20 minutes. If you don't start him, you bring him on in a 20-minute, whatever it is. And you get him about 40 to 50 minutes of game time, and you get everything you need to get out of him. He's forced to be involved in the game because Fifita is mixed between two things. Like, after his game where he got crucified, he'd be like, what? Like, I ran for the most meters of my team and like I did 14 hit-ups. Like, what else does people want? So he would be caught between, and I've got to keep my width as a wide running forward. I think put him in the front row and just get him in there to rip and tear for 20 minutes, get him off, then bring him back on for another 20 or 30 minutes, whatever it is, get him to rip and tear again, and you just have his hands on the ball and say, mate, run, I want you to run until you're gassed, and then we'll bring you straight off. That way, on the bench, you've got your rotation sorted. You don't need to worry about him gassing on the edge because you don't have an edge player to fill up the position. Timmy, you seem... I don't know if you're all the way there with me yet, mate. What do you think?
I'm not quite there,
yeah,
but I'm just ticking over my head a million miles an hour, working out how this logistically would happen. So your idea is he'd start in the front row, have a 25-minute stint, go off, get a breather, come back on for a second stint in, say, the second half.
Yep.
Also in the front row.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a dramatic response to a bloke who's been unbelievable on the edge for the last couple of years. I like the logic of getting him involved. I thought you were maybe going to say, all right, for the first 15, 20 minutes, play him in the middle. He'd be awesome for the go forward. Like, so get him involved in the game, get him 7 or 8 runs early on, and then shift him to an edge where he can get a bit of a breather and utilise that. I just think it's panicking a little bit. He's been so good for so long. I love... If he can get not even a one-on-one with the back row, if he can get a two-on-one with a bit of space on that edge, he just trounces them every time. He's not going to get that in the middle. It's a bit of a Taumalolo sort of thing, isn't it? Where you're, all right, you'd like to see him running at smaller blokes, but in the middle, the go forward he produces for the Cowboys is massive.
Well, that's right. The way I see it is so Cotter and Taumalolo. Taumalolo is named at 13, but he's basically a front rower, and so I think like. You play that role. Like if Cotter can get the go forward he's getting, imagine what Fifita could do running it fucking straight and hard constantly. But I
really want to see it. Like you've got me intrigued now at what Fifita would do as a middle. I personally wouldn't do it. But as I said, maybe it is the first 10, 15 minutes of a game just to get his head in the game, get him going early. But I do think I don't think his form's been that bad. As you said, he scores these ridiculous tries and sets up these ridiculous tries that it becomes the benchmark. So then if there's a week where he doesn't run over 8 blokes and slam it down in the corner, they're like, bad week for
What did Fifita do this week?
But personally, I think that, not your response, but I think the response from people saying Fifi's down on form and this is just a little bit over the top and like
and the
just
problem though
cut
is
the
like
blokes.
his coach has moved him twice in 2 weeks, so clearly he thinks something needs changing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would have kept him on the edge there. I actually thought he was doing all right, but the coach sees something that where his post-match press conference was basically saying he feels like if Fifita plays 80 minutes, he doesn't want him on there doing shit work and getting tired. He'd rather bring him on 60 and have a quality 60 minutes.
Which is fine.
Yeah. But I see your point too. Like, if you move him into the middle for the whole game, you're losing a weapon on the edge that has won them games so many times. So you're weakening an edge to make the middle. Another part of it as well that I'm thinking is speaking to Matty Johns about it before the show on Friday, and I was like, mate, I really think that they need to move Fifita into the front row just to get him in there and get him through work, and he has to work then. Like, if he doesn't work, he just won't be playing first grade pretty much. And Matty was like, you know what's crazy about, like, he thought it was a decent idea. He said, you know what's crazy about that, Dan, is that when I got moved to hooker, it made me appreciate being a 6 so much more because I had to do all the shit work. And maybe that is something with Fifita, is if you get him in the middle for a few games, or even for those first 20, I actually like that, and then maybe move him out, or take him off for 10, move him out at the edge. It'll make him go, oh, okay, you know what? Like, I'm get a bit of feel for the game, and like, I don't want to be in the middle, so I'm going to do a million runs on the edge. What were you going to say, sorry?
I was just going to touch on, you also have to have the right bloke replacing him on the edge. So they brought Kevin Proctor on as the starter, who I think is in his heyday, probably the twilight of his career. He is, and I don't think there's a lot out of him. In his defence, I thought he was quite good on the weekend, Kevin Proctor. He had a couple of good little touches there. I think he might have thrown a short ball to AJ Brimson. But I look at Parramatta, where I think Ryan Madison's he is one of the premier edge back rows in the comp. They've dropped him sort of to the bench, and he's coming on playing as a middle in this, basically what we're talking about with Dave Fifita, because they've got Sean Lane, who's in awesome form, because they've got Isaiah Papali'i playing on the edge, who's one of the best back rows in the comp. So they've got the cattle to do it. Do the Titans become a better outfit with Fifita in the middle, even if it works, if it means playing Kevin Proctor in a big minute edge role? I'm not convinced, but food for thought.
Another part of it as well is, like, if you move Fifita into the middle, I'm getting a bit concerned that Tino is being forced to get through too much shit work. We have to remember, when Tino came to the club, he was a game breaker. Like, for Melbourne Storm, he would come off the bench and be a huge reason they won that premiership. We're not seeing Tino be allowed to be put in those positions, like getting short balls, hitting in shoulders on one player. He's just getting through all the dog work, which is great as a captain. But I even think, like, with Jake Trbojevic, part of me feels like he's been forced into a role that you're actually missing part of Jake Trbojevic' game, which is incredible soft hands. And I think with Tino, if you move Fifita into the middle, it gives you that kind of X factor and hard running, and it may release Tino a bit to be a bit more on the edges and ball play. But again, this is all just experimental. This is all just like maybe not. I think it'd be good to just, even if it was a game or two, just to see how it would go. What do you think, Garina?
Yeah, I like it from the fact that I watched the Titans, and, Fifita might have 14 carries, but I quite often think they don't put him in the best position a lot of the time. And then I watch him pick the ball up from dummy half, 30 metres out, and just go, us, and score. And you're like, fuck, you're better off not trying to outthink the room of where to get him the ball and just get him the ball.
Yeah, that's
just get him the ball through the middle. I also think that, and I don't mind using him as a front rower. I wouldn't mind bringing him off the bench and literally giving him a jersey number on the weekend. I would have said, you need to go at Cleary.
Yeah.
You need to attack this spot on the field.
Yeah.
And I think every week you could watch the first 20 minutes, see where the Titans are getting on the front foot, and just put David Fifita there.
Yeah.
If there's a worried spot there, just go at that spot.
You trust their halves, though, to go at that spot?
No, I don't. But I don't trust them to get Fifita the right ball at second row, which we're seeing isn't happening regardless. This is the thing. That they have got a young spine of halves that they're still learning the game. Yeah, and that's their reality. It sounds so easy just to give the ball to the second rows, but you need to be getting that ready 3 plays before. Your 3 plays before that need to go in the right direction. If someone offloads and someone goes in a different direction, for those young halves, they then have to adjust, and that's sort of where they struggle a little bit for me. So I agree. I think they need to. And I hate saying get him more involved, but I just think they need to get him more ball.
Yeah.
As much ball as possible.
Yep.
The old, keep it simple, stupid. Just get him the ball and just let him go. Play off the back of it.
That's what I'm thinking with the front row move, is like, he doesn't really have to worry about getting the ball off a half anymore. So he doesn't have to be like, get me the ball. He can just go, hooker, bro, my fucking run, I'm in behind the ruck, like just full steam ahead. And it simplifies his game so much that he doesn't have to worry about anyone else fucking making plays for him or whatever. I think it's worth at least a try because clearly Holbrook is unsure as to how to use this guy. What do you reckon, matey?
I'll give you a like for like. So Taumalolo came off the bench and was playing second row for the first 3 years of his career.
Yep.
And then in 2015, when he was the same age as Fifita is now, they moved into the middle. And we all know what happened in 2015. The Cowboys went on. Taumalolo became the best forward in the game and was
forced him to work too. That was the thing with Taumalolo at the start of his career. You were like, some games you're sitting there going, holy fuck. Get him in the middle, it's like, mate, you have to work. Like, you have to work.
And just to back up your point, Guru, before, and you too, Denon, I heard Joey Johns actually say that it's the halves' job to get the ball to Fifita, and it's not Fifita's job to say, here, give me the ball here. It's the halves' job to tell Fifita where to go.
Absolutely.
And he just said, like you guys did, that they're just not experienced enough to do that. So maybe a move to the middle alleviates all that for now, even for a year or so, to get him more ball.
If you watch the way that the Warriors use Adam Fanua-Blake at the moment, they've done it a few times this year where they have him. And Sean Johnson literally just grabs his jersey and says, get here. And he puts him on, like, if Tim's AFB, you see Sean Johnson get the ball's never going to him, the ball's going to the next man. Yeah. But there's just always eyes on AFB. Like, Fifita is as dangerous with the ball as he is without it.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you have him around the middle, and this is where, if you did have a real sort of running 9 to be able to utilise him as well, it could be super damaging. I don't mind it.
Another bloke. Sorry, mate.
Oh, no, you go.
Another bloke. Who I was trying to think of someone. There's another one there who got moved from an edge to a middle, which I didn't like at the time.
But it's just say.
Josh Papali.
Yep.
Josh Papali. I was against him. Played back row a lot in his younger days. Unbelievable, and I loved him there because
played
of his
Queensland, I think, back row as well.
He was he was the starting back row for Queensland for many years, and then he got moved to the middle. I'm thinking, I just love his late footwork at the line, getting his one-on-ones as we spoke about with Fifita. Went to the middle. I'm thinking, it's going to be a waste of him there, but it wasn't. Obviously, the last 4 or 5 years, he's been a middle forward for the Raiders at Origin level. And it's worked. And look, let's be fair, between Taumalolo, Fifita, Josh Papali, they're pretty similar players, aren't they? And it is that bit of late footwork at the line that makes them so destructive, and just the go forward off the back of it is relentless because they always get a quick play of the ball, and which makes me think, maybe the Fifita move to the middle could work. I really want to see it now that you've brought it up. Still don't necessarily agree with it, but God, it's got to be worth a trial, doesn't it?
I just think it's worth a try. Like, I'm not sitting here saying I want to fucking die on this hill and, like, if he goes out there and he doesn't do any work and he barely tackles and he doesn't have the fitness for it. But I'm just thinking, like, you bring him on and you play him, 25 minutes, get him off before half time. So you give him, like, a 20-minute rest? You give Dave Fifita a 20-minute rest to come back on? Fuck me dead, like, in the middle, and then you play him for his... You just say, mate, second half, you go out there, you just go until you're fucked. And we have a guy on the bench ready to replace you. I don't know. I reckon it's worth a shot.
Can I ask Fifita, we're hearing he's out for about 4 weeks.
Yep.
That'll take him to round 12. Origin's round 13. Does he play Origin this year?
I don't think so. No. I don't think so. He's a guy I feel needs game fitness.
Yep.
I think you put him in your squad absolutely if he's got game fitness, even almost regardless of form, because he is that game breaker. You bring him on in Origin off the bench and he explodes the game apart. Look, I think like this year, Queensland's forward pack, it really does seem to be filling out. Like, I don't think Tino's going to be playing 13. I think he'll be playing in the front row, and I think you'll probably have either Carrigan at 13 or your man Cotter. And then you've got he could play 14 or Brimo could play 14. So their forward pack, you also got Papali'i. You've got, I think Molo is eligible for Queensland.
He played last year.
He played. He's been playing some really good footy.
Yep.
I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of different players. Like, you got Kafusi. You know what I mean? So, like, I just want to see. I probably want to see more than one game. Probably.
If Fifita is back from injury before Origin, he plays Brisbane on the Friday night for the team selected.
Wow. I mean, look, if he goes out and kills it, then he gets through 60 minutes. You'd think, okay, maybe we bring him on the bench. I don't think you start him.
Yep.
But it's one of those things where you just got to see, I think. You've got to see where is his head at, where is his fitness at. What do you think, Timmy?
Yeah, mate, if he came back and played one game, I'm picking him every day of the week. Not necessarily in a starting back row role, but maybe, not too off-cuff to what we were just talking about, but mate, if he comes off the bench a little bit underdone and plays 25 minutes in the middle or on an edge or whatever, as I said, you don't have to overthink playing in the middle. It's not a massive move. You go out there and you make tackles and you run hard. Like, if he doesn't play a game, maybe that's pushing it. But if he gets that game against Brisbane in before it in round 12, absolutely I'm picking him.
Yep.
If he was fit and Origin was picked tomorrow, would you pick him in your 17?
Yeah,
Would you start him?
Wouldn't start him, no.
Okay. Yeah.
I just think for Origin and the speed at which it is played,
Yep.
I think he's really good to bring off the bench and just fucking battering around through the middle. I think you get your grunts out there. That first 20 minutes is all about withstanding. It's why I was a little bit surprised that, Paul Green didn't decide to bring Marnie in, start Marnie, get him through the shit work, and then you bring Harry Grant on to blow the game apart. But I think Harry Grant's game has developed since then, so I think that he's probably ready to start now. Maybe Ben Hunt does, but Fifita absolutely is in my fucking 17. Like, fuck, he is too dangerous not to keep in there. But in regards to if he's injured and he plays one game, just want to see how he looks, where his head's at. It's more just about his head, like where is his head at?
Yeah.
Because the worst thing is like you don't want a Fifita whose head's not in the game, or not head is not in the game, but let's say his injury is still like a bit, making him a bit hesitant, doesn't get through much work, you're almost losing. Like, you'd rather just get a workhorse in to get through their work and wait until Fifita is ready to go. But Fifita, healthy, happy, playing footy, he's in your 17 every fucking day of the week, in my opinion. What do you reckon, Matty?
I think as well, because the Queensland have a new coach, he'll be less inclined to risk bringing someone back after having no game time. Like, for example, if Cam Murray got injured this week and was fit on the day of Origin, Freddie would pick him.
Well, it's weird to fucking say this. Like, I spoke to the assistant coach, Cam Smith. It's so fucking weird to say this. And one of the things he was saying was, like, they feel that last year, he feels anyway, and he's not a selector, guys. He's just an assistant coach. But he felt that there was a lot of players underdone in that first game, and that really affected. That's why New South Wales blew them off the park, because you've got a bunch of key players that aren't ready for the speed, aren't ready for the game. And so I do think that is going to play into their decisions of having a battle-hardened team that is ready to fucking rip and tear. And unless you are a player even you have to remember, I know Munster had an incredible 2020 Origin, but that first game, Munster was underdone as shit. And so was Harry Grant, because they were both injured for 6 weeks. And that's Munster. We're talking about one of the best Origin players of this generation. He turns up for Origins. No, don't get me wrong, he got better as the series went on. All of Queensland, got better as the series went on. But yeah, interesting topic. I think it's worth giving it a crack. It just forces him to work. It also removes any thought in his head of I've got to keep my width. I've got to wait for the half to give me the ball. It's no, there's none of that anymore. It's just, bro, every time you want the ball, you just take it. Have a hit up. Now, Souths are set to move away from ANZ Stadium to the new SFS next year, according to Michael Chamis. I love this idea because I do not like watching footy in ANZ Stadium. And I know we earn money from it, deals with the government, rah. So if it is bettering the game because we get funding, fair enough. But if it's not, I say we move away from it.
As a selfish SFS member, I love it. I'm all for it. But yeah, I think it's a good move. a lot of South fans that obviously live in my local area, fuck, it's a knock to go out there. It's a lot for them. So
and the atmosphere is just not
it's
great.
too big.
It's too big.
It's too big for club games. The SFS, I think, it was such a good stadium. I'm sure the new one will be pretty similar. I think it's also you go out to home, but I had a mate who had him and his mates hired a box the other day out at ANZ. They were so excited for it, and then he messaged me after. He's like, "We all went home because we had to sit on a train for an hour to get home." After that,
they all went home after the game?
Yeah, and it was the fight. They went to the 5:30 game, the Canterbury game, and they had a box, and they were all excited.
Oh,
and he's
to watch two games?
Yeah, no, just watch the one game, but then they had to get on the train and come back, and they're like, "Oh, we'll go out after," and they're just like, "It's too much of an effort," you know. Whereas if you're at the SFS, you got the city right there. It's I think it's a much better move all round. You'll get a better atmosphere, a better crowd, and why not add to the South Roosters?
Oh, mate.
As soon as this went up, I had about 6 group chats that I just had to mute last night going, I can't fucking do this.
Man.
You
got 6 group chats.
All 6 of them, I said, all 6.
Jesus Christ. How many mates you got, Guru? How many group chats you got, Timmy?
No, only a couple for me, mate. Not as popular
What
as
about you, Matty? How many group chats you got?
Definitely not 6, mate.
Bullshit,
Well, I didn't ask.
Bullshit.
I didn't ask you how much you didn't have. I asked how many you had.
Nah, I got a fair few.
Let us know in the comments.
I got heaps.
You got heaps?
Yeah.
So you think you're fucking cool, do you?
Well,
He'd be in double digits without a doubt.
What do you talk about, Matt? Like scissoring and shit?
Nah, that's only in a couple of them.
A couple of them?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, a couple are dedicated just to scissoring. But no, most of them are about footy. One's a tipping comp, one's a SuperCoach comp, one's just my mates, one's just, yeah. It's nonsense, but...
Yeah, wow. I don't have any group chats that don't have to do with work.
Mine are all just shit punting ones. Like,
really?
If blokes trying to give out hot tips and they're all as bad as each other, and I just sort of mute them going, you've cost me enough money over the years. You're done.
I'm done. Yeah, thoughts about SES?
I don't have much to add on this, fellas. I don't enjoy watching footy at ANZ Stadium unless it's Origin with 80,000 people and the atmosphere's unreal. I love the old SFS. The new SFS is only going to be better. You know, watching the footy, being able to go out for beers and festivities afterwards around the city is fantastic. It's just everything about it is better for me.
I think as well, because it's a rectangular stadium, it's just going to add so much to the atmosphere at the game. It'll look better on TV. It's closer to... I know most South fans are actually past ANZ Stadium, but South, they're Redfern, so it's closer to South's home ground. And as you said, Guru, the South Roosters rivalry, literally Facebook was going off last night.
Yeah, so
I'm in a Roosters group just to be a troll, and and some of the comment, like, they are filthy that Souths are taking their ground, which is actually the government's ground. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah, like that's what we want. Yeah. Fucking oath, adds to the drama. Yeah, look, I think it's a good. If they can do it, I think it's a good move. Now, Gurinu Gurachi Guroko Kanguru.
Gurinder Sandy.
I thought you had more up your sleeve, but sure.
Kangaroo.
I went through. Oh, you rattled me. Good job. I went through teams, all the teams last year, how many points they were averaging in attack, how many points they were conceding on average, just to see where they're at this year. And it was really evident to see the change in rules. There's only 5 teams in this competition that are averaging more points per game this year than they were last year.
Yeah, wow.
They are Sharks, Storm, Cowboys, Eels, Penrith. Shock me, the top 5 teams in this competition at the moment on the ladder. Wow. So pretty crazy. In defence, there's only 3 teams that have got worse this year. It's only by 1 or 2 points on average per game, but every other team has improved.
Which 3 teams have got worse?
Who do you reckon?
Doggy. Fuck. Doggies.
I'll stop you. The Dogs have improved by 7 points per game in defence.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, mate, it's wild. It's the Raiders. They're down 1 point. The Knights are down 2 points. And the Eels are down 1 point, which we've spoken about a little bit. The Parramatta's defence
isn't the same as it was last year.
It's not the same as it was last year. And look, it's only minus 1 point, but I think you need to consider that every other team has improved. Manly and Storm have stayed the same, but their defence was pretty good last year. Much better than those other teams.
Also, Manly started the fucking year.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I think the other thing, and there's a couple of standout teams. So the top 4 most improved teams, when you take both into consideration, the North Queensland Cowboys at the moment, on average per game, they're a 22-point better team than what they were last year. They are conceding 19 less points than what they were last year at the moment.
Holy shit.
The next best sides after that are the Sharks. They're a 9-point better side than what they were last year. Broncos are a 6-point better side than what they were last year. Bulldogs, 4-point better side. So you look at Cowboys, Sharks, Bulldogs, Broncos, what do they all have in common? They went and spent money on marquee halves that have walked into that side. And, you know, for the Broncos and the Bulldogs, they've improved by 6 and 4 points. Their attack is actually down 2 or 3 points. But for me, I look at the long kicking game of Matt Burton and I look at the kicking game of Adam Reynolds, and I think it's just helped them so much compared to where they were last year. Overall, the team that's gone backwards the most is the Manly Seagulls. Their defence is actually exactly the same as last year, but their attack, they're down 11 points.
Tom had returned a few games last year.
So these averages are for the entire season last year, at the end of the season. Okay. So this, and then the numbers for this year obviously only until round 8. So yes, Tom, you know, I think as well, Schuster has only just come back. We saw the impact that he had the other day. Oh my God,
didn't he have impact?
Oh, fuck me. I think they will close that gap very quickly. But yeah, pretty crazy that, you know, how big the rule changes have been. There's only been 5 teams that have improved their attack, and the biggest gap has been 3 points. The Penrith Panthers, who had the best attack and the best defence last year, they've improved in both categories.
And I think you can feel it.
Oh, mate.
You can really feel it.
Penrith, they averaged 28 points last year. This year they're averaging 30. Keep in mind, Nathan Cleary missed the first 3 rounds. James Fisher-Harris missed the first 2. Brian TOTW, the best winger in rugby league, has been out for ages. And in defence...
They lost their top try scorer, Burton.
Yep.
They lost Kurt Catewell, who was one of their attacking weapons last year.
They got 2 20-year-olds playing on the left side. It's insane. In defence, last year they were the best team in the competition, conceding only 12 points per game. This year they're conceding 11. So they were already the best, and they've got better. Same as the Melbourne Storm. They were the second best. They've improved their attack. Their defence has stayed exactly the same. So crazy. These teams, they just keep going to another level. The West Tigers at the moment, they're 1 point better than what they were last year. You take in the 3 games, smaller sample size since Jacko came back. They're an 8 point better team than what they were last year with Hastings. So hopefully they can keep improving. It is the key positions that really matter. The Bunnies, their attack, probably won't shock anyone. They're down 9 points on last year.
Yeah.
I would say they're the team that probably took advantage, along with Manly, probably took advantage of these rules the most, playing real front foot footy. You take Adam Reynolds out. And I think this says a lot about Dane Gagai.
Oh, massively.
Because we've seen on that left edge how close they've been to scoring so many tries, and they're just lacking that little bit of class down that left side. So they're -9. The Roosters are -8 in attack at the moment. But as Robbo's been saying, the Roosters, their defence is 4 points better than what it was last year. So they are heading in the right direction. But yeah, if your defence is in the red, in the negative, not great considering the rule changes and everything.
Wow. Cowboys, eh?
Mate.
Fuck me dead.
19 points. They've improved by... The next best is 10 by the Tigers. They've improved by 19 points. And just to put it into context, how much the Cowboys have improved, last year they had 7 wins from 24 games. This year they've got 5 from 8, and they're in 3rd place. They were 15th last year.
Oh, out, man.
Defence matters.
And what did Peyton select on this year? Defence.
Yep.
So he's done... Look, I knew he was a good coach. There were a few things that I disagreed with last year. But I tell you what, if he was making those decisions for this outcome, I was wrong. I was 100% wrong.
He's nailed it. Yep.
He's killing it right now. And I understand they haven't played any of the top tier teams outside of Eels, but let's remember, we all had the Cowboys at the bottom end of the table. We all knew what the draw was. So people that are like, oh, they've only played bottom tier teams. It's like, yeah, but everyone knew what the draw was. So why did the experts still say that they would be at the bottom of the table?
And the Eels are one of the 5 teams that their attack has improved from last year, and they just got slapped by the Cowboys.
Like dominated.
Wasn't even close.
Crazy. What do you think of that, Timmy?
Yeah, it's good, mate. Unreal data. I think we've got to sit back and look at it and say there were so many points scored last year as a result of the rule interpretations and whatnot. So I think as far as the raw data goes, you've got to sit back and say, all right, massive points differentials here and there and whatnot. But we can still see which teams have improved the most and which teams have declined the most and that sort of thing. So when you look at the Cowboys, it goes, well, they're at the top of this and just so comfortably massive improvers. Was it 3 teams' defence has become worse?
Yeah, those 3 teams, yeah.
I think that's alarm bells because of how many points there were last year. To be conceding more points this year is like, shit, like there's issues there.
And if it was the Penrith Panthers, their defence got worse by a point, you'd be like, okay, fair cop. But the Raiders, the Knights, it's not good.
Already bottom 8 sides from sort of last year and this year to decline defensively with the new interpretations of rules and 6 against, that sort of things. Issues.
And if I'm Parramatta, as much as they were one of the top teams, I'm looking at Penrith and Melbourne. They're improving their defence. And Parramatta's got the attack until this weekend. Got the attack to compete with these sides, but they've got to sort their defence out.
Yeah, it's weird for the Para because that was their issue last year was their attack. Like they just couldn't seem to put it together. They didn't have that last tip of the spear kind of stuff. And this year it's like, their defence has gone a little bit better. Look, I think when you're that high, it's not an issue. But I think we'd all agree the Raiders and the Knights, are the most we're most concerned about them at the moment for where they should be as to where they are on the table. So really interesting. That's great stuff, Kangaroo. Great stuff. Now, Team of the Week. Time for Team of the Week. Another tough week. The wing spots for me were super, super tough because I thought Coates and Meaney were fantastic. But I made these wing decisions on more like the context of the game. Like, it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not easy to score tries at the end of the Storm backline, not at all. But they are absolutely fucking dominating teams. So technically, you'd probably say Meaney and Coates should probably get the wing spots, or at least one of the wing spots. But anyway, caveats aside. Number 1, Drinkwater. 2, Fox. He scored 4 tries in 2 games now, I think. And we very rarely we always talk about halves coming to clubs to win games. But I think Fox was brought to the club to win games and score points. And we very rarely talk about wingers being that important. I think without the Fox, they don't win the games they've won. Like, they just don't. So Fox on the wing. Olam in the centres, absolute beast. Stags at 4. Felt, one of the greatest finishers. Honestly, he is one of the greatest finishers we've seen in a very long time. Like, I would put him up there with all the great finishers. Like, is he the same as like a Wendell Sailor overall? Maybe not. But when it comes to finishing and like clutch finishes, he's right up there with the best. And I would probably go as far to say, is he the best Cowboys winger they've ever had?
I think that's probably fair. Matty Singh would be up there, but
I would personally.
That try in that grand final.
Felt. Singh had played some decent Origin footy.
Singh's probably the best defensive winger I think we've ever seen too, just quietly.
Yeah, interesting. But look, those two are in the combo. Yep. Those two, like, it's between those.
I think Felt, everyone remembers the grand final try, but no one remembers that he was the one that tackled Ben Hunt to get the ball back with 2 minutes to go, and he was also the one that put the kickoff up in extra time. Yeah, so he did 3 huge plays in the last 5 minutes. I'm
so disappointed. Like, I'm so not sad, but I just wish his Origin debut, he didn't come in when they got fucking towed up by a record margin, and everyone thinks that, Felt can't play big games. It's like, you're pretty sure he can play big games. Fucking won a grand final. So I guess, put it this way, to put him as the greatest Cowboys winger, I just want to see him in a rep game, play good footy, and then I'll put him as my greatest winger. But when we're just talking about club and longevity in that, I think he's the best winger they've had, personally. Yep. But if you include rep with Singh, like Singh was good in rep, like really good in rep footy that I can remember. But anyway, Kyle Felt on the wing, Munster at 6. I mean, there's no way this bloke's taking a pay cut. There's no way. There's just no way. Anyway, we'll get to that later. Townsend at 7. Look, there were some great 7 performances, but I think Townsend is putting his hand up for Buy of the Year at the moment. We have to wait till the season ends. And yes, he's not got a million try assists and whatever, but a huge reason why the Cowboys improved so much, it's Townsend at 7. They've won games off the back of his patience and his ability to drive him around the field. But we'll get to that later on. This is weird. Cotter was named in the front row, but apparently played 13. So I don't know what that means.
I've picked him at 13.
I picked him at 8 just because he was my player of the round. Like, he was absolutely unbelievable. Grant at 9. This kid is just fuck, mate. I can't remember a hooker that was this explosive out of dummy half and strong, makes the right decisions, good kicking game. Anyway, we'll get to that later. Luke Thompson at 10. I just thought, mate, to get the win against that Roosters pack, he's been slaving away. Maybe his numbers aren't as good as some of the other forwards, like, for example, Burgess, which I've got on the bench. But like, Burgess played against is A, in a top 4 side, B, played against a 10-man team. I thought Thompson against a renowned Roosters forward pack was fantastic. Catewell at 11. I thought he was great for the Broncos, really locked things up. Aitken played fantastic at 12. Taumalolo at 13. Josh Adokar at 14. Not Adokar at 14, sorry. I think it was supposed to be Meaney. Meaney at 14. Keon at 15. Robson from the Cowboys at 16. Burgess at 17. And at 18, probably Coates or Hughes or Cleary, one of those. Could be anyone.
Fuck, I've got a long list of extended bench players here. It's a tough week. I went with Drinky at 1. I think my backline's the same. I went Fox, Felt, Olam, Stags. 6, I went Cody Walker over Munster. 7, I went Cleary. My front rowers, I went Taumalolo. And you'll like this one. I thought Clemmer was massive for Newcastle. I thought he got through so much work. Big. Yeah, he was huge. Harry Grant at 9. I've got the same second row as Aitken, Catewell. I've got Cotter at 13. Then my bench, I thought, despite a loss, I thought Teddy was just a maniac on the weekend. Did a heap of work. Tino, your boy Twal. And I had Cam Murray as well on my bench.
Twal was great too. He actually was sensational. He's
got so good.
So good. I actually might stick him in my team. What do you got there, Timmy?
Fairly similar I think maybe identical back five to you. Scotty Drinkwater, Josh Addo-Carr, Staggs and Olam in the centres. Kyle Feld on the wing. As you said, the wingers were tough this week. A few blokes have just killed it, you could have gone with a few different ones. Cody Walker, which I'm not thrilled about due to the context of the game and the send-off, but he did a lot of good.
That's why I didn't... I had Cody, but I was like, it's against 10 men, even though he's done that against 13.
Yeah. I've got issues there, but we'll get to that later.
Nathan soccer Cleary, coming through.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. What the hell?
You blokes who do this every week, you must just get bored of picking Nathan Cleary. It's just like, just find someone else. Just assume it's going to be Cleary and pick someone else to make it interesting.
That's the thing. I look at Cleary and I watch this game, I'm like, yeah, he probably deserved to be there. But then I'm like, that's why I said the context of the games. Yeah. I was like, Townsend led a team around that towed up a top four, and like Cleary, he plays so well every week, even though it's supposed to be team of the week. Anyway.
Yeah, Cleary... Front rows, Cotter, and again, a bloke we'll get to in a minute, very shortly actually, with the Broncos here, but I thought Tommy Flegler was outstanding in 40-odd minutes. Metres were only, 80, 90-odd for the game, but gee, I thought he had a big impact there. Harry Grant, back rowers, both in losing teams, but Josh Schuster, I just wanted a Manly player in there because of how gallant they were with 12 blokes for basically the whole game. Angus Crichton, who I bashed him last week and said he's had a pretty poor season. I thought he was really good for the Roosters and played one of his best games of the season. Taumalolo at lock, bench was Twal, Shop, Coates and Fisher Harris.
Any changes there, Matty?
The only person, I definitely agree with Schuster. He was incredible. But the one guy you didn't mention, he was on a losing team, but I thought Cam McInnes was so good for the Sharks. He was probably the only, in a team that looked a bit lost, he was always the one that rolled his socks up and went forward. Plus, he made 45 tackles. So I thought he's been great from this year. But other than that, you've kind of mentioned everyone. I agree. I thought Flegler, I looked at his stats at the end of the game. I thought they'd be better than that, which shows that stats don't show the story. Because every time he ran the ball, we were like, fucking hell, this bloke's going well. So, yeah, those are the only couple of players I'd probably put in.
Yeah, my bench I was a bit unsure of, so I probably will change that a little bit. But it's tough. Because Robson, I thought he had a red-hot crack in the middle there. But Twal deserves to be there. He was massive. Anyway, that's our team of the week. Look, leave your team of the week in the comment section, and then we will select one to give a free case of Bloke in a Bar sent to your house. So leave it in the comment section, guys. If you're listening to this via audio, come to the YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube. Like and subscribe, all that fucking YouTube stuff. Hit the subscribe button because a lot of you aren't subscribing, and it helps our helps the algorithm. Plus, also if you like the video, helps the video get it into the explore thing. So leave your team of the week. We will select one, send a free case of Bloke in a Bar out. Now onto the reviews. Broncos v Sharks. I mean, what an upset. What an upset. What do you think?
Yeah, mate, I'll be honest with you. I think Broncos have got so much more improvement in them and they still managed to win this game. There's so many things that they can get better at. I still don't think you've really settled on your spine, realistically. I still think there's a question mark over the hooker position, still a question mark over the 5'8" position. Tamari Martin, we spoke about him last week. I thought he was unreal in this game. Again, I don't know if he becomes the 5'8" long term once he returns. Yeah, I think he does. Yeah, but yeah, mate, I thought Brisbane were pretty damn impressive. It's the Sharks. They've put up big points over the last few weeks. I thought that the way that Katoni Staggs defended on Sifa, just getting up in their face. We haven't seen teams do that for the last few weeks. Teams are always on the back foot. I thought the Sharks could have countered that a little bit better, but we'll talk about that when we get to the Sharkies.
Timmy?
I love centre one-on-one battles just because it's one of the few positions on the field where, provided the blokes on the inside do their job, where you get these just genuine one-on-one. There's not many other positions where you do. And to see what Staggs did to Talakai was just like him going, all right, all the hype's around Talakai at the moment, big bustling centre, and he just, that early one where he jammed him on the line, where Talakai was in for all money, he was just like, how strong is this little bastard, Staggs?
Yep.
The game itself, I watched that first half thinking the Sharks looked pretty slick, and things just that they couldn't get that last pass, or it was just going wrong by a touch every time. I thought, you know what, these will start going to handle. They'll get the bounce of the ball in the second half, and I think they can run away with it. they really went downhill the second half. To the Broncos' credit, they dug in. They're showing a bit of ticker that we haven't seen in previous years, which is, a lot of what you're after as a Broncos fan. And they played good footy, and they need to win the game. And as I said, I wouldn't be too discouraged by it as a Sharks fan. It was just one of them nights where things did not go their way, or whether it was self-destruction or other factors. But Broncos fans can be very happy with that one.
Yep. Matty?
I think as well, going off tomorrow morning, we all saw Stags try, which is just incredible. And you're right, the battle between Stags and Talakai was awesome. But tomorrow morning's pass to Stags for that try was perfect. Absolutely perfect. So he's definitely mounting a case to be the 6. My key take from the game was when Payne Haas went off, I thought, fuck, Broncos could be in big trouble here. But that's when we said, as I said before, like someone like Flegler, who just... couldn't believe how well he played. Like some of the offloads he was throwing, and I think his offload was the one that led to Capewell's try.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought the Broncos were really good, and I remember watching the game thinking, like, when these guys pull it together, they're a freaking good team. And I really I know we're not going to talk about next week, but I think that South Broncos next Thursday is going to be an absolute cracker.
Yeah, for sure. I know I've said it quite a few times, but when you're like, let's just look at their backline. I honestly believe that backline on paper is as good as any backline in the comp. And I'm talking about outside backs here. Now you could say maybe fullback we're a bit light at the moment, but when you're talking about like centres and wingers, and I just think that's a good example of like, we're not as far off as some people think, but we're also we're not as good as well as some people think. We haven't earned the right. We've got a lot of young guns that haven't earned the right to say that we are one of the next teams to go forward.
There was a number of times in this game where Brisbane made a mistake, and you've got a few of them written down here where I thought...
In capitals.
Shit, yeah. Well,
Gamble, a forward pass on the first fucking tackle. Ridiculous. Catewell, kicking on the second tackle. Fuck me dead, hold the ball.
I love that you're sitting at home watching them, putting your phone on capitals to write something like fucking...
Because I'm so
That's
mad.
Unreal, yeah.
Because that stuff like that, it frustrates the shit out of me. Because like those two things... And I'm sure Kate will be like, he's way more successful footy player than me. He understands. I'm not like,
but there was that kick on second tackle.
There's stupid.
The Reynolds out on the full where I thought, oh fuck, here we go.
Yeah.
They're welcoming the Sharks back in, but they just held on.
Yeah.
They just, I thought that, we obviously mentioned how well Stags and Adam Reynolds as well did on Fifita getting up in his face. And that's where I sort of thought that, if you would have put Reynolds on the other side of the ball, he would have identified what they were doing and he would have put it in behind Stags just to give them a few warning shots. You send the ball to the far left, you drag Will Kennedy over there, you bring it back as they're shooting up, you put it over the top. But they just never seemed to... It was like the Sharks didn't adjust to what was happening.
We have to remember, like, Hines is a new 7.
Yep.
And Moylan has never been that guy. He's always been tip of the spear kind of 6.
And I think this is the first probably time we've been reminded that Hines is still learning the position.
For sure.
And that is going to take time. And he'll take a lot of lessons out of that. And might have been something that, Craig Fitzgibbon as well. But they'll look back on the tape and go, fuck, we should have adjusted that. He's a rookie coach as well. So that was just what I just kept waiting for Hines to, put it behind early to make Stags turn around, but they never did. But credit to Brisbane, mate. Fuck, great little win.
My thoughts on Brizzy. So I think fantastic win. I think that the Sharks probably played worse than the Broncos played really well, if you know what I mean. Like, the Sharks did play poorly. Like, a lot of their last tackles and a lot of their, just the last play didn't stick. But I also think that the Broncos missed a lot of opportunities. Yep. So if you're sitting there saying, Sharks just played shit, that's the only reason they lost, I probably disagree. Now, do I think the Sharks didn't play the best they could be? I totally agree with that. But I think the Broncos also didn't probably play as good as they can play. I mean, I've got it on the thingo, Gamble pass, forward pass on the first tackle, Catewell kicking on the second, then Reynolds kicks it on the full. Then there was a period where, so Gamble puts up a bomb, Herbie gets down the field, all the boys are offloading. This is when Payne Haas was injured. And then they offload, and the ball bounces essentially where if Gamble had been chasing the kick through, he would have been right there to grab the ball. Instead, Haas was injured and Gamble was behind Haas walking. And just little things like that, you got to get that stuff out of your game. And what ended up happening was the ball dribbled to Gamble and then he knocked it on. And it's bro, Like the little things like that, where I feel like if we had have just been a bit those little errors, I think we would have actually played a little bit better. So yes, Sharks could have played better, but I also think Broncos could have played better as well. I don't think we're anywhere near what we could be. In saying all that, it was a tough as fuck win by the Broncos. They lost Haas, they've lost Carrigan, Flegler. Flegler is only recently back from suspension. Then we've got Keenan, who has been struggling with, like, he had that massive injury on his eye, and it seems to have taken away from his game a little bit. I was super proud of the boys. Super proud of the boys. You know, I think that they fought, and to be honest, they reflected a lot of what Gamble is all about. Like, I know I've talked about he had the couple of errors or whatever, but Gamble's all about, like, if you make an error, ripping in and fighting for that error. And I think the Broncos, that's what they did really well on the weekend. Is like they made an error. They didn't go, oh, fuck, we made an error, put their heads down. They ripped in and defended that error. And I just think for years, we haven't had the culture in our team to go, we made an error, fuck that. That makes us angry. That doesn't make us upset and disappointed and down. Oh, fuck, it makes us, fuck, we made an error, boys. Let's fucking rip in. And I think we saw that. I was super proud of the boys. And I think that it showcased how much potential this fucking squad really has. Now, I still think we need to go on the market for one or two players, but when I see that game, I think maybe we could make the 8. I still have us at 10, but it pushes me closer to going, you know what, in a year where the edge teams are up and down, maybe we could play the 8. But what it does say to me is we are on the right trajectory here. Like, if we continue down this path, we will be a top 4 side in about, I'd say, 24 to 36 months. What do you think about that, Timmy?
Yeah, I said you're definitely on the right track, and you mentioned, I think everything you said there about attitude, it comes back to club culture, doesn't it, which has been down in recent years. Just those efforts of not dropping your chin when something goes wrong, it's lifting on, all right, let's dig our way out of this. I mentioned earlier, but Tommy Flegler I thought was terrific. I think he's got one of the best offloads in the NRL, particularly in the sense that it's very selective. He gets the arm free regularly, but there's a lot of NRL players and teams who will get the arm out and throw it willy-nilly and it'll go to deck, and 1 in 3 might be a turnover. We'll get to the Raiders later. Tommy Flegler, it sticks and they're effective.
And he's worked on that too. Because a couple of years ago, it was like, bruh, fucking hold the ball and run hard. But he's gotten better at it.
He did that. Like, he was coming off the back fence every run, particularly when Payne Haas went off and he just lifted. He was getting quick play of the balls. Like, he was disrupting the defensive line. I thought he was an outstanding Flegler. And, you know, hopefully Payne Haas plays this week. But he's a bloke who can stand up there and start for them. He's also a bloke who's had a lot of disruptions in recent years, be it suspensions or injuries or whatever. I think there's a big future for Tommy.
A big future. Just a quick story with Tommy. So I went to the Broncos last year when they were down in Sydney. And, like, I was going to see Alex Glenn. And I was waiting in the foyer and Lexi wasn't answering his phone because he's a dog. And anyway, so I'm waiting in the foyer going, like, I'm here, bro. And I'm waiting for 20 minutes. Anyway, Flegler walks in and he immediately walks over to me. He's like, oh, mate, come up. Like, you know, we're just in the team room or whatever. And I'd never met Flegler before. Anyway, we sat down and had a chat for me. It was myself, him, and Tessie. And what I loved about him was, like, I'm a nuffy nobody Broncos player, but the amount of respect Flegler showed me, just to have the, I guess, decency to walk over and go, because we'd never met before, and go, mate, like, come up, here's the team room. He showed a lot of, like, maturity for such a young man. And also, he was just a great bloke. He's just a great bloke, which it's upsetting, like, when you see, I understand that he lives life on the edge on the field, but what I can say to you is when I have met him, he's a good, honest bloke. So I'm stoked for him that he's playing like this. Because as I said, actually, you go back and watch their first trial against Wynnum, he was offloading like crazy. And I was like, bruh, just hold the ball, please. But I agree with you. I think that he's that kind of guy that we need in the... Like, Payne Haas, he doesn't really have an offload. He doesn't really ball play, which is fine. We don't need that. But we do need a forward that is going to have that point of difference and get us a bit of an offload to disrupt things. So totally agree. I loved what I saw in Flegler. Anyone else that you liked?
Just on the Sharkies, getting into sort of the nitty gritty of the footy side of things.
We'll get to the Sharkies.
Just get to the Sharkies. Oh, yeah, one at a time. One at a time.
Because otherwise we'll fucking jump in and out.
I wanted to touch on. I thought Tamari. You mentioned last week, after one game that you thought maybe he could be the answer to their halves conundrum, and Gamble, as you said, had his moments. There was the good with the bad, wasn't there? And speaking of, you mentioned not dropping the chin. He's a competitor, but just his pass selection, it's probably not as crisp as it could be. Tamari, you mentioned last week, but he's just class, isn't he? I think him alongside Adam Reynolds could be a really good thing for the club going forward.
Massive.
Well, like we watched him in that trial 3 months ago and said, fuck, he's still got it. Yeah. Just needs time. Like, you just tell with his touches in that trial that he still had it. I can't believe how quickly it's happened, though. Yeah. And I still don't think he's anywhere near his best either.
Well, we spoke about, like, you know how, like they bring Reynolds to the club and you watch the Broncos last 2 years and you're like, sometimes when you're watching something, you don't know what you're missing out. And then Reynolds comes to the club and you watch him kick and you go, oh, that's an elite. That's the way rugby league's supposed to be played. That's... You know what I'm saying, though? Like, he's that class above. And it's the same with Martin. Like, when you see him at fullback and we haven't, or, at a 6 role or whatever, and Broncos haven't had that classy kind of fullback since Darius was in his prime time. I know towards the end of his career, he struggled a little bit. Fuck, I felt sorry for him at the end of his career. No, I understand, part of it was his own form or whatever, but, like, people forgot how good he was. Anyway, and you watch Martin and you go, oh, that's the class that other teams have. Like, that's the class Penrith have, that's the class that Melbourne have in their 6 and 7 role. So, yeah, I think Martin is absolutely fantastic. I think he's our 6 going forward.
One thing on that, I know it's a bit of a glass half empty, devil's advocate sort of perspective, but I was watching that game thinking, shit, if Adam Reynolds were to go down injured and miss a lengthy period of games, which you've seen, I know it's a horrible way to look at things, I'm concerning, like, who comes in and steers that Broncos ship, and I did worry about that. Hopefully it's not an issue we have to have, but if it does happen, like, where do the Broncos go?
Well, we're a club in that point. I think you could say that about...
Yeah, you could say that about most sides.
You could.
Yeah. Bottom 8 sides. I think the top 8 sides can deal with it. The bottom 8 sides that are, shallow for depth, we just... For the last 5 to 6 years, we just handled our half situations so poorly. Like, we lost Bruce, Benny Hunt, Milford. Even though he played really good years together, they were asking him to do something that he probably wasn't equipped to do. He was more of a tip of the spear guy. We lost Ash Taylor when he was coming through and probably going to be the next guy. We lost Sam Walker. And so we're seeing the damages that has caused the club now, and it happened 5 years ago. Imagine Ash Taylor starting his career at the Broncos. I think it's a very different conversation we're having about Ash Taylor.
Definitely a very different conversation.
So look, extremely proud. I think Corey Oates, man, I think he's been fantastic. And matter of fact, I would have Oates and Coates as my wingers for Queensland. I think he's back in red hot form. I really do. 2 big bodies on the edge there. Can kick, like, you always need points of difference in Origin that are just going to give you, like, a different look to the other team. And when you look at the wingers for New South Wales, they've got To'o, who's incredible, and they got Carr. So, like, you could sit there and go, well, one thing we can beat them at is hot crossfield kicks. Like, that's a point of difference. That's where we can get points from. Anyway, we'll get into Origin talk closer to Thingo. Outside of that, I thought Ricky had a much better game in defence. I was getting a little bit concerned about Ricky's defence, where maybe he needs an extra year in Q Cup. He's absolutely he's a first grader. He's going to be a long-term first grader. He's got everything that you need. But I thought on the weekend his defence was fantastic. Payne Haas, he got taken off, but he was 135 metres. I actually think Corey Jensen has been one of the gems finds of the off-season.
And he was impressive in that trial too. I remember us talking about him that week, and he looks really good at the moment.
He ran for the most metres, except for Corey Oates in the team.
Yeah, how many minutes did he play?
And he played 40 minutes.
Yeah, wow.
40 minutes, 167 metres, 92 post contact, 26 tackles, only 1 miss.
That's impressive.
I think Jensen's been absolutely fantastic. I think Reynolds, we've seen how, we'll get to it, but Cleary again on the weekend showed that, like, I believe on the weekend the one difference was Cleary's kicking game. That was the difference. That was like 20 points difference. Outside of that, Stags. I was the Hello Sport boys. I know it was a bit in jest, but they were going on about, fuck, Talakai, he's a beast. And I'm like, yeah, Talakai is absolutely a beast, but he's only been playing centre for like 2 or 3 games. Yep. Like, Stags is a specialist centre. He has faced guys that have had different looks in the centre role, so he knows different ways to shut that down. Like, and as I said, Talakai still had a great game. If you go actually watch the fucking game, he had a fantastic game. The difference was he wasn't just making 3 line breaks and scoring 3 tackles. And Stags and Reynolds, with their experience, had dealt with barnstorming centres before. What I liked about it as well, it showed the fight in Stags. It showed, like, hang on a fucking sec, motherfucker. Like, I am, I've been doing this for at least 2 years, and all of a sudden now I'm not worthy. Like, I'm the shit kicker. Like, what's going on here?
I thought the interview he had after your game last week when they said about him, and he said, "No, let's go."
Fucking oath.
Okay, yeah.
It's like
I thought it was
and that's what I was saying there, like Tom and Eddie. Like, I know it was in jest, but I was like, motherfuckers, have you seen his highlights? Like, I know Talakai bump blokes, but this guy has nearly the same fend highlights as Greg Inglis at the moment. Just the fend bit, not all the other crazy shit that Greg Inglis did. And to be really clear, Talakai still played outstanding.
He went for 160 metres and 75 post contact.
Yeah, like, let's be real here. What do you got there?
I, like everyone, was like so frothing for the matchup. But at the back of my mind, I thought there's a chance these matchups can just be a little disappointing. Like, they don't live up to whatever. But when you watch that first 5 minutes and then Staggs and Reynolds and that like just went at Talakai, you just knew it was going to be fucking awesome. And that's exactly what it was.
That's what I want to see out of the Broncos. Like, if we lose going at people, I'm happy with that. I'll take that every day of the week. I just want us to fucking just get angry and be like, fuck you. Like, you're the man. All right, let's fucking see. And that's what the Broncos are yesteryear. We were almost like arrogant. Like, we were almost saying, we are the shit, motherfucker. And if you want to test it, let's go. And I think that we lost that a little bit. And we saw on the weekend. I thought there was a real Broncos performance where even though we weren't at our best, we still got the job done. So super, super proud of the boys. And we're building something special there. I thought Keenan comes on 107 metres. I was super proud of all the boys. Super proud of all the guys. Now, on to the... Oh, and also just quickly, I felt like a prophet when Herbie was like in the clear, not passing to his winger. I was like, bruh, that's something he needs to work on.
Zoolander.
Yeah, I do believe, though, that he had a good game. I thought he played fantastic. I actually thought he was one of our best. It's just that he's just got to learn that the space is going to be... Like, your job as a centre, usually, or a lot of the time, is to create space for your winger. Whereas I think Herbie is focused on ripping and tearing, like, get it forward as much as possible and get metres. And so that's going to take time. That's going to take time. But it's definitely something that he does need to work on.
Which, mate, it almost makes it more impressive what Herbie's doing every week, because every team knows he's not going to pass a football.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Like, if he starts to throw in 2 or 3 passes a game...
Honestly, he's one of the best ball running backs in the competition, period, in my opinion. Because, like, he's in a team that was getting no go forward, and he's getting the meters he's getting. So, this is me. I think Herbie can be long-term outside back for us next 10 years. These are just little things I'm sure he'll eventually... pick up on, because it's like, bruh, you got Corey Oates outside jar. That motherfucker, if he gets one-on-one, he's probably going to score.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, credit to Corey. He ran for 200 metres and he's not getting good ball.
Yeah, crazy.
He is solely impressing us. And I agree with you. I don't think he's far off origin at the moment. He is solely doing it just out of tough carries and going and looking for the ball
and
himself.
Breaking games open.
Yeah.
That line break he made changed the whole game. If Corey Oates doesn't make that line break, do we win the game? Maybe not. Like, that was a great run.
How bad was that set after that line break, though?
Yeah,
fucking hell. Good God.
Yeah, it was tough. But that's what I mean. Like, we got a lot of improvement in us.
Yeah.
What I love to see is, like, it was the thing that won us the game was our attitude.
Yeah.
With a bit of extra class. Like, Martin is just... I think him and... I'm going to have to say it because I'm obviously Broncos biased, but could you imagine we go Reynolds, Martin, Munster back at fullback? Spend $1 million, put him at fullback. And we all know Munster at fullback is a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Anyway, his manager has said that they're interested in speaking to the Broncos. I always knew that because I know how much Munster loves the Broncos. I've been saying it for like, what, you reckon, year and a half now? About Munster.
Certainly as long as I've been here, yeah.
Yeah, ages. About Munster, I think will speak to the Broncos at some stage in his career to try and come back. Sharkies, thoughts, Guru?
Yeah, as I said, I was a little bit disappointed they didn't sort of change up their game at all once you could see what Brisbane were doing to them. But as we said, Nico's learning the position. They'll be better for it, mate. You look at the Sharks, like their stat sheet, like I think out of the starting 13, 11 of them ran for more than 100 metres.
Yeah. Their backs were fantastic.
Every single back went for over 100.
Jesse Raymond has been the forgotten man. He's having a career best year. And because Talakai's been wild, people forgetting Raymond's killing it.
Yeah, he's a very good player, Raymond. Look, you said to me last week in the second half against Manly, are we worried about them fading? And I sort of went, nah, they'll be okay next week. Yeah, I was not expecting that sort of performance from them.
That's what separates the best.
Yep.
They don't fade like that. They just don't. And I think this is the challenge that Fitzgibbon is going to... This is why I was saying last week, like, I don't know whether they need 6 months to work out those systems or they need 12 months. They're heading in the right direction. The next few months will discern, is 12 months long enough for them to become the team they need to be?
I also think it would have been interesting to see in the last 2 weeks if Dale was in this team.
Yeah, good point.
I think that changes a lot, but still, respectfully to Brisbane, this is a game that they should have won.
Oh, for sure.
They should have gone out and won this game.
And you know what? If a few passes stick, they do win.
Yep.
They do win. What do you think, Timmy? Sharkies?
Yeah, so I found it a little bit frustrating to watch. One thing I love with the Sharkies is their shape and attack. So digging a little bit deeper, but I love the shape that it's certainly not a new shape, but probably one that's underutilised with the halves, where they'll be on one edge of the field and it'll hit Nicho Hines or Moylan, whoever's the first receiver. And rather than your standard sort of block play, they'll bring 2 forwards underneath them, dummy, couple of decoys into the block play. They go out the back and say Nicho will hit Moylan, who's sweeping. And that really gets your one-on-ones with your centres and your Talakais, and that's what they've been getting a lot of their success off. They did it in the first half, and it worked. They just couldn't complete the attacking phase. Second half, they went away from it and just stopped doing it, and they looked a little bit all over the shop. We mentioned that Nicho probably lost a bit of direction, but, I think it's a great structure, and I want them to go back to it, and they will. They will. There were just a few times where poor old Nicho, he was just in everything, but just not his night, was it?
Yeah.
He'll learn. We mentioned last week how good he's been this year, newish to the position. It'll all come for him. It'll come together.
Yeah.
Defensively, he's still an issue. Capewell skittled him pretty easily for his try.
Yeah, tough though. Like, Capewell is top tier.
He is.
One-on-one on the line. I know what you mean. It's his job to make it.
He didn't get near him.
I know. It's his job to make it, but I give Hines a little bit of slack there. One-on-one tackle against Kurt Capewell with 3 metres behind you and the line's right there. It's a tough gig, but I understand. That is your job.
All in all, though, for the Sharkies, it's been an unreal start to the season. It's one game. It happens. As you said, they're a new squad put together. Blokes coming back from injuries, dropping in and out. They'll be fine. It's certainly nothing to panic about.
I think what Timmy said there about that shape that they run too, once again, they're so well coached. It sounds easy to drop 2 guys under, then fall into your block play. But when you're going 60 metres across field and there's forwards subbing off all the time, it's so much harder than what it sounds.
And the line speed changes.
Yep.
So they might shoot one time, they may retreat. So every play is never the same. You're never running it at the same pace.
Yep.
So it's much harder than people think.
And people would say, you talk about Mitch Moses the last couple of years where he crabs across field and it doesn't work well. It's different because you've got the forwards coming under. It straightens up and squares up the D, doesn't it? It's super effective. But as I said, you've got to have the right blokes running these decoys and timing it and all that.
Yeah. And also, your 7 or 6 has to get to a man and square him up. It's when you go past that man and don't square anyone up, everyone just keeps sliding out the way. What do you got there, Matty?
I just wonder how much of a critical blow for the Sharks that Stags try was, because for the first 20 minutes it was 0-0, then for the rest of the half it was 6-0. And then Stags scores that crazy try right at the end. I just wonder if it knocked the wind out of their sails a bit and kind of... Because they went into half-time and then the Broncos scored both of their tries within 8 minutes. So the Broncos scored all their points in a 13-minute period. So I wonder if that kind of knocked them about a bit, then they conceded those tries. And then for the rest of the half, you just saw them trying to push passes and make a few unforced errors, which isn't like the Sharks. And to Brisbane's credit, the Sharks have been scoring points all year and Brisbane defended them out. But yeah, I think that Stags play, that Stags try was definitely the play of the game for me. But yeah, positives, I thought, you said Raymond. I thought Raymond was close to the best player, but I definitely think their best player, as I said before. Cameron McGuinness, he's been really good from this year.
Yeah, he's been a great buy. Yeah, Sharkies, I just think it was one of those games. I think it was a mixture of Broncos played one of their better games of the season, even though they've still got a lot of improvement with a few errors in that. And also, every pass just didn't stick. So, as Sharkies fans, nothing to worry about. Blip on the radar. You have to remember where you were at the start of the year as to where you are now. The boys will come together. What I loved is Nicho kept trying. Yep. He absolutely kept trying. And as I said, it was just like that one last pass, whether it was Nicho, whether it was, Matty Moylan. I will say Matty Moylan has just been so good for them this year. And there is rumours that Broncos are eyeing him off because he wants a 2-year deal from the Sharkies. Sharkies are a bit hesitant to do that. if you're the Sharkies, do you re-sign Matt Moylan for 2 more years?
I think I would. Yeah.
Have you seen enough that he's going to get through 2 years of footy?
I think so, but it's always hard to tell with Moyser. But I just think him and Nico, the combination they've already got after 8 weeks, when Moyser didn't participate in the pre-season, I think they could be a winning combo. You know, he scored that try and he can just do things that only Moyser can do. So kick it on the outside of your right foot, curve it around the sticks, 2 defenders and get there. I would re-sign him, personally.
Yeah.
Would you re-sign him?
Yeah, I mean, for the right price. Purely taking into concern injury history, and I'd hate to be a recruitment manager trying to deal with a guy like Moyser going, what if he does tears his hammy round 1 over his gone, which could happen, that sort of thing. But what we've seen, as Guru said, in 8 rounds, what him and Nico have put together, give them a year or 6 months, whatever, how good could they be? Like, it's pretty exciting.
Yep.
I think the other highlight for me out of this game, seeing Wade Graham back on a footy field.
Yeah, well, I was going to shout that out towards the end, mate.
So good.
Massive congratulations coming back, Graham. He is one of the tough guys of our game. We forget this guy was snapping blokes 10 years ago, and he's still bloody going. He's incredible.
I was really nervous in the pre-season, to be honest with you.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm still a little bit nervous. But I'm sure he did everything right. I'm sure he's got everything covered. But it's just great to see one of the good guys of the game too. Never put a foot wrong. Great Origin player. Always been respectful. Every time I've dealt with him, every time I've asked him for like an interview or anything, he's like, yeah, mate, whatever time. Absolute fucking legend of a bloke. So stoked for him to be back. Also, want to say Payne Haas, that chase on Will Kennedy.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like, honestly, that's a front rower at 6'5" or something. 120 kegs, getting around like that. It's incredible. He's amazing.
It really is. Like, it's things we've never seen before.
Literally never seen. Yeah. Like, would you ever see Glenn Lazarus being able to do that?
Yeah, and that's not a negative on Lazarus. No, it's just the reality of what Haas is doing. Like, it's just...
Like, Lazo's the greatest front row of all time, pretty much. Or at least top 3. But he physically just couldn't, you know. And so I'm so interested to see Payne Haas's career. Like, where does he end up? Does he take Broncos to 3 premierships, or does he go? It's just gonna. He's such a freak of nature, and not only is he a freak of nature, his attitude is crazy. Like, his attitude on the field is incredible. With Sharkies, as I said, when you look at their stats, they put themselves in the position to win that game. It was just that last pass, which I'm sure they will learn off. So absolutely nothing to worry about, guys. Sharkies are still red hot, ready to rumble. And yeah, they still had some great individual performances there. I thought all the outside backs, aside from maybe 1 or 2, missed tackles, were fantastic. But you look at the Broncos, they also missed tackles as well. So I thought it was a great performance by the Broncos. Still a lot of improvement. Sharkies, one of those nights that things just didn't go your way. Now, Titans, Panthers. It's the first thing I have in these notes. Titans could really use Fogarty. I know he ended up getting injured at Raiders, but we spoke about it in the start of the season, that even if Fogarty isn't playing, he would be there to help Sexton when it comes to confidence, when it comes to decision-making, put pressure on him, all that stuff. The Titans just didn't have they just are struggling with a 7 that's going to direct them around the park at the moment. And Sexton, he's super young. It's going to take time. Stay the course. But I think you do need to get some experience around him.
This is where, having Fogarty right now would be handy, but having Fogarty right now would pay dividends in 3 years' time for Sexton as well. Look at the opposing 7. And I know it's unfair, but Nathan Cleary, he was a young star that came in. He stood next to James Maloney for 2.5 years. I spoke to him on the podcast. He can't talk enough about what James Maloney taught him and all those sort of things. So, yeah, it's tough at the moment for Titans. I thought this was a pretty brave effort by them. 4-0 at halftime their way. I noticed that Campbell's playing reserve grade again this week, so we're calling him dropped. Like, I don't. I can understand the first week coming back from injury, but the second week when you dropped Osako and you move your 5'8" to fullback.
Well, you've created another problem for yourself now, because Brimo was fantastic.
Yep.
So you've just created a problem where you've got one of the best young talents in the game, and where do you put him now? And
Tanner Boyd played in that same team the week before. They brought him up, coming back from injury, and they've left Campbell down there. So
this Campbell, I don't know what it is. Like, maybe there's some that try. I don't know, because he absolutely is in their best 17. The absolute, like, he was amazing last year.
Yep.
And he was the only player against the top tier teams that was damaging them. I'll get my thoughts on the Titans. What do you think of that Titans?
You'd be very proud as a Titans fan. You know, they didn't get the result, but if you went into that game and were told the final score would be, 18-4 or something, you'd lead at half-time, you'd say, I'll take that every day of the week. Thought it might have been a bit of a bloodbath, but, you know, they got up for that game. The Panthers had one line break, which is incredible. They've been decimating sides in attack this season, and it was gutsy out from the Titans. Look, they didn't have the class. They didn't have probably the added touch, the fifth tackle kicks to finish sets off to really make them compete and be a winning chance. But, you know, we say it week in, week out, don't we? But it came down to Nathan Cleary's kicking game. It was just so dominant again. Plenty of repeat sets, kicked for 590 metres, and two teams that there probably wasn't a lot between on the night. Cleary's kicking game won them the game.
Literally.
So comfortably.
Yeah, two repeat sets in the first, 8 minutes or something like that. When you're coming out, putting that much pressure on initially, it's just... Yeah, his kicking game is so good. It's unbelievable. I can't... It changes games. It just changes games, period. And I agree with you. I think Titans fans should be absolutely... The defence was one thing where always the Titans' defence just needs work. And I thought that was probably their best defensive effort in a substantial amount of time. Yeah. A substantial amount of time. The issue is they're going forward. You know, it's... Yeah, they just don't seem to have that extra little person to take across the line.
Can I just try to revert back? Jaden Campbell on the weekend, he had 23 touches of the football. He scored one try. He had 2 line breaks. He ran for 200 metres and he had 11 tackle breaks. Oh.
Yeah. What do you think, Matty?
Yeah, I actually... I thought it was very similar, kind of a similar game to the grand final last year, where Penrith just were relentless the whole game, but South defended really well. I thought the Titans defended really, really well. That first opening 20 minutes, I can't believe Penrith didn't score. I think they defended about 5 or 6 sets in a row. It was so gutsy from the Titans. And I remember last week I made the comparison, the Titans to the Cowboys, the difference in their sides. The grittiness of the Cowboys 4-pack was what gave them the edge over the Titans. And I think the Titans in defence were quite gritty and rolled their sleeves up this game, and it was good to see. But yeah, ultimately the class of the Panthers shines. Panthers were a bit sloppy, but you know, the Titans defense kind of made that happen.
I think, I agree, and I think that the key now for the Titans is that's the standard. That is absolutely the standard. You cannot come out next week and get 40 or 30 put on, or you know, even if they come out next week and win 30-20 or 30-25-6 or something, it's that's not you. You've shown over the last couple of years you can't win games regularly like that. You need to have good defence if you want to be in the top tier. And so, as I said, if you're a Titans fan, I would be super, super proud of their defence. I think most people thought it was going to be an absolute bloodbath. So I think their forwards deserve massive raps. Tino, once again, 163 metres, 40 tackles. Moe Fotuaika, 144 metres, 61 post contact, 32 tackles, no misses. Isaac Liu, he got over 100 metres. So, I think that they deserve a massive, massive rap in defence. It's just their attack that I'm a little bit... also their wingers like Greg Marzu. Fuck, he's been an absolute beast. 195 metres, 12 tackle breaks, 84 post contact. So it's just their attack. It just seems... I don't know, at the start of the year it was really, really good. They were putting on points, and now it's kind of it feels like they've regressed a little bit attack wise, I think it's all connected to, I think Sexton is feeling a little bit not as confident because he's a young player, so he's struggling with I had a bad game last week. I'm young. Who am I to direct players around? Who am I to say do this, do that when I'm struggling and I'm just trying to get my game right? I think if you're Titans, you're Holbrook, I think you go into video session and you just focus on the defence. You go, boys, this was fucking amazing. Let's fucking rip in next week. Yeah, and next week's going to be a big week for them. Titans at the moment, they're sitting 12th on the ladder. They are on the same amount of points as last. Their for and against is better. They play the Roosters next week, so for me, opportunity, mate, a winnable game against a top shelf team that will give them a lot of confidence. Yep. So it'd be a huge W if they manage to pull that one through. I got a question for you guys. Even though Campbell's killing it, I personally love AJ Brimson at
fullback. I'll be interested to see what you like. Do you think he's a better fullback?
Oh man, it's tough. It's like you got to ask yourself, like, can Brimo? If you had Fogarty at 7, you could afford to put Brimo at 6. So they've just created an environment for themselves where they need experience in the half. So they brought Will Smith in. Will Smith, although he played pretty well in the weekend, I felt, maybe he can hit a red hot, bit of form or whatever. But over the years, he's shown to be more of a utility. So I'm unsure whether, is he going to do this week in, week out in the 6 role? I hope he does, because I'm sure he's sitting there going, finally, I've been given an opportunity to play 6, and maybe he takes it with both hands. If Will Smith can take the opportunity with both hands and be that veteran experienced half, then I think you can afford to keep Brimo at fullback. In saying that, I do believe Campbell offers just so much attacking prowess. It's very hard to keep him out of the side. So it's just hard. The real key, and we've said this from the start of the year, the key is Sexton. Like, everything hinges on Sexton, which is unfair on the young fella. It's not fair at all. It's not fair at all. He's been put in this position. So I just don't know, man. I honestly don't know what they do.
I think Brimson is the better fullback, but as you said, Campbell is too good not to have in this team. So all of a sudden you're in this situation where, and I feel for Sexton now because he spent the whole preseason with Brimo next to him. Mm-hmm. Now he's playing fullback. He comes in with Will Smith, who, I like Will Smith and he is experienced, but, he has been a utility. He's come from a different club too, so it's not like he has a combination with him. I'll come back to that first point. Titans could really use Fogarty. Really come in handy.
Yeah, it was tough. I would love to know the inner workings of how that happened. Like, I would love to know they re-sign him and then 3 months later they're like, oh no, you can go. Was it done out of love for Fogarty?
Yeah, respect.
Respect? Like, was it done of like, mate, you're a veteran. You've finally been given an opportunity to, a big contract somewhere else. We've come out and publicly said Sexton is the thingo. So out of respect for you, we're going to allow you to go. But I think the ruthless clubs, they find a way to make it work. And they envision the future of like, we aren't sure whether Sexton is going to be ready. He's got so many years ahead of him.
And the Titans have been in this position a number of times. We just spoke about Ash Taylor.
Yeah.
He never had that experienced half next to him.
Yeah.
Like, I've said it a few times. Like, if you were to put Sam Walker in this Titans spot, like, we love Sam Walker, he's a great player, it'd be the same situation.
I think, honestly, any young 7 in this Titans squad would it's a tough ask, man. Yeah. It's a tough ask. What do you think about the Sexton situation?
Yeah, look, it's a hard one, and it's easy to say, he's got all this pressure on him to get him around the park, and he's young, his side's battling, but unfortunately the NRL doesn't care about that, and your rivals don't care about that, do you?
Yep.
They need results now, and they have to do whatever it takes to get that, so it's bloody hard on him, but they've invested their future in Toby Sexton. He'll be fine long term, but how delayed is his development going to be if they don't sort of get off the canvas this season? We're going back just quickly to Jaden Campbell and Brimson and what the best spine makeup is. You look at the first 3 rounds of the comp, the Titans put 70 points on the board and looked like that attacking team we've seen in previous years. 8 points in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, Campbell hasn't been back since round 3. We mentioned how good was Brimson at fullback. You'd love to see him stay there. He plays his best footy there, but we know there's points in them with Campbell at fullback, Brimson in the halves. Brimson is not probably necessarily the organising and experienced half that Toby Sexton needs, but he is a class player who might take pressure off him. You've got to remember Will Smith. He's been a utility his whole career. I don't know what his best position is, but he spent a lot of his career playing in the back line, in fullback, bits and pieces in the centres, chop and changing at hooker. So it's like, is he the answer for Sexton? I don't think he is, no. Their defence was good in the weekend. We know they've got attack with Campbell. I'd be switching it up.
Okay, so you're bringing Campbell in, bring him back to 6?
I'd do it.
I agree with you. I would have kept that spine together, at least for the first 10 rounds, understanding that we're young. Now, I do believe Holbrook has kind of said, like, Campbell's defence sometimes can be not the greatest, but you're right, he does put points on the board. But now he has created more pressure for himself externally because people see Brimo playing well at fullback. Whereas if he never moves Brimo to fullback and keeps Campbell there, the pressure doesn't really exist because, you're not going to see Brimo there, so you don't know that he can play so well there because you have forgotten since he was there last time. Yeah, look, tough situation for Holbrook, but the positive is they defended their asses off, and that's all attitude. And Tino, he's such a good leader. So I just think that, I feel like a broken record, but the focus for the Titans going forward is just their defence. Like, they just need to do that each week, and they'll win more games than they lose. Like, if they're playing anyone outside of the Penrith, Storm, the top tier sides, if they're playing any of the bottom 8 sides, I think they win that game and win it comfortably the way they played. So, although there is questions, you could argue more questions than answers for the Titans at the moment, still was a great performance on the weekend. Still was a great performance against such a red-hot side. Now, onto the Penny Panthers.
Yeah, I think it's hard to be up every week in this competition.
Yeah.
And, credit to the Titans. As you said, they did play well. They would have beaten most sides. 4-0 at half-time, then you said it before, Cleary's kicking game was just worth so much. That kick that he put in for Jerome Luai, they didn't even look at each other.
Yeah.
They just knew it was on, and that's only the great halves pairings are able to do that. Like, I remember when Joey and Matty were young, they used to. You'd see Matty, he'd be looking this way waiting for the ball, and he'd whistle, and Joey would know 30 metres that way.
Yep. What
he had to do, just little things like that when you've got those combos, and that's what the Titans don't have at the moment.
Yep.
They don't have those combos that Penrith do. I thought Isaac Targa, he scored a try off a kick. He's, I think he learned a few hard lessons the other night. As much as I love him, he's making probably 2 to 3 errors a game at the moment. It was a play that he went from dummy half, which was a pretty selfish one, which I think that Ivan Cleary will definitely show him on tape this week, and he'll learn from it, all part of being a young footballer. But yeah, Penrith, good teams don't play their best and win. That's the Penrith Panthers at the moment.
Yeah, Penny Panthers, man. They're 8-0. I feel like we've gotten so used to them winning.
2 years in a row.
Yeah, no one's talking
First team in history to do that.
Yeah, like we're watching a historic side, and because they're so great, it's like people don't want to love them now because they're so great. Whereas like a year or two ago, it was like, fuck, the Penny Panthers are so good. Now it's like people don't want to give them their flowers when we're witnessing greatness. Like, this is 8 in a row again with a half that is still 24 years old, I think.
Yeah,
Cleary's 24.
Yeah.
Like, guys, Cleary's 24. And he's the first half in history to go 8 in a row, and he didn't play for the first, 4 or 5 rounds?
Yeah, 4 rounds, yeah.
Fuck. Just amazing. And you know what it all stems back to? Well, partly. It all stems back to Ivan Cleary had a crazy decision on his hands. Burton probably playing better footy than Luai. But Cleary said, no. Luai and Ivan Cleary, Luai and Nathan have a better combination. They've played all their juniors together. I'm going to select Jerome Luai at the loss of Burton. So he lost. Tell me how many other clubs would choose to lose Burton over a guy like Luai, who had been in first grade, but he was, a bit of a bench player and, fullback maybe. Or is he 5'8", or is he 14? We don't really know. The guts for Ivan to make that call, it has changed the trajectory.
I thought he was crazy when he did it.
Yeah, I think really a lot of people were. Yeah. I was on the side of pick Luai because I appreciate how important combinations are.
Yep.
And we'd seen that at the Broncos where, Milford and Nikorima were both great players, but they were way too similar and they just didn't gel together. But everyone else, and you'd be right to say it, you're going to lose a guy with Matt Burton's talent for a guy like Luai who has been there or thereabouts. It's a masterstroke. And Luai's been incredible. And now the Panthers are who they are. A huge reason is because Ivan made that call, and it was the right call. Thoughts, Timmy?
Yeah, massive one. I don't think anyone would probably pretty harsh on Luai, who's been there and done it, played Origin, won Origin games. But if you're picking one of the two, you're going Burton. But it's just combinations, isn't it? And what they've come through over all these years. But
at the time, though, Luai was like a fringy, pretty much. When he made that call, Burton was this young guy that was coming through the ranks where everyone was going, holy fuck. Like, remember Burton's debut? It was a big deal. Yeah. This country lad that's 6'2", big running 6, got a massive boot on him. And the guts from Ivan Cleary to go, Burton's incredible, but Luai's my guy.
And it's just obviously been faultless, clearly. And there's we mentioned it last week, but how many more superlatives are there talking about Melbourne, talking about the Panthers and whatnot? The one that stood out for me last week, big time, I think it was from Matty from the Bleachers talking about the post-contact meters and how Penrith don't necessarily win it every week. That one hit me and I haven't been able to get it out of my mind. I'm like, I'll check it again. Pretty, albeit not a massive scoreline difference, pretty dominant from Penrith again. Dead level on contact meters. So I think last week Penrith were behind quite substantially, but same thing. The post-contact meters were level in the game, where you'd say Titans go forward wasn't fantastic, but still locked them up. So that's the one I'll be watching very closely week in, week out, because it just intrigues the hell out of me.
Oh, it's really intriguing. I actually felt the Panthers went away a little bit from their game plan against the Raiders, and their forwards were getting more... the forwards ran for way more metres this week, and their backs were still massive, but a little bit less. But I think that the Panthers were nowhere near their best on the weekend. They were still solid and good, but I think against the Raiders they played like some of their best footy that they've played in a very long time. What do you think about the game, Matty? About Panthers?
Yeah, I said before, a bit like the GF in the same respect that Cleary just kicked the Titans to death. That, as I said, they were sloppy. They, when they were on the attack, they made, I think it was 12 or 13 errors. I think in defence as well, they missed over 50 tackles. Like it wasn't really their night, but they just found a way. Even someone like Dylan Edwards, who you could argue he probably had his worst game of the year, and that's probably still an 8 out of 10. Tough night under the high ball, had a pretty bad captain's challenge, but he still was one of Penrith's better players. I think he picked up a couple of Dally M points as well. So it just goes to show that even if Penrith or a couple of individual players have an off night, they can always bounce back and win not convincingly, but
they can win in different ways.
Exactly.
Like if something isn't working for them, like, all right, we'll go this way. Like, they clearly felt their forwards clearly needed to work a little bit harder this game. I want to give a shout out to Eisenhuth. I think he's been really good for them. Like a battler that comes on, he actually starts at the moment.
Yep.
And, he wouldn't get the most raps, but he gets through his work. He takes all the tough carries, and he's always over 100 metres. So he was good. But, yeah, Cleary, I just think Cleary, if you needed an example of why you would nearly pay $1.5 million for Cleary, there's your example right there. Like, not single-handedly, that's disrespectful to their work, but let's say you just assume everyone works at a certain level. It was his crazy extra ability that got him across the line, and it was his individual, kicking that did it. So, yeah, Panthers, man, they're making history, and they're looking bloody good doing it. And they got so much more in them. That's what's fucking scary.
Next week, sorry, mate.
No, I think you're going to say the same thing. No, yeah.
Brian Toto, Moses Leota back, if not this week, next week. Please.
Who does Toto come in for? It's decision time. Do you keep the boys together on the left edge?
Charlie Staines.
But he's playing.
Has to be.
But Staines has been playing.
Staines has played good.
He's been playing good footy. Look, I think it's that combinations things that gets May across the line. Yeah. I really do. I feel sorry for Staines because I think he's had a red hot crack. And it's the fact that Staines is with Crichton, which goes, well, who are we going to put? Toto and Crichton work so well together. May and Tungo, we know they're so good together.
So if Toto comes back, you think they'll move him to the right?
I think so, yeah. Wow. I think they'll try to keep that Tungo and May combo together and go back to because didn't initially Crichton and Toto play together a couple of years ago, and they scored a bazillion tries together.
That was the year where Crichton scored, I think it was 9 games in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the left.
So I think even though that's other side, I don't think Toto really uses a fend or anything. So I don't think it will affect his scooting. Because that's the one thing you have to worry about. Is okay, if I'm a right-hand carrier, do I need to fend with my left or my bad side?
Well, he came in on the right, didn't he? Because Mansour was playing on the left originally.
I think he'll be fine on the right.
Yeah.
Look, I think if you're looking long-term at the club, you'd go, look, what do we want to do? We want to build combinations. Tungo, May, the next 10 years. Crichton, Toto for the next 10 years. Fuck.
Imagine a world where you have the Dally M Centre of the Year and the Dally M Winger of the Year. You let the Dally M Centre of the Year go and you move the Dally M Winger to the other side because your teenager's pretty handy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you're still the best team in the competition by a lot.
It's incredible. It's just, it's amazing. I cannot wait for Storm and Panthers to play again because it is going to be wild. A wild game. But yeah, Panthers looking fantastic. Rabbitohs, Manly. We'll get to the big topic. So, Lawton, who there was no malice in it. We all know Lawton's not that kind of player. Let's just get that out of the way. Everyone knows that. So anyone that thinks he intentionally did that, come on. He was in a tackle. He was trying to be aggressive. It went horribly wrong. I personally think it was a send-off. I just think that those kind of tackles, when you have that much, when you're in the tackle and you've got 1-2 seconds to kind of make and control, he had 100% control of it. It wasn't the first, when you head high someone, you have 1 millisecond to make that decision. You don't even make a decision. It's all just natural of like where you're assuming their body's going to be. A tackle like that, there is a lot more, you've just got a lot more control as to what the outcome is. And I think that it's very easy to say, well, Cam Murray got straight up and whatever. But the ramifications, if that goes a tiny bit wrong, are so life-altering that we just cannot afford to have those tackles in the game anymore, unfortunately. So, and to be honest, I don't think it has any, like, when people say, oh, the game's gone soft with that tackle, it's like, what's tough about spear tackling someone?
That's never been tough.
That's never been tough. Like, spear, like they've got no control, you're spear tackling their head into the ground. Tough is like jamming a bloke so he gets bumped back. Like that's tough. Like, so I don't understand the softness bit. Like, well, I'm super tough. I didn't break my neck. Like, what? That makes no sense.
And that's the thing. If Cam Murray would have got seriously injured, is Lawton the toughest guy on the field all of a sudden?
No, he'd be devastated.
It's so fucking backwards.
Like, even Lawton would want that tackle to not be in the game. Yep. So I personally think it was worth a send-off. What did you think, Timmy?
Initially, I saw it. And the second it happened, you sort of sitting there going, all right, it looked bad, and you were thinking, all right, there's probably a send-off coming here. And I was annoyed because I was thinking, not soft or any of that sort of stuff. Yeah. I was just like...
The big call
send-off. I was a big call, sort of maybe shoulder tip first, and then it's like, mate, I was just devastated because I knew it was going to ruin the game.
Yep.
Very early on in the fixture, and I was so looking forward to this clash all week, and then within 15, 20 minutes, whatever it was, I'm like... The Bunnies win this game and comfortably.
Yeah.
You look at it, you watch replays, the heat of the moment sort of cools and you go, there's a bloke's life on the line here, isn't it? I'm not saying necessarily life or death, but we've seen what the ramifications can be. And as I said, it's not a head-high shot. It's stuff that it's completely accidental, but you can sort of stamp it out as much as possible. There is a bit of control over it and, people take note. So I think they made the right decision. Disappointed. I have a slight little solution to it potentially, and I'll get your boys' thoughts. Not from me. I won't claim. It was Jimmy Smith, one of the greats from SEN over there. Instead of a send-off, give him the 10 minutes in the bin, replace him with another player from the bench. Lawton can't come back into the game, so Manly are playing with 16 players for the rest of the game. They're playing a player short in terms of their 17 goes. You impacted massively with the sin bin. You spoke about it the other week, how many teams go on to win games after a sin bin, especially early on. It doesn't ruin the rest of the game. Lawton goes on, gets his suspension 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it might be. There's still a game of footy on the cards. The fans get a good game of footy. I personally like it. What do you boys reckon?
I don't hate it, but I also like that the punishment was harsh for this, and we won't see it again.
Yeah, I want the punishment harsh.
Yeah,
I want people to be so fucking scared to do that kind of tackle.
Yeah. And they are generally. You see players get in this position, they go, oh, fuck, and they try and sort it out. Lawton, it obviously didn't click for him.
Lawton was just going, I'm going for a big hit. Yeah. He just wasn't thinking.
And that's the sort of guy Lawton is. He's all in. He's not a bad guy. He's just all in on everything he does.
Yeah.
Is a 5-week suspension not going to scare them enough?
No, I don't think so. No. Like, I think that it should impact you so dramatically in the game where like a 5-week suspension, that hurts him, but the team, like, it doesn't hurt.
Your team can cover it.
The team can cover it. They're not feeling the pain. Whereas, like, when he gets sent off and everyone looks across to each other and says, we've pretty much lost this game, they can all go, well, I never want to be responsible for that. Like, I never want to be in that position where I've just cost us. I hate to say cost us because it's not like he intentionally, knew that was going to happen. But I think that in situations that are a little less cut and dry for me, like there are some people that don't think it was a send-off. I personally do think it was, but for stuff that's a little not as cut and dry, I actually do like that idea where it's like he did something pretty, not great. Like, honestly, if you said we were going to use that system for the Lodge situation where he raised his elbow, I probably wouldn't mind it. Like I was surprised Lodge didn't go for 10, if I'm being honest. I don't mind the idea. I personally, for this specific scenario, I want it to hurt as much as possible.
Yep.
Like I truly do. For everyone in that team, because it is just so scary, man. Like you say it's not life or death, but tell that to someone that's a paraplegic. Like, are they... It's tough. Like, I
always think credit to rugby union. It's one thing they do well. The penalties are harsh.
Yeah.
They're harsh, and you see less and less of it. In the game.
Yeah, and that specific one, I don't believe the game is lesser to get rid of it. Whereas, like if if you were to say we're only allowed to tackle below there, I think like you've changed the fabric of the game so much for something that, like, yeah, you're going to get in the head, everyone knows that, but it's not like killing blokes. Like, it's towards, you might get a concussion, you'll recover mostly. There may be some little things towards the later parts of your career or life, but outside of that, it's not going to like fully fuck your life up. Like, I don't want to say fuck your life up because that's rude to people that are paraplegic. They're still fully human and got just as much right to be happy as anyone else. It's more protecting people from, it's not a happy thing to go through. What do you think, Matty?
I won't lie. When it happened initially, my first reaction was, that's not a send-off. That was my first reaction.
Yeah.
I've had time to talk to people, listen to people, watch it over, form an opinion that isn't based on emotion and the first thing I see. And I agree. I think, looking back, I think it was definitely a send-off because, as you're right, like there's no place for a spear tackle in this game. The thing that was kind of annoying me, like online and stuff, and like nothing much gets to me, but this kind of bugs me when people say, "Oh, it shouldn't be a send-off because there's no intent. He didn't mean to do it." But like, really, 99.999% of like penalties in rugby league aren't intent. It's like accidental foul play is still foul play, and he got it wrong, even if it was by a couple of millimetres. Like Jack Whiten, for example, he was a couple of degrees off getting sent off on the weekend, but he got it not right, but he was just landed him on his back. So yeah, I think it's definitely a send off, sends a strong message, and like Carl Lawton, he just ran straight off. He didn't argue it at all.
I honestly feel a bit sorry for Carl because what he's going to go through now.
Yep.
When we know, look, if you listen to this show and you're thinking about putting shit on Carl in the comments, don't do it, man. You know how devastated this bloke's going to be, that he's going to have to deal with people yelling that out for the rest of his career. He's let his teammates down, all that kind of stuff. And we know he's not that kind of player. Like, if there is an honest, true player in this comp, it's Carl Lawton. Like, he's just a battler. He works hard. Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things where like it's so clearly we don't need it in the game. Let's just like be fully harsh on it, get rid of it, make everyone scared to do it. The head high stuff is a little bit different because you can suffer a concussion and be okay. You can suffer a couple of concussions and be okay, or even 3 or 4. It's when you're getting up to the like 8 or 9, and I think that the systems we're putting in place to protect players from that is getting so much better that it's not going to have as negative effect as maybe some of the players that have come before. So yeah, look, sucks for Manly. I totally get that, but it's just one of those tackles that it adds nothing to the game, and also it's so dangerous. And also, I want to be really clear. If you are a disabled person, that doesn't make you less of a person or anything like that. At all. You just as much as it maybe even more important to society that we take care of people that are disabled. It's more just about the process of having that happen to you. It's sad. It's sad if that does happen. Anyway, onto the game. Manly versus Rabbitohs, 40-22. This is going to be a bit hard to talk about because there's not really. I actually think the Rabbitohs probably should have played a bit better. I thought that they should have been way more ruthless to. Maybe the Seagulls were so heroic that they were just so good, but for the Rabbitohs to be behind for a period in that game, I was a bit concerned with the Rabbitohs going, boys, like this is an opportunity to be ruthless, and I don't think they were that ruthless until the end of the game.
And I don't think Souths have ever been a ruthless side.
Yeah.
Like you look at Melbourne, you look at Penrith, you're drowning in the pool, they'll put the hose in your mouth. South Sydney have never really been that side. It is hard. I think when I watch teams, it looks like it is hard to play with 12 because you constantly feel like should be an overlap here. We should be getting here. And Manly, like to their credit, I know Souths should have won by more, but fuck, Manly showed up. They really did lift. Considering how we've seen other teams play with 12 for a 10-minute period, considering how they played for 12 with a 72-minute period, I thought Manly really had a crack in this game.
Yeah, what do you think, Timmy?
Yeah, I think when there's a send-off in a game, a side can almost become just a bit too complacent and go, look, particularly in the 8th minute, just then, you really shouldn't be losing the game of footy. You probably know you're not going to lose a game of footy, particularly when you're South Sydney, who are a very good footy side, who are ruthless in attack, and you can get complacent and you can go too wide, too early, just expecting those overlaps to happen, those gaps to occur. But, you still have to earn the right, don't you? They've lost one player. It's not the end of the world with it. Manly, on the other hand, if they've shown up slow and there's a few players that go, I don't want to be today, whatever, they immediately go, shit, we have to turn up here for the next 72 minutes, because if we don't, it's going to get ugly very quickly. Yep. And I feel like that's kind of what happened with this game. The Bunnies went, we're going to trounce through them. Manly have lifted for it, and the scoreline reflected that, in my opinion. And if you're a Bunnies fan, Matty will tell us in a second, but you're not overly impressed by it, but it's hard to assess a game.
Yeah. The win's a win. It was such a weird thing. What do you think, Matty?
Yeah, pretty frustrating to let in 4 tries, being 13 on 12, especially the first 2.
That's what I mean. Like, they put points on.
Yeah.
Well, they led 10-0 after it.
After it was so it was 0-0. The send off was 0-0, and then it was 2-0.
20 minutes after it was 10-0 to Manly.
Yeah. And I think as well, as good as Manly played, like, I'm sure Martin Tapau would love the last minute of the first half back, because that offload led to a try. Like South, and I don't think they were patient enough either. The Rabbitohs, like, every time they got down there, they'd score, but it just seemed like they were trying to, like, go too wide too often in the middle of the field.
Well, it's what Timmy said, and Timmy's absolutely right. Like, that player goes off, and you go, oh yeah. We should spin it. Why wouldn't we spin it? We've got an overlap, and it just creates a different mindset. So,
yeah, I also love that Cody Walker scored in game 150 and was the best player on the field.
That, if anyone has if you love footy, go and watch Rabbitohs' little documentary, like, not documentary, it's like 10 minutes long, and it's Walker talking about the journey to 150 games. It's great. It's really, really good. It's on Rabbitohs' Instagram. It's really, really cool to see.
But yeah, other than that, for South, like, Ilias was all right. But yeah, just I really didn't know how to feel at the end of that game, because I was like, fuck. I reckon after watching Brisbane the night before as well, that's why I said I reckon it's going to be a really good game next week.
It's interesting because, like, I think we all had the same reaction to that tackle. Like, when I first saw it, I was like, sent to the field, what the fuck? And it wasn't until I like that emotion took it back and go, oh, you know what? It was probably the right call.
I think what Tim said's perfect, though, that you knew it was in the 8th minute, you knew it was going to fuck the game.
That's what, yeah, 100%.
Friday night was cactus all of a sudden. It just doesn't.
And also, like, I was being biased of, like, Lawton's not that kind of player. Yep. Cam Murray got up. Like, there's no damage, no harm, no foul. But then when I, like, cooled down a bit, I was like, I think even Matty messaged me probably like 10 minutes later. I was like, nah, fuck, that is absolutely a send-off. Outside of that, I wrote the tips. Rabbitohs have got to be patient. Tass, I thought he had a mixed game.
Yep.
He did some really good things, and you're going, fuck, the Rabbitohs have found their centre. Their left centre or right centre?
Left centre.
Left centre. But just the errors, man. He's got us. If you're playing NRL, you can't have that. You cannot have that in your game, especially if you're not Manu Vatuvei. Like, you just can't. So I hope he learns from that, because I think he showed a ton of potential.
Do you give him next? Like, is Tane suspended for 1 or 2 weeks?
Yeah, 1.
So I'll
give him another week.
Yeah,
I'll give him another. I think he showed enough to go, oh, there might be something here, like a long term.
And respectfully to Tane, yes, Tass made a couple of mistakes. Tane makes mistakes every week too. Like, it's not like they are. I think they're pretty equal at the moment, so it'll be interesting.
I think so too. But I think that Tane's had, like, quite a few games to show himself. Whereas if I'm Rabbitohs, I'm going, look, let's see what Tuss can do. Give him another. Also,
South's backline, I think, needs a bit of speed, and Tass is quite quick.
They need a game breaker back there. They really do. So Rabbitohs, look, I think Ilias is getting better each week. I really do. Outside of that, it's just a hard game to get a read on, because you just don't know, like, were they complacent? Was Manly really good? Did they circle the wagons? Like, you just don't know. But the thing is, they got the win. They scored a bunch of points in the end. I think Keon continues to really show, like, he's becoming a top tier wide running forward. I think last year you looked at him like, oh, look at this rookie that's having a really good game, maybe every second or third one. This year, he's gone to that next level, like, oh, this guy is actually affecting games outcome week in, week out.
And we spoke about at the start of the year, obviously the South Sydney left edge is unbelievable. They were incredible last year. But if you were the left edge second rower, you wouldn't touch the ball for 2.5 weeks. You were a decoy every single week. Him moving to the right, I think it's been fantastic for him. You can finally see the attacking upside that obviously Brad Fittler could see last year. Into that camp.
Even that when he went into that camp, I was like, I don't know if he's ready to be in the camp yet. But Freddie just gets it, man. He knows. What do you think? Anything else about Rabbitohs, Timmy?
Not too much. As I said, just such a hard game to line up. There were moments where I saw Cody Walker, who's had a pretty slow start to the year by his lofty standards, and I was going, he's finding his feet here, Cody. He's coming good. But then you had to sit back and go, 12 blokes.
Yeah.
He looked better, don't get me wrong, far better, but I still want to see him, like he's not where he was last year. It'll come, but not quite.
Yeah, no, I think, as always, I think that people have been a little bit too harsh on Walker, but I also think that, yeah, you're right. He hasn't been as good as he was last year. I think he'll grow into it by the end of the year.
I think as well, South, just to finish off, South are probably the hardest team in the comp to get a read on, because there's been 8 weeks. The first 4 weeks, they were 1 from 4, but they lost to the top dogs, and everyone was like, oh, yeah, they came out of this really well. They played really well, even though they only got the one win. Now everyone's kind of saying, oh, I lost against the Tigers, okay against Manly. But they've won 3 of the last 4 and lost 1 by a field goal. So
they're sitting 6th.
They're sitting 6th. They're a tough team to get a read on.
And I think I said a few weeks ago, they're probably the only team in the comp that you just have to take it week by week. Yep. Like you literally just cannot predict. And it was the same thing last year. They got beaten twice by 50, and they were 1 pass away from winning a grand final. And I think that's just who Souths are. Like they're just going to be up and down.
They're one of those teams. They're good when you expect them to be bad. And you expect them to be good.
Yeah,
they're average.
As you said, we have to remember. They went down to Melbourne and lost by a point against this Melbourne side who is nearly averaging 50 points a game. Like, that's incredible. So, yeah, Rabbitohs, do I wish they would be a bit more ruthless sometimes? Yes, but is it in their DNA? Maybe not. Maybe not. So, anyway.
Before we move on, sorry, it's an interesting one with seeing the different coaching styles between Demetrio and Wayne Bennett. The Bunnies will often start a bit slower in the season, and because Bennett manages his players throughout the season, we saw with Cam Murray in particular, Jai Arrow playing less minutes early on in the season, getting towards the back end of the comp, builds their minutes, builds their game time, and then they're ready to go peak come finals when you need to. Demetrio is playing these guys, particularly Cam Murray, bigger minutes early on in the season. Will this take a bit of wear and tear across the end of the season, throw Origin on top of that? Will he choose to rest them later on in the season or through the Origin period like Bennett did? I'm sure he will, because he'll have learned off the master coach, but just very different approaches.
Yeah, very different approach. It's going to be very interesting. And also, like, they're in very different parts of their career. Like, Demetrio needs wins now, whereas Bennett can be like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, if I have a bad season, what are you going to say about it? Demetrio is literally sitting there going, if I have a bad season, like, people might start saying, I don't deserve to be a coach. So it's hard to... That's what... I don't think coaches get enough credit for, like, when you say, well, why didn't you pick this player or why didn't you pick that player? It's like, bro, because my fucking job's on the line. Like I'm trying to get wins now. And that's actually also why, like, a lot of NFL teams, they separate recruitment from the coach. Because if you're in recruitment, you're recruiting long term. Well, you should be. You should be fucking recruiting long term. And about plans, like building towards something in 10 years' time. Whereas if you're a coach, you're trying to get re-signed pretty much every single year. Like, you can get sacked like that as a coach. So your incentives are totally different. Like this one, they're thinking about building a long-term club. Yes, we may drop some games early on, but we want to win a premiership in 4 years. This guy's thinking, if I don't win games, I literally lose my job. And I don't think coaches get enough credit for that, where they, for example, you could look at Hook and go, fuck, why isn't Hook putting Sloan in? Like and I still think Sloan should be in there, but I understand Hook's desire to be like, look, I need wins now. Like, my job was already under pressure. Yes, I extended, but people were saying, I can't believe Hook got extended. So I'm going to put an experienced guy in there that I know, yes, he may not play 9 out of 10 like Sloan, but I know for sure he's not going to play like a 5 out of 10 and drop 3 balls or whatever. So it is something that coaches don't get that much credit for. We'll try to move everything along, guys. Don't want to be here for 7 hours. Now, on to Manly. Very hard game to judge, but what we can motherfucking judge is Schuster was the forgotten man. This motherfucker had so much. He is a motherfucker. I messaged him. I said, bro, you're a motherfucker. I didn't really say that. I said you played really well. Mate, they're a different side with him in the side. Like, I cannot believe how much... I did not expect him to come back in and affect the game the way he did. He truly affected the game to the point where he was forcing Rabbitohs to, like... He had them not panicked, but you know what I mean? Like, oh, shit. Like, they weren't expecting that kind of ball playing on the edge there. So what did you guys think about... What did you think, Gurino, about Schuster's performance?
Mate, they've got halves that have played 500 games, and he was the vocal point on day one when he returns. It was crazy.
It's insane.
And you think next week they'll bring Ola Kawatu back on the right edge, Turbo at fullback. Like, this team that they've regressed the most out of any team, they could explode over the next few weeks. Yeah. And yeah, Schuster, you can tell like match fitness wise, it's going to take him a few weeks, as it should.
Yeah.
But yeah, to have the impact that quickly, that was like when Fifita Mateo used to be at his best. He's just holding up 3 and 4 guys, and the ball would just pop out from everywhere. Incredibly impressive. And yeah, credit to him, because those two halves, they just zing the ball to him straight away. The earlier he got it, the better.
It's
crazy.
Incredible. What do you think, Timmy?
How good is a ball-playing back rower with a craft? Because, you know, you have these hard-running, line-running back rowers, and they'll run block play after block play for them, and it's effective. They'll just get early ball to him, and he could Damien go himself, he could go inside, he could go outside, he could grub it through the line. It's just more exciting to watch as a footy fan, isn't it?
Yeah.
What Schuster brings to a game of footy. I just couldn't believe how... It was a hammy injury that kept him out, I'm pretty sure, the first part of the season. Just how nimble he looked. As you said, he'll get fitter and he'll trim up and he'll get faster.
I'll tell you what, if there's one club that's invested in hammy rehab, it's Manly motherfucking Seals. Those guys probably spend $1 million a year on hammy rehab. So they were like, look, here's Tommy's program, motherfucker. You're going to have golden hamstrings by the end of this. Because if we have another guy go for a hammy, we're going to get fucking booked. But yeah, mate, I totally agree.
Exciting.
I do think physically he's probably a bit underdone. You could say, like, I think that he could probably afford to get a little bit fitter, but that'll come with time. That'll come with as the games go on. What do you think, Matty?
Unshamedly South fan. Every time we touched the ball, I was literally shitting myself.
And that's what I mean with the panic kind of thing. Like, if you're looking at it from Rabbitohs' perspective, every time Schuster got the ball, it was like, oh shit, like we are. When we thought we weren't short of numbers, we're short of numbers. When we thought we had the short ball runner, we didn't have the short ball runner.
I kind of felt like he injected himself into the game a bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he just always looked like he was there or thereabouts. He just looked like he was a constant threat the whole game. And you got to remember, he's a ball-playing back rower who was creating space. It was 13 on 12 the whole game. Yeah. He was creating space with the man less on the field. So, yeah, they've missed him, and they've missed him in a big way. And just, yeah, he's definitely fast becoming one of my favourite players.
And that's his first game back in a couple of weeks. Mate, on Thursday, he turns 21.
Crazy. It's insanity. People don't understand how young this guy is. And I remember watching I did a highlight reaction, and I was just like, this guy, he was playing 6, obviously. And I was like, people don't understand how rare it is to find a guy that's about 105 kilos that, like, I know Fifita Mateo, I get the comparison, but I actually think he's even silkier. I think Fifita Mateo was very, like, offload heavy. And although Schuster is, I don't think Fifita had the ability to genuinely square a line up, boom, hit out the back, like all that crazy stuff. But I know exactly what you're saying. He created that space out wide that Fifita did so well. The problem is the Schuster issue is only going to get worse before it gets better if he's playing like that. Manly weirdly would be kind of hoping, look, can you just go out on the edge and hit some short lines? Just run the fucking line. Can you stop playing so well out there? Because I think it's pretty clear now that he probably was promised the 6 role. I don't know, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't true that he was promised.
It's a weird thing to make up.
Yeah, very weird thing for this many different reporting. Like, clearly the manager has gone to the media and put this out there. Manly are they're in a pickle. They're in a glass cage of emotion right now. Because, God damn it, what do you do in this situation? What do you do?
I'd love to see him play 13. I really would.
And
once
put
again.
Trbojevic in
the front row. They're already missing a couple of troops up front. I think the next few weeks might be a perfect time to do it.
Does he want to play 13 though? It seems like his heart's set on that 6 jumper. Because like 13, you've got to get through fucking 40 tackles.
But what are you going to do? Say to Foles, like, you're playing the best footy you've played in 10 years. Sorry, the kid wants to play different. Like, you can't move Foz. It is what it is. You got to do what's best for the team. Foz is playing really good footy. I think he could have a great impact at 13. Mate, I wouldn't be surprised if 13's his better position. Wouldn't be shocked in the slightest.
I could see him playing like Isaiah Yeo to a degree.
Yeah, with heaps more upside and attack, like just natural.
It's 6. Like, if you want to be a 6, that's where you want to be. 13 is just so different. You know, like, we have to remember, like, they are happy to be on the field. They want to play there. But if you've been told, if you resign, you will be a 6. And then all of a sudden you're fucking making 40 tackles a game and you got Cam Murray getting on his hands and knees get quick play the balls, 2-second quick play the balls, and you're back into pack and get back up to the line speed. Whereas out at 6, you make 10 to 15 tackles a game. It is a big ask of a young guy to go, hang on a sec, we know we promised you 6, but now we need you to go out there and get your absolute ring worked out. What do you think, Timmy?
Yeah, I think it's another case of don't fix what ain't broken. I think he's excellent on the edge. I know we're talking about if he wants to play in the halves and if you're forced to make decisions, but I'm just going, look.
Well, he was promised to play at 6.
Yeah. But I'm just going like, mate, we're onto a good thing here. We've got a side that with Tommy Turbo back, yourself back, everyone fully on deck, we can compete for a premiership. We can do it with you at 5'8" anyway, but mate, you're 21 years old, as you said. Be a part of something special. Let's build towards it as a club. Foz might have a year, might have 2 years left in him. Then that job's yours. Again, he's been told this before, so you ask questions.
That's what I mean. Very hard. Now, the trust is broken.
Yeah. But by the time you turn 22 or 23 and get that jumper, you might have a title or at least a grand final or a good resume behind you. Your money's still going to be there. You're only going to develop as a young footballer. You'll have 10 more years of your career after that. Again, it's up to what Josh Schuster wants, though, isn't it? And then that's what puts the club in a tough position. Hopefully he just says, yep, I'm happy on my edge. Let's do this 1 or 2 more years, and then I'll make that full-time move into 5'8".
But if you're in Josh Schuster's mind, you're going, okay, let's say we do go really well over the next few years. Foreign retires in 2 years. That young Fainu comes through. Weeks comes through.
Yeah.
Then they give the jersey to him.
Yeah.
And then you'll be turning around. People will be saying, Schuster, you idiot. They lied to you the first time. And then they lied to you. Like he'd be an idiot then because it's like, bro, they've already burnt the bridge. Not they haven't burnt the bridge, but they already told you you'd be 6 and then you weren't. And then you come around the next time and they're like, hey, can I get that 6 jersey? You're like, oh, actually, sorry, Fainu's the next guy coming through. And you're like, well, shit. So I understand like for them to now come back and say, look, trust us, just trust us, mate. Let's win a premiership together. And then when Foz retires, we'll give you the 6 role. I understand his hesitance to go, well, how can I believe you when that's already not come true? But I do agree with you. With you.
Big one, though. Guru, you love your juniors. Fainu, if we're looking at the future of the club and going, who are the halves going to be, and Schuster's going, he wants to slot in there. With DCE 33 as well, twilight of his career, granted the way he's playing, he could have a bit more left in him. Fainu, can he run the show as the organising half, allowing Schuster to play as that ball playing 5'8", or are they sort of stepping on each other's toes as 5'8"?
It's tough to say. Like he only finished playing Harold Matts last year. Yeah. He's young playing SG ball at the moment.
And for people from Queensland and that, what age?
So SG ball is under 19s. So he's a year younger than that at the moment. So
he's 17 right
17
now?
turning 18. Yeah, and playing that comp and doing really well. But the step up to first grade is massive.
But Schuster was playing when he was 18, 19.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, the thing is, I get both sides.
Yeah.
Like, I totally get where the club's coming from. They didn't expect Foz to be as good as he was and play as much footy. And I totally get where Josh's manager. It isn't Josh that's doing this, it's his manager. And his manager's just doing his job. And to be fair, he has every right. Like, I honestly think in the best world, if they have a little bit of cap space, the way they fix this is they go, mate, here's an extra $100,000 a year. Can you just stay on the edge, please, and do your thing? Let's win a comp. When it comes around again, you'll get first crack at the 6 role. I think that's probably the best way to handle the situation. You keep the young kid happy. You're showing, like, it's almost like sorry money in a sense. Like, yeah, okay, we probably did the wrong thing by you. Here's an extra $100,000. You've probably earned that anyway because we know how important you are to the team. Now, that's very easy for me to say. I don't know what their salary cap looks like. But I do think that may be a little bit of a middle ground that they can find. And some people might be like, well, that's bullshit. Like, he's just agitated for an upgrade. But it's like, well, no, not really. Like, he was promised something and it didn't come true. Like, people don't understand. In our contract negotiation, verbal agreements are legally binding, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Like, you can't just say shit and then be like, didn't write it down, motherfucker. Who cares? You know what I mean? You can't actually do that. I think it'll be fine. I agree with you, Timmy, and you too, Guru. Like, he is so incredible. Bide your time, mate. You will get that 6 jersey. I don't see a young... Like, Fainu may be good, but he hasn't done what you've done in first grade. And you know what? A lot of players haven't done what you've done in first grade. They haven't had Benji Marshall say it's the best half he's ever seen debut against him. Benji Marshall said that when he was at 6. So if Benji's saying that, just back yourself. The big contract will absolutely come. Stay fit as fuck, train everything, do everything right, and even if, let's say they do screw up, I promise you there are 15 other clubs that will pay you 800K easy to come be there.
There'll be 16 next year.
Yeah, so 16 other clubs, exactly. So, mate, be patient. You're a gun. You played incredible on the weekend. Yeah, still rusty a little bit. As I said, I can understand where both parties are coming from. Manly absolutely had no idea. Schuster, he felt like he was promised something. What do you reckon, Matty?
You guys have probably covered most of it.
Everything?
My first initial reaction was always, why would a club bend over for one player's demand when it's all about the team, blah, blah, blah. But the more I think about it, if he was promised, I hate to fence it, but I don't have an opinion. I can see both sides.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't like to be like, oh, you can see both sides. But this is just the reality. Like, the information Manly were working with initially was Foz had struggled to play a full season of footy. That information changed, so their decision changed, which is reasonable.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, I think I feel sorry for Schuster if he was told that it hasn't happened. But if you would have said to me 2 years ago that Foran's not going to miss a game of football in the next 18 months, I would have laughed at you.
Absolutely. If you had said to me, Foz is looking like he may have 2-3 years more left in him, I would have said, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Now, Foz to me is like, oh, this is actually the Foz we know and love.
I loved when Foran scored on the weekend.
Crazy.
The first person that was up to him rubbing his head was Schuster.
Yeah, and that's another thing I want to get clear. I know Tom and Eddie spoke about it. These where, as footy players or sports or athletes, like, you're used to growing up your best mates vying for your position. It's just natural. Like, you understand that this guy wants to have your jersey. It doesn't affect your relationship. You've got to look at Harry Grant and Cheese. He's a perfect example. Like, Cheese wants to play 9. They're still best mates. It's just a part of the gig. It's a part of the gig. So anyway, Manly fans, I would be super proud of your team. You showed a lot of grit. Play got sent off. I think Christian Tui Pioto, apologies if I got that wrong, Tui Pioto, I think he's been low-key one of the better rookies in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Like, I think the attention is on Cooler because he's fast and all that kind of stuff, but I would argue Tui Pioto, has been their best rookie at the moment. But Cooler defence was outstanding. I really, really liked his defence. I love how he chops low, kind of like a very old school. Yeah. Like, he gets up fast, chops them to a point where they get chopped so hard they can't actually offload because they get hit. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with Cooler. We all came in with these expectations. He's as fast as Saab. He's going to do this, he's going to do that. And I think some people are a little bit disappointed by him, but personally, I'm more impressed by the tough shit he's doing.
Because we know he's going to do all the good stuff.
Yeah, you know the upside he's got. There's not many guys that would be able to do what he's done in the last few weeks.
Absolutely not. To come into a position that has historically struggled outside DCE, because he does have a tendency to change the way he defends, sometimes up and in, sometimes a slide. I think he's actually helped DCE quite a bit.
Especially when you consider on the weekend, Lawton was the guy that was meant to defend next to him.
Yeah, yep. But yeah, so I just want to shout out Tui Puiotu. He's been great. 193 metres, 6 tackle breaks, 71 post contact, a line break, 5 tackles, 0 misses. It's fucking not bad it's really good for a bloke that not many people are talking about.
Yeah.
Like, really fucking good. Anyone else that impressed you guys?
No, for me, I think we pretty much covered everyone. Timmy?
Yeah, no, I was only going to touch on Cooler. You boys have just done the job there. So some of his touches on the weekend I was getting so excited about. He's going to be something special. For sure.
Again, Dylan Walker, 132 metres. I think he got injured towards the end there. 132 metres, 38 post contact, 25 0 missed tackles. I thought Ben Travojevic played really well too when he got on. I thought his defence was good. But outside of that, Manly fans, I would be super proud of the boys. Super proud.
Just quickly, I thought really good effort from Lachlan Croker and Jake Travojevic in defence, considering it was 12 or 13. I think together they made 85 tackles. And DC's 40-20, I didn't know this. Cooper Cronk's the second all-time leader in 40-20s with 21. DCE's number 1 with 33.
Shit.
He's ahead by 12. So, crazy.
Bar out. That's massive. Now, on to Warriors v. Zeredas. I don't know why I did that accent, but anyway. Yeah, look. Very... I can't say strange, because this is...
Weirdly consistent.
Consistent. Speak to me, Kangaroo. What's going down?
Mate, I might hand the floor to Timmy here.
Timmy, mate, what's the fuck is going on in your neck of the woods?
Oh, happy to just skip past this one, mate. They were just... What an absolute bludger, hey? 35 errors in the game. Oh. The Raiders, you just knew it was coming. The second half fade out. You mentioned last week, and I was sort of putting a few parallels together. We were talking about Penrith's back five, and I was saying and how coming out of their half, it's just the back five, and how effective this makes their pack in defence rather than attack, how good that works for them. And I said, why don't all clubs do this? And you said it's about having 17 blokes buying into a game plan. So I'm watching the Raiders on the weekend and just watching them throw shit passes out of their own half and crap offloads and just turning ball over in dumb territory and all that. And it's the same thing. It's like, well, this isn't a thing based on ability. This is a conscious decision to throw that shit pass and try and force a miracle play and whatnot. And it just took me back to that Penrith thing of buying into a game plan and going, no, I don't need to throw this miracle pass. Yeah. I'll grind away. If the opportunity comes, I'll do it. But let's just get out of our end and work our way into this game and grind. And I just saw a bit of a parallel in those two things. And there's a lot of issues. You go into roster mismanagement and a few other things at the Raiders at the moment. But that was the one I was just like, they're not trying, but they're just not buying into this game plan and whatever that game plan is that Ricky Stewart wants to implement.
Yeah, no, it's a great point because that's the bizarre thing. Every week we come in and we say we can't put our finger on it, like what's going on at the Raiders, because individually they're absolutely trying. Like they absolutely all have a crack. I wouldn't say there's anyone on that side where you go, oh, he's soft. Like sometimes you watch NRL games and you might see like a half that like will step out of a tackle because you're like, oh, like he doesn't want to get hit, or a bomb will be put, or not a bomb, a chip will be put over and the fullback like pulls out of it because he doesn't want to put his head in a dangerous position. I don't think you could say that about any of the Raiders players. Like I think they're all tough, they're hard, but yeah. The weird thing is, first half I thought they bought in. They all bought in. They understood the process, but the second half it just feels like you're right. There's no like, here's the vision, boys. We don't even need to talk to each other. We just focus on the vision. It's just all clunky and you don't really know what's happening. What do you think of the game, Gurino?
Yeah, it's such a bizarre situation that I watch the first half and they play well and I go, a Dalian medalist and a Clive Churchill medalist has scored one and set up two. And the first thing I thought was, it's come too easy for them. This is going to fall apart. This is going to find a way to fall apart. And, I come back to some of the team selections and I still cannot work out how CNK is not the fullback.
I think Chance has been so harshly done.
I'm sorry, but they beat the Cowboys if Chance is at fullback, and I think they win this game if Chance is at fullback. I think Jordan Rapana is a incredibly talented guy. He's very unorthodox. That's his positive and it's his negative.
He's
sometimes.
A great winger.
No, he's a sensational winger. Chance does not get the ball and throw a reverse fucking spiral and bounce the ball a metre short of his winger. Yeah. And I know, the Warriors scored the next set after. It's just, I think they have two more wins on the board if he just stick with Chance. I always said it, reliability is so underrated in rugby league, and that's what Chance is. He might not have a 10 out of 10, but he doesn't have a below a 7.
I can't get it either. And part of me, I know Ricky wouldn't do this, but I'm like, is he, by putting Savage on the wing, because if Rapana is in the side, he can't put Savage on the wing. Is he sending a message? Is he thinking long game and going, all right, boys, all right, fans, everyone, you want me to put this rookie on there? I'll do it. I'll move Rapana to the fullback or whatever. Okay, you can see that he still needs time, and then he brings CNK, but I don't think Ricky's way smarter than that.
But I felt like 2 weeks ago he sent a message when he said to them, "Hey, you all wanted highlights, didn't fucking work," and since then he hasn't put Chance on the field.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why I am worried that he is doing it because of that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? To drive that point home of and to be fair in Ricky's defence, if he is doing that to specifically send a message to his team of this is why I make certain decisions that I do, boys. So trust in my judgment. I can understand that sentiment, but I don't think it's worth. I think CNK offers so much that it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Rapana for me, he's a great winger, arguably one of the better wingers in the comp. If you put him on his day against literally any winger in the comp, I'd be like, you know what? I'm happy with Rapana there. Yep. I'll go into battle with Rapana on my wing against any winger in the comp. That's how much I like Rapana on the wing. But to not have CNK at the back, I'm just surprised. Even little things, it's kind of the rumours before the season even started that CNK was under the pressure from Savage. Where did that come from, and why wasn't it shut down immediately? Why didn't, I don't know, Ricky can't address every single rumour. I totally get that. But I just feel was that foreshadowing? Was that foreshadowing CNK's standing in their eyes of a guy that we don't rate that highly, where we're going to say this young rookie who's never played NRL has got put pressure on it. In some people's minds, 2019 he was a top 5 fullback. Like, everyone loved him. The next year he actually had better stats than the 2019 season. For the life of me, I cannot understand why CNK isn't at the fullback position there. What do you reckon about that, Timmy?
Ricky is absolutely looking long-term at the moment. And you see that with selections from round one, like Brad Schneider. Obviously, Xavier Savage is in there now.
Yep.
Guys like Sammy Valemai, going over players like Jared Croker, who is proven, been there and done it, who understandable not being there round one, early season injuries and that sort of thing, but has come back and been really good in reserve grade and like, in my opinion, warranted a chance to be called back into this team in a struggling side. And he's looking long term, but at the moment, I think that's at the expense of his current season.
Yep.
And they're falling apart because I think of a bit of a reluctance to, play what's in front of them right now. In the long term, it may pay off and help them, but in the short term, it's not. One thing I think that has really brought them undone, for obvious reasons, is they've had Hodjo's injury, Fogarty's injury, but what worked so well for them last year was Hodjo first 20 minutes at hooker, moves to lock when Starlo comes on and Starlo kills it as a 60-minute man. Yep. He's not that big a body. Ricky's shown his reluctance to play Starlo 80 minutes. He doesn't think he's an 80-minute hooker. Now, on the weekend, we saw Adam Elliott come on and play the first 20 and actually went quite well at hooker, surprisingly.
I thought he played the best game of his career, year.
Yeah, but he's not a long-term solution. So they don't have a backup hooker to Tommy Starling. They've got Adrian Trevelyan, who's solid enough but still very young and playing reserve grade and biding his time. They let go of Saliva Havili, then Hodjo went down. They don't have a genuine hooker to take out that sort of first 20, 25 of the game. They're on the lookout for a hooker,
yep.
I guarantee it. But easier said than done at this time of the season. They've got a full roster. They need to create a number in that squad to find that man. And, you might be thinking it's only 20 minutes of a game. It can't have that much of an impact, but I think it is at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think... Oh, man, I feel bad saying this because I think Schneider, individually, he does some great things, but put it this way, Fogarty can't come back quick enough. Fogarty can't come back quick enough. Or you've got Sam Williams there. You've got Frawley still there as well.
Frawley's still there.
Maybe it's time to get some experience there. I don't know. Again, what's tough about this is I don't think it's Schneider's fault. It's not me sitting here saying Schneider's the reason they're playing poorly. But I do believe that in that second half, if they had Croker on the field, if they had a Williams or a Frawley, they would at least have enough experience to go, we're not playing as well as we did in the first half, but let's make certain decisions to just get ahead, just win the battle with field position and keep Warriors out of the game. Whereas at the moment, Schneider's still finding his feet with a guy like Whiten who is just out and out the tip of the spear. It's a very big ask of Schneider. But you're right, if Ricky is playing the long game with Schneider, then these early sacrifices, maybe it's worth it. Maybe, Nathan Cleary, he came and killed it. I think his second or third year was a bit average, and they stuck with him, and it worked. It really worked. So I can see where Ricky's coming from with that, but I don't know whether... Surely they can get their experience in drips and drabs, maybe, rather than just all at once. You've got Semi Valemai, which Semi Valemai's potential is wild. Did you see that? He catches the ball, pulls it all the way around, flick pass out the back. He's a big body. He's athletic. Semi Valemai's potential is I cannot express to you enough. If he unlocks everything that he can be, he will be unstoppable. He's physically super, like a Superman. But yeah, Schneider again, his potential too. But I don't know. I agree with you. Is it too focused on the next few years rather than just get Croker in there and
the whole back line? Schneider, Valemai, Matty Tomoko, Xavier Savage. The potential is all there, but all in one hit. As you said, it's just lacking that experience and just going sweet. Hopefully, it's a Todd Payten situation at the Cowboys where this time next year we're sitting here and the Raiders are 6 from 8 or something. We're going, credit to Ricky, he had a plan in place and it's coming to fruition. At the expense of this season, though, well, only time will tell.
Yeah, only time will tell. You're totally right. That's a great point. If next year they come out and brain it and kill it, and their backs are killing it, we go, you know what? Masterstroke by Ricky. He needed to rebuild anyway, and he did the rebuild, but we don't know whether that's true. All we can go off is the information we have right now, and I think it's probably a little bit too soon at the moment.
I just reckon on the point of Schneider, given the Raiders' problem at the moment is how, in the second half, for example, how grossly like undisciplined they were, and like they lacked execution in that second half, and eventually the Warriors came back and won, as has been the story for last year. Maybe and just some experience in the halves can kind of calm everyone down, bring that all together. Like maybe a Sam Williams or Frawley, probably Williams is someone the Raiders kind of need short term just to get a win on the board.
Like at centre, even him at centre would be able to come in and say, boys, what are we doing here? Like, I remember there's a perfect example of this. So Melbourne Storm in the grand final, they blow the Panthers off the first half, and then second half, the Panthers come out, put a few tries on, and Storm are doing all this uncharacteristic shit where you're going, this is not even close to Storm footy. And there's a picture, or there's footage of Cam Smith calling the whole team in to a huddle, and he's doing like these ones, like, and I've spoken to him about it. He said, I was just saying, boys, let's just go back to simple Storm footy. Why are we offloading? What are we doing here? What are we going on? Like, and I thought that's such a good example of sometimes you just need that experienced guy to just go, boys, calm it down, and we're going this way. And if you've got that experience and the runs on the board, if a young guy says that to a bunch of men, they go, mate, who the fuck are you to tell us to calm down? And like, you've got no experience. How do you know what to say in this situation? You're exactly like us. But if it's an experienced guy that's respected, you go, oh, you've been here and done it, so we understand you know what's going forward. So Raiders, yeah, look, if this is a plan for next year and it comes off, Ricky, mastermind. Absolute mastermind. Well done. Congratulations. But right now, I think changes need to be made.
There was a moment like when I saw this team list come out, I looked at it and just thought, like, yes, they're missing Fogarty. So you've got Schneider playing halfback, who you pointed out last week, he's a 5'8". I can understand that one. But if I'm Jack, I'm going, fuck, I've got a 5'8" playing halfback, I've got a front rower playing hooker, I've got a winger playing fucking fullback.
Yeah.
Can you give me someone that plays their fucking position around me? Because I've only started playing this position 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's a good point.
You've got a fullback and you've got a hooker sitting on the bench. And you know what? You're right. Adam Elliott did a really good job.
Yeah. He's not the long-term fix.
He's not the long-term fix. And if I was Jack, I'd be going to St. Ricky going, what the fuck is going on? Give me someone that plays the position. I think Elliott, he has to be 13 moving forward. I thought through the middle, he was great. And it's where he wants to play as well.
And what's crazy as well is you have a fullback, an elite tier fullback. You have a 7. You've got 2 7s that, you know, they're not fucking Nathan Cleary, but they've got experience. They've played a bunch of footy. You know what they're going to give you. I feel like a broken record, but I always go back to it. Like Aiden Caesar, he didn't have, all the Raiders fans are like, he's so vanilla and he doesn't have all these extra stuff that Cleary and whatever do. But he was just calm, collected, got them to where they needed to go. And I think sometimes that's not appreciated enough in rugby league, especially in a team that needs it right now.
You don't need a Nathan Cleary when you've got a Jack.
Absolutely. I mean, Jack literally won the Clive Churchill.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Clive Churchill.
He won both.
One of Clive Churchill's, the Dally M.
Yeah.
So look, I feel sorry for Raiders fans because it's a tough time at the moment. The glass half full, though, to your point, Tim, is that they do have a bunch of young guys in their backline that if they can find their form next year, imagine that backline finding their potential next year. That's a scary backline. Like Timoko, Semi, Valame, Savage. Like they've got Kotrick, who's still only 22, 23.
Harley Smith will be back.
Harley Smith. Yeah. So tough times. At least the silver lining for the Raiders is at least their roster isn't a roster that you're sitting there going, oh, fuck, I don't know what the future's like for these guys. It's a roster of like, there is a lot of promise here.
And they have got, Trey Mooney's coming through and Harry Rushton's made his debut the last few weeks. So there are good young guys coming through this
pack
system.
depth is outstanding, so there's going to be a platform for these young, exciting outside backs to work with. So there's a bit of light, but just want to see it, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So very easy for us to say, Raiders fans going, mate, I didn't give a shit about 2 years. I want to win some footy matches now. But it is something to consider, like when you compare the Raiders, like people that may be like, oh, the Raiders are, in the same position as the Doggies or the Tigers. Like, nah, no way. Not in my opinion. I think they're below them on the table. But when you look at their roster, I think that roster is, if they can keep it together and get the best out of them, it's a scary roster in the next few years. Warriors. Personally, this is a tough game to judge because the Raiders, they faded so well. But what I will give the Warriors credit for is they fought.
Yep.
They fought and hung in there. I think Warrior of yesteryear would have just let that game kind of go and said, look, we're so far behind, like, fuck it, whatever. This Warriors, they fought, man. You got to remember, they got towed up 70 points to fucking whatever last week, 10. So for them to come back after they started off poorly, you have to respect that. You have to appreciate that. We got to talk about it, though. Did you think the forearm raised by Lodge deserved 10 in the bin? Arguably, like Freddie was even implying 10 in the bin at minimum. What did you think about the forearm?
Yeah, I thought it should have been 10 in the bin. Yep. I think it's something we need to get out of our game. You don't want to. We don't see it all that often.
Yeah.
But it's another thing. I think you go harsh on it. I don't think send off. I think that's a bit over the top. But 10 in the bin for me.
What do you think, Timmy?
Yeah, I think sin bin would have sufficed. Nothing more, but I think deserved 10 in a big moment in the game.
Yeah. What do you think, Matty?
If it's a defender, it's a straight send-off, and I know it's different. So if you got your bumpers up and you get it completely wrong like he did, I reckon it's definitely 10 in the bin.
Mate, definitely 10 in the bin. There's no place for that in a game. It's not tough. It's, I understand in the 80s that used to be like, oh, yeah, how tough's that? But when you actually think about it, like, it's really, why I say it's not tough is I'm not saying Matt Lodge isn't tough. We all know he's tough as fuck. Like, he's a hard-running front rower. What I mean is like, there's certain parts of the game you kind of allow slip into it because you're like, it's part of the toughness. Like, an arm slips up here or there, it's kind of part of the toughness. Maybe a half gets hit a little bit late and rubbed his face in the ground. It's kind of all part of the... Whereas a raised forearm, it's just like, it doesn't add anything to the game. There's really nothing it adds. So I thought, I was really surprised he didn't get sent 10 in the bin. I don't think it was a send-off, but I do think it was a 10 in the bin. Now we have to speak about this as well. Lodge gets hit... he did get hit in the head technically, but it wasn't much in it. Now, I understand in his mind, he is thinking, I don't care if you all call me soft. I'm trying to win games for my team. So I think a lot of people probably would have maybe taken the same option as him, but it isn't a good look for the game. Did you think it was a penalty in that part of the game? With the latest crackdown.
It was always going to be, and that's what, I think part of I know everyone's blown up about Lodge, but I think part of this has to be put on the NRL. That's the environment they've created.
Well, what did I put?
I guarantee if we go down the other end and he puts a slightly high shot on Corey Horsburgh lies down as well, because you've got to win that game of football for your team.
And I put in the notes, Gurino and I said the head-high tackle crackdown would cost a team the game. Look no further.
Yep.
Now, that's hyperbolic because the Raiders cost themselves that game. They put themselves in that position. But technically, if he doesn't get that penalty, Raiders win that game.
Raiders hold on. Yeah.
What did you think about...
Yeah.
Is this a Lodge problem or is this a crackdown problem?
It's a crackdown problem. It's not a Matt Lodge problem. I was sitting there watching it saying that wasn't a penalty. It pissed me off. Lodge line down pissed me off, but, mate, I probably would have done the same thing. You're trying to win games of footy for your club.
Yeah.
He's not the first person to do it out of nowhere. It's across the board. And if the crackdown needs to come from the NRL and they need to stop it happening in whatever way they choose suitable, but you can't get up Matty Lodge for trying to win his team footy game, which he did successfully.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's where if he stands up, when guys get up from that, they go, oh, he's tough. It's like, no, it's fucking stupid. You're going to get a penalty if you stay down there. Why wouldn't you stay down?
Imagine what Nathan Brown's saying if he got straight back up. He's like, mate, stay down.
And when you're a Raiders fan, I'm sure there would have been a heap of Raiders fans at the pub after, that fucking Lodge, blah, blah, blah. But if it was the other way around,
you'd be saying stay down.
It's 2 points.
We're messaging each other, and remember how a guy didn't stay down and he didn't get the penalty, and we were like, I guarantee you, if he stays down, he gets the penalty.
Well, it happens all the time.
Fuck, I can't remember who we were talking about. Matty, what do you think about it?
I know I'm in the minority. I've never had a problem with players staying down. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you're either a dog to everyone or you're a dog to your teammates for not getting a penalty. Yeah. And Matt Lodge, he's there to win a game for his teammates and his club and his fans. Like, whenever South do it, I scream, stay down the whole time. I know it's against the spirit of the game or whatever, but I don't care. Stay the fuck down.
That's the environment the NRL has created. Yeah. You can see it. You know who does it all the time and he always gets up? He's Kieran Foran. He's too fucking tough for his own.
He's in like he doesn't stay down all the time.
He gets hit, and I'm like, if you stay down, you get a penalty. And he wrestles his way back up, and he stands up, and you're just like, and I respect him so much for it. But at the same time, if you can get that penalty, they're so important in rugby league, and I don't know. It's just when Matt Lodge is 20 metres in front of the 6, they're down by 2. If you tell me you wouldn't have lied down, then I'm sorry, you're lying.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys.
You're lying or you're stupid.
Yeah,
one of the
like,
two.
What, youimagine Nathan Brown. You walk in and you go, Nathan Brown. He's like,
see how tough I was.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, why don't you stay down? And you're like, bro, I'm fucking tough, man. Like the people on the internet think I'm tough as shit now. Why wouldn't I lay down?
Footy. Yeah.
And then Brown's like, bruh, you just cost our club like. That's all the things people don't put in perspective as well. Every loss costs the club money. It's not like you win money at the end of the game, but like memberships, people tuning in the next game. Are they going to come around? Like everyone knows that when your team is winning, crowds go up. When they're losing, crowds go down. Like it all matters. So, look, I agree. In a perfect world, the problem is a slippery slope, and the slippery slope is you watch soccer and you're like, this is disgraceful. Like we never want to get to the point like soccer where they're literally like rolling 10 meters holding their ankle. That's the slippery slope. I think it's one of those arguments that you're never going to get a right answer for. Yeah. Because I understand teams that go, we're not about that shit, we're not going to do it. And I'm like, you know what? I respect that. You're going to win games other ways. I can get that. But on the other side, it's like, well, teams are going to do it to us, so we may as well do it. If the ref's not going to call it, we're going to make sure he calls it. Like for example, one of my pet hates, I don't mind, like that one I can understand why Lodge does it, but like when people go like this, like hold their neck and then they're immediately sweet, it's like, oh, that is a little bit frustrating. But I can understand what, they're trying to win at all costs. So it's I don't know what the right answer is for this, I really don't.
And if I'm a Warriors fan, I'd be saying, well, should have had James Tedesco sent off 2 weeks ago. That didn't go our way.
Oh, 100%.
We're going to make this go our way.
Oh, anyone that's like as a Warriors fan, I'm like, if anyone is upset, I'm like, are you serious? Have you seen the calls that we've copped over the last few years or whatever? Warriors fans, be stoked. Like, you have nothing to be like. You cop bad calls all the time.
I hate it, but I get it 100%.
Yeah, I hate it, but I get it. I don't know what the right answer is. What do you reckon, Timmy?
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been sitting here running through my head with ideas and solutions and that, and there's not a lot of great ones, is there, about how they do it. You can sit there and say, maybe if it's in play and the ref allows it to go, we can't make a judgment after they stay down, well, then there's going to be circumstances where you're like, clearly a penalty had to be given or whatever. Yep. It's just like, mate, I'd have to sit down there and have a proper thing to come up with something, but right now, no.
I felt sorry for Corey Horsburgh in the moment. It's two big, fiery front rowers going at each other. You got to throw everything into it. And I thought Horsburgh controlled himself. Oh, yeah. Considering how we know Corey can get, I thought he held himself very well. And it was
one of those tackles was just pure aggression that slipped up into him. So, yeah, tough one. Look, Warriors, I thought 6 Assie was good for his first game.
Very good.
Outside of that, like, as I said, they just did really well to stay in the contest and not give up.
I thought Aitken,
Aitken was
they got beat 70-10 last week, but that game was close for the first 30 minutes. So, and it was close because Aitken made about 3 try-saving tackles in that game. Yeah. So, for him to stand up in this game and get a try assist, I think he made 45
tackles, 0 misses.
Yeah.
Big effort.
Whoever signs him next year, they are cruising.
Yeah, and you know what? They'll get him on a good price too.
Get him for a great price.
A bargain buy. So, yeah, look, I think Adam Vanor Blake, once again, 145 metres. I mean, he's just so good. He's becoming one of the most consistent players in the comp. Like, I rate him so highly. Outside of that, SJ, once again, delivering. I know he's been a little bit up and down last few weeks. I think he's been struggling with that injury a bit. But, he is now 1-2 games with field goals. Like, that's what you bring him to the club for. Yep. And he did it. Outside of that, I think, if I'm being honest, I think they're a bit back light at the moment. I think they need to go into the market for a few outside backs. There were a few times where crucial errors came from their outside backs. Last week, the game against Storm, if their outside backs don't make those 3 errors, is the game the same? Probably not. I think they probably fight on and Storm probably still win, but I think the game is a much different outcome just because those 3 tries really hurt them.
Yeah, well, they obviously lost Peter Hiku last year. DWZ's been injured for the majority of this year too. So, but I mean, outside of DWZ, off the top of my head, I don't think they're real. Like, they're not waiting for any backs to come back, are they? Realistically, so yeah.
Yeah, so I think that they either need to focus in on developing these guys and sticking with them, or they probably need to go in the market. But at the moment, their outside backs just making a little bit too many crucial errors in crucial moments. Like there was, one of the wingers coming out of trouble. The game was in the balance. I think they had just scored points. After they scored points, I think like 3 times they dropped the ball, and then they just scored points again coming out of their own end, and he just dropped the ball cold. And it was like, bro, like, it was an unforced error. The game's on the line. Like, it's one, you can't have that. So I do think Jesse Arthurs has been pretty good for him, though. I think he's been, on the weekend, he didn't get as much involvement, but the weekends before, I think he's been pretty good. Reece Walsh had some good moments, some really good pickups in his own goal line. But outside, Ewan Aitken for me was the player of the game. Now, on to the next game. Doggies versus Roosters. So I actually called this upset on the Matty Johns show.
Did you?
And I called the Warriors too for a win. So that was 3 upsets I got on this weekend. 3 upsets. Big weekend for me. I think I actually finished the weekend 7-8.
Wow.
I think.
It's good, not.
But the Broncos obviously got lucky because that's my team. Warriors, you could say that wasn't that much of an upset. And then Bulldogs, that was just a Hail Mary, if I'm being honest. I want to talk about quickly the Manu and Sawali. I'm sure you've seen a lot on the internet, people just giving it to Manu and Sawali about that picture where they're spraying Shoop. I just want to speak about that quickly. Boys, does anyone really think Manu just randomly got up and was like, we've watched this guy play for 5 years, massive, gentleman, never, clearly Shop and him were having a back and forth.
Shop's got a bit in him.
Shop's got a lot in him, and he's actually becoming one of my favourite players. Yeah. He is now he is defended and kept quiet Stags and Manu as a rookie. Second year, obviously, but I talk rookie in terms of I think he's 20 years old.
They
now.
didn't want to pick him at the start of the year.
They didn't want to pick him, 100%. Now he's kept quiet. Stags had arguably his quiet game. Manu had his most quiet game outside of that flick pass, but it didn't end up going up. But yeah, anyone that thinks Manu just got up and was like, "Fuck you, I'm the man." Fuck you, no, there would have been banter way before that Shoop was in his face talking shit, and then obviously he got back to him. So yeah, just want to. Unless you guys have a different opinion,
No.
Did you see that online? People were just giving it to him?
Yeah, I saw, and I think it was compounded because I think it was on the Matty Johns show.
Yeah.
Matty said to Radley, "I was there chatting." He went, "No, I didn't hear anything." But
of course he didn't.
Of course he didn't. Yeah, he would have been 50 meters away from it the entire time. But yeah, that's very. I wonder if it is a bit of frustration. I'm sure there was chat between them, but I think it might be a sign of a bit of frustration at the Roosters too.
Yeah,
just
maybe.
In general with how they're going.
Yep. What do you think, Timmy?
It'd be like Jake Trbojevic coming out of a tackle with Mick Innes, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And Jake Trbojevic comes out blowing up, and people are saying, they wouldn't say Jake Trbojevic, what a dickhead, would they? He's carrying on with something. I was like, something's gone on there.
Absolutely. You're Manu, how long have we seen him play and he's never stepped a foot wrong? Even after the Latrell situation, he didn't he was almost reasonable about saying why'd you do that to me? And that was in a dramatic fucking.
And I reckon there's a good chance that Shop and them might not have gone after Manu. They might have gone after Swali.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Think about it. Swali, the golden dick, fucking gets signed on signed on this massive contract. Everyone's talking about him. You're this gritty centre that is in a team that's struggling, that didn't get a start. You got a chip on your shoulder, and that's what makes Shoop so good. Is it Shop or Shoop? I don't know how to say it. Sorry, bro. I'll get it right one day. He's got a chip on his shoulder, but that's part of his game, which you want. I want that fucking mongrel in my side.
And they got the response out of Sual. He's sitting there lipping and blowing up, and you're going, beauty, I'm in their head. I've done exactly what I wanted.
Absolutely. So I loved it. I thought it was fucking fantastic. What do you think, mate?
Everyone loves Joey Manu, but you got to remember as well, he does play for the Roosters.
That's another thing. Yeah, people want to hate the Roosters.
And also, the Roosters, not to ref bash, but they've been so lucky last few weeks.
Oh, man. 2 of their tries. One off a forward pass, another one off a knock-on. I'm sitting there going, if you wanted to not make the narrative that the big clubs get the calls louder, you wouldn't want to look at those last 3 games of the Roosters.
Especially the biggest club.
Holy shit. How didn't the touchy see that knock-on from Angus Crichton?
Oh.
And this is no knock on the players. They're just playing footy they can't.
I thought the forward pass from Keary was worse. It had to be a metre forward.
Insane.
Even if you didn't watch the ball, just his body language, you could tell that ball was never going anywhere but forward.
It's 2 tries. The game, without those 2 tries, the game's not really, it's close-ish, but no, that doesn't go down to the death. Imagine you're Trent Barrett, and you watch that happen, and imagine they lost that game. And him going to that press conference. He has every right to be are you serious? You've got video. What I'm not getting is they keep saying, oh, well, you can't call on that play before. And it's hang on a sec. You guys have let whole sets go and then said, oh, foul play on video ref and caught a penalty. But you can't say no try with a clear knock on that's on the play the ball of the try. How does that make sense?
Common sense.
Like that's absurd, and that's what I think frustrates fans so much. And we won't go too far down the ref bashing. I don't want to do that. It's not really the ref; it's a video ref. But it's like that's just crazy to me. That makes no sense. We see games get stopped all the time for stuff that's happened ages ago. This is a clear indication the game is in the balance. In the balance, that he has knocked it on. You can see it right there, and you just like we technically can't do it. It's like, come on, man, come on. What do you think about that, Timmy?
Yeah, mate, I'm with you, and I'm just like, thank Christ the Dogs got the result. It would have been horrific to see him lose this game.
If
after
they
all
lose,
of that concern.
I understand why Trent would
I'm kind of like, I don't want to have the conversation because thank Christ the Dogs won the game, but you have to touch on it anyway. It's tough one.
Could you imagine if they lost that? Like as a club, what that means to them?
Question as well. The Suwali's try that got disallowed. Did you think that was an obstruction anyway? Because they cleared that, and Burton got to Suwali and. He could have got there quicker and bundled him into touch.
Yeah, exactly. And the evidence was it was centimetres. And so that slight obstruction was an extra half a metre. So it's like, mate, it makes no, like, when you watch that and you go, how can't you see that out of all the obstructions that we've given, you're not going to give that as an obstruction when there is clear evidence, like his foot is like this close to the touchline. You can't see that if Matt Burton had an extra half a metre, he wouldn't have just bundled him straight into the sideline. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, let's focus on the positive. Doggies, what a performance. What a performance. They were gritty. They were tough. Flanagan, I thought, was really involved. I think Burton still really needs to work on his fifth tackle options. They're just, unfortunately, they're poor. They're really poor. But what I loved about Burton is he stayed in the game, and that 40-20 was a crucial big play. And I think that he proved why you spend big money on players like him. They make big plays in big games. What do you think about the Doggies, Guru?
Yeah, I always think with Burton, probably the thing he struggles with the most, I think it was really evident the other night, his short kicking game when he's kicking along the ground.
Yeah.
He just tends to find feet so often. I think that's definitely something he needs to improve on. That 40-20. Oh, I did a 40-20 with a spiral kick. People don't appreciate it. Like, I think we said it a few weeks ago, take 10 footballs down to the park and try and kick a 40-20. Try and do it with a fucking spiral.
Oh, mate.
You might find touch on the other sideline. Yep. It is just impossible, and he just makes it look so easy, just effortless.
Yeah. His kicking game, if he can sort the short kicking game out, but his long kicking game, fuck, that's a weapon.
Jesus.
And I was watching on the weekend, I was like, I feel like not enough teams utilise the early kick. Like, how often have we seen teams just getting bashed in their own end and they're just like, another hit up, and then they get this kick away and it's on halfway anyway. And you're like, well, why don't you, as a half, sit back and go, okay, we're getting bashed. Let's kick it on the second tackle or the third tackle, but let everyone know that it's on so that at the very least, the whole forward pack has to turn around now. Also, their outside backs, they're not back as well. So if you get down to that fullback and he's isolated, that's what will happen is there's only going to be a winger there maybe to scoot. So you know he's going to scoot. You win that next play. I just don't think it's utilised enough. And Benny Hunt has started to use it to a degree.
Well, the one that Ben Hunt did last night, he went two wingers.
Smart as.
Out of dummy half, just went bang. The ball actually came to a complete stop. That's how much time that they gained out of it. Unfortunately, his team didn't back him up as well as they could have.
And that's what I was talking about with the Raiders against the Panthers. I was like, I don't understand why you don't just go, red set, boys. We're kicking on the second. I'm going to boot the shit out of it. Everyone on board. We want a full kick chase. Then you win those first two tackles. All of a sudden, they're the ones under the pump that can't make any metres, and they can either return the kick, which they won't because they're just not going to do that, and you win the ruck.
It almost can't go wrong. Like, in terms of the early kick, they're not suspecting it, so your kicker should have plenty of time, provided the hoof is good and they get the distance and the blokes are chasing. Again, very easy things to do. It can't really go wrong.
It can't, especially when you're already getting dominated in the ruck. And
as I said, then you make that boot Matt Burton's. And it's kicking it from his 20 to their 20. It's like, Jesus Christ.
100%. I think clubs should start utilising it more. It will really change I think it'll change the game because that line speed no longer can be as effective because you're just going, fuck it. All right, third tackle, get directly behind the ruck and just fucking belt it, get that kick chase, and all of a sudden they're the ones on the back foot, not you. Yes, you may lose field position to a degree, but if you win those first three tackles, doesn't matter.
You should. You've got wingers and centres running at you for the whole,
And the forwards, they're like, oh, shit, now we've got to sprint back. Like, Yeah,
it's the go-to tactic in wet weather for wet weather footy. And that's more so because of risk minimisation and going, all right, the more times we have the ball in our hands, the more tackles we face, the chance you have of knocking it on. But it can be applied to dry weather for that exact reason. It's like, and I think it's definitely underutilised.
Yeah, Matty Burton, 662 metres. We spoke about Josh Addo-Carr just in the team of the week, but he is playing some great footy, and very rare does a winger go to a lower tier team and continues to play the footy that he's. I think everyone, not everyone, a lot of people I guarantee Fox won't have the same stats because he's going to a shit club, but it just shows you Fox's greatness. It shows you how good this guy is, that he's gone to a wooden spoon club and he is putting up better, arguably better, and especially the last 2 weeks, than his stats down in Melbourne. It's incredible. It's incredible, and it's why he is one of the greatest wingers to ever play the game, in my opinion. Aaron Shoup, for me, he's fast becoming one of my favourite underdog centres. He's aggressive. He's in your face. He doesn't respect anyone. I love that shit. He was really good. I remember we spoke about it at the start of this year in the season preview. I was like, mate, he's one to watch. He's one to watch because he was one of their better players last year. Outside of that, look, I think Vaughan's been pretty good for them. I really have. Luke Thompson, as I said, was really good. Incredible win by the Doggies, and you can build off this. This is something that you can keep in the vault to keep looking back to. Boys, we can do it. It's no longer a case of we don't have the squad anymore. We have the squad. Do we have the buy-in? What do you think, Matty?
I thought the major difference as well was the Bulldogs kind of won those moments. Like, for example, Sammy Walker throws a pass out wide and Josh Addo-Carr picks it off. Whereas in the second half, Duffy throws the exact same pass and it finds Ockenbaugh and they scored. The thing we haven't spoken about is the week that they had with Phil Gould and Trent Barrett. Like, watching Trent Barrett on the sideline riding him home was just, it was great theatre. Yeah,
absolutely. And Matty John said this on the potty on Friday, but, Trent can't win, though, because now everyone's like, oh, it was the Gus Gould spray. And it's like, oh, fuck. And then if they lose, it's like, oh, yeah, Trent Barrett can't coach. It's like it's an unwinnable situation. But you know what? At the end of the day, all that matters is the club's win. So I'm sure Trent doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, and just on that Phil Gould thing, I mean, it's not a great look for Trent Barrett, but fuck, if you've got a guy like Phil Gould in the building, why not use him?
Yeah, may as well use him. Yeah.
And you look through, I mean, and if you go back, the Roosters had their 0-2 reunion the other day. They did a little doco-series on their website. Go and watch it. And the boys openly talk about that Phil Gould came and took a couple of sessions in 2002 when they were struggling at the start. And it turned them around. They went on to win a comp a few weeks later.
Yeah. Yep.
It's unreal how quickly a week can change things for a club in footy. Last week we were talking about the Dogs and being 1-7 and going, they've had a tough run, but they've competed, whatever. You still need wins on the board. You're now going, all right, they've had the most brutal start to the season. They've played Manly, Storm, Panthers, Bunnies, Bronx twice, and then the Cowboys round one, which actually won. Cows who are now sitting third on the ladder. 2-8, but they're also on 4 points with 4 other clubs. So they now come into games with a bit of self-belief against the Raiders, where they're probably going to start favourites for, out of nowhere. Into the Knights, Tigers, Dragons, you're going, all right, there's some winnable games coming up. You get a little bit excited.
And then you get Penrith during Origin.
Penrith during Origin.
And that's one thing Bulldogs don't get enough credit for. They had probably the most treacherous start, them and Rabbitohs, to the season. And they've squeaked. They had 1 or 2 really poor games, but outside of that, the first 4 games they were good. They just got pipped. So, yeah, look, Doggies fans, enjoy it. What a win. What an incredible win. Now, Roosters. Yeah, man. It's one of those things where I don't know what the issue is. If I have to be honest, when I watch them these days, I feel like they're missing a bit of their spirit that Boyd Cordner, Friend, Orbo really brought to the club. And so I think they're just trying to find their leaders again in moments that they need a leader. Whereas, for so many years, it was like, we're under the pump here. Oh, Jake Friend and Boydo, they'll take care of it. Whereas at the moment, I feel like they're still trying to develop as a squad. Because when you look at their forward pack, it's actually outside of Tokiaho and Hargreaves, it's a relatively young forward pack. So, look, not the best that they didn't win. Am I getting closer to start saying maybe they won't go on a run? Yes. I am getting a bit concerned that some are even saying they might not make the 8. I think they'll make the 8. I just need to see. I'm just not seeing the same Roosters I saw a few years ago,
And you mentioned the young forward pack, except for Takia, Rhea Hargraves. They did more work than any other front rowers in rugby league last year. And I think you can see that it's taken a toll on Rhea Hargraves, definitely, because what he had to do last year was
Oh, it was enormous.
Crazy.
At the age that he was at, to do what he did last year was incredible.
I'm sure that Robbo went into last season thinking Lindsay Collins and Origin play now, I can pull Rio Hargraves back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm sure his pre-season probably would have reflected that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, mate, he was playing 80 minutes every third or fourth week.
Yeah.
It's so weird watching the Roosters, not knowing what you're going to get.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
It's just not what we got used to with the Roosters.
Yeah.
And like Teddy's back to his, not to his best, but he's, running for 300 metres, 11 tackle breaks, a line break, a try. But I don't know. It's, I can't, the Walker Keary is just not clicking the way I thought it would click. I think Keary is really, he's not really struggling, but I do think that knee is giving him a little bit of, not trouble, but I just don't think he has the same confidence. See, what made Keary so good, he's one of the bravest halves in the comp. He would play with so much speed at the line that what he would do is he would take time away for you to make that decision. And so people would constantly make the wrong decision, jam in or stay out or whatever, because they just didn't have time to make a call, so they just guess. Whereas I think maybe the injury has taken away that confidence for Keary to be as agile and quick as he was maybe. And it'll come back in time. But I think we just have to show that enough respect that he's coming back from an ACL. But yeah, the Roosters, I don't know. What do you think?
I think I sort of look at the halves, and that's the big watch every week for the Roosters. And I look at why, Keary isn't gelling with Sammy Walker there and what's going wrong. And I look at Toby Sexton, where we're saying, all right, just if he had an experienced half with him, he could take a bit of a back seat and, learn the ways. I think the Roosters have the opportunity to do that. And I think sometimes less is better, and I think they need to go back and just simplify things a little bit. We touched on it last week, but between Teddy and Walker floating around everywhere and Keary, I think they're just too many creative players. I'd just be going and saying, all right, boys, we need to slow things down a bit. Keary, you play as our number 7. You steer the ship, make directions. Sammy, you take a bit of a back seat. You can slide both sides of the field and play more as that 5'8", and just almost dumb it down a little bit. And people will stop stepping on each other's toes, and I think with that will come a lot more fluency in attack. I would love to see that, because we've seen time and time again in recent years, after Keary left the Bunnies, when he was playing as a 5'8", and he had a similar to the situation now, and Adam Reynolds was running the show as the experienced half.
Yep.
He went to the Roosters, and there were games where he became that halfback and the organiser. I think they can do that now and just say, mate, it's your show to run. You're the experienced half here, and I think off the back of that, they'll get better results.
What do you reckon, Matty?
I reckon the Roosters plays, they have enough runs on the board for us to say that we'll give them more time to click, because we've got to remember Keary didn't play last year. His ACL. They haven't had a hooker since Verrills came back in the last few weeks. Also, just specifically on the game, Josh Addo-Carr's second try was just awfully uncharacteristic, poor defence from the Roosters. Like Joey Manu, one of the best centres in the game, was just caught in no man's land, which is just a blip on the radar. So yeah, I'm happy to give the Roosters time. If it's round 18 and they're still, playing 4 or 5 out of 10 every week, then we got a few issues. But yeah, I don't know. I have enough trust in those Roosters players.
Yeah, I agree. I've trust in their systems. I've trust in their whole setup. I think they're just... It's like Cronulla to a degree. When Cronulla won the comp and they had that real core of just mongrels that would... Every time the game got tough, Luke Lewis, Paul Gallen, those boys would just fucking come together and lead the boys. And I just think they're trying to find those kind of leaders again. And I do believe it'll come. I'm still of the mind that they will make a run later in the year. But even if they don't, I have faith in their ability to recruit, for one. We all know they fucking can recruit. But also develop players. So I don't think it's that worrisome. So we have to remember, they were on such a high, like back-to-back premierships. Hasn't been done for 20 years or whatever. Very hard. It takes something out of you, it's going to take something out of you. So
could you argue as well that the way they the way they just dramatically overachieved last year could have also similarly taken stuff?
For sure.
I remember what year, it was 2017 where the Cowboys had a heap of injuries and they killed it. And then I looked at their team in 2018 and went, fuck, they went all that way and all these guys come back and they sucked.
Yeah.
They were so shit, and I'm starting to wonder if it's like, mate, I watched that game on the weekend. I mean, Chook scored 3 tries. Teddy scored the one down the short side, which it was just a bad missed tackle from TPJ. They didn't have an overlap. It wasn't a great visionary sort of play to go down there. Tupanua scored off a forward pass and 2 kicks. And then the one that Suwali scored, like, he was good in the air. That was the worst set of 6 I've seen from the Roosters in a long time. They had 2 dummy half scoots, and then Sam Walker did 2 circles and dropped it back under. Then they just kicked it to a more athletic guy. Like, 3 tries that they probably didn't deserve, realistically.
Yeah, look, it's interesting times for the Roosters. I feel like we did kind of say it may be a little bit of a mini rebuild at the club because they'd lost such experience, but I'll be honest, I probably thought they'd be a bit further along than they are at the moment. I'm definitely surprised as to where they are right now. But I got faith in Trent Robinson in that system there. They'll find a way. Now, onto the Eels versus Cowboys. Cowboys first. Wow. They're looking good, man. They're looking really good. Now, I think, yes, they have to face the top tier. I want to see them against the Storm. I want to see them against the Panthers. Understandable. But we've got to give credit where credit's due. This is a team that no one had in their 8. At best, fringe of 8. At worst, spoon. Literal spoon. They're currently sitting 3rd on the ladder. They're the most improved team. And they've just taken an Eels team that's beaten the Storm 3 times in a row to task. Cowboys, I think Drinkwater has made a massive difference for them. I think the decision by Payton to focus on defence has been super important. It's a masterstroke from him. Dearden's been great. Townsend's been great. Cotter has been so good for him. Taumalolo looks like he's back at his best, like his barnstorming best. He looks happy. He looks aggressive. Cowboys are looking good. What do you think, Timmy?
Mate, Scotty Drinkwater, how good... It's funny saying he's an injection in that team. He's been with the squad a while now, but just coming in, his passing game, it hasn't come as a shock, but it is just sublime.
Yeah.
That basically no-look spiral for that first try of the game, I think it might have been. I was just sitting there going, that is just masterful, isn't it? Yeah. And what he's injected into that attack has been phenomenal. What Toddy Payton, we spoke about it in depth last week, but he's just getting 100% out of every player in that squad, isn't he? Looking at the roster at the start of the season, I was going, it's pretty flat. There's not a lot of... but I just didn't rate it, to be honest. Yep. And now you're going, every one of them players is playing to their best footy, and that has to come back to Todd Payton.
Yep. Oh, man. What do you think?
Well, and there's part of me that wants to say, hey, Todd, you should have listened to us 6 weeks ago. But then there's also part of me that says, you know what? Drinkwater's playing his best footy, I think, because of the way Todd treated him in the early weeks. I think he has pushed the best football out of him. Hammer came on at the end and looked great, which is just a bigger headache. But personally, I think Drinkwater has just closed the case on the fullback argument.
I think so. I think he offers so much. He's so more suited to today's fullback than, say, Hamiso. I think Hamiso, maybe 10 years ago, you would say he's like the perfect fullback. I think in today's game, you need a ball player back there. And I think Hamiso, he can play centre really well. He can play wing really well. The problem is, it's like, man, someone in that team I feel sorry for. I know he came on and absolutely killed it, but I would still start Hiku next week.
Yeah.
And I would still bring Hamiso on off the bench to bring impact.
And I would apologise to Granville 1,000 times.
1,000 times,
I'm
absolutely.
Sorry. It just...
I mean, I can't believe Hamiso came on to do that, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you fucking serious? Like, comes straight on, makes 2 line breaks.
I think it was 160 metres.
160 metres in 15 minutes. No one does that shit. And I actually think this environment is going to bring the best out of Hamiso. You know, he's kind of that player that if he gets comfortable, I can see him being like, you know what, I can break the game open whenever I want. I'll just do that. Whereas like this environment where it is hard to get into that back line, I think we're going to see the best out of Hamiso.
And you know what I loved? Hamiso came on and was sensational, and Drinkwater sort of went, fuck, he looks good. I'm going to chip over the top and I'm going to score the last try.
Yeah.
We're up by 30 here.
Crazy.
I'm still going to try and bury them.
So good. And like Hiku's defence was outstanding. Valentine Holmes, like, wow. Who would have thought he would be this good in the centres? Talangi, great. Kyle Felt, you know, I mean, the Cowboys are just looking so good. What do you got, Timmy? Not Timmy.
Just with the back line and Hamiso and the headache, for me personally, if I was Todd Payton, I'd say for the next month, because they've got Dragons and Knights, which are 2 winnable games. Then they've got Storm and Panthers, which are obviously the 2 top dogs. I'd say Hamiso, come off the bench for those 4 games. We'll just stick with what we got for the next month. And then after the 2 tough games, I'll probably reevaluate and see where we're at.
Yeah, I don't change anything. Fuck me, don't change anything. Like,
you can't, yeah.
If they come out next week and have a blood jar, then yeah, fair enough. Like Hamiso's so good, you get him in there. But Mate, I think you've got to stick with Drinkwater at the back. I think Drinkwater was... we have to remember he was kind of forced into that 6 role because they didn't have a half. If you recall correctly, he was brought up to the club, I'm pretty sure, from the Storm as a fullback.
Yeah.
He was ahead of Pappenhausen. So
Yeah, he was ahead of Pappenhausen. Pappenhausen. I don't even know how to say it anymore. Hausen?
Yeah.
Pappenhausen? Like, I don't know how to say it
Rattled
anymore.
yourself.
I honestly don't know how to say it anymore. I've been so back and forth between it. I don't know how to say it anymore. But he knows I love him. Pappy, you know I love you, baby. Yeah, look, Drinkwater, we forget, he was brought up as a fullback that was in front of the great little Schnackenhusen. And and he was forced into that 6 role because I think they were just like had no halves. They had like Clifford, I think at 7, that was trying to put things together. It wasn't
Morgo
really...
was in and out.
Morgo was in and out. And so they needed one at 6. But we forget this guy is a top tier fullback that the Storm didn't want to lose. They didn't want to lose. It was only because Drinkwater got injured and did his pec, and then Hughes got the jump on him. Storm are a fucking joke. Like, they're a fucking joke.
And mate,
think about that.
When he got injured in that trial,
Killed it. He was killing it.
flying.
Yeah, killing it. So I think we all have forgotten how good this kid is at fullback. He's a top tier fullback. Think about how good you've got to be to not only keep Hughes out of the fullback role, to keep little Schnacky out of the fullback role. Like, think about how good you have to be. And we forgot that, and I think we're getting reminded, wow, this kid is special. So much so that, like, is he New South Welshman or a Queenslander?
New South Wales.
I was going to say, if he was a Queenslander, I would consider him at least putting pressure on that fullback position with Ponga.
Is he New South Wales, yeah?
I'm confirming.
I think he's Central Coast or something like
I thought
that.
it was Central Coast.
Okay.
Because I think I may have brought this up like when he was playing fullback when he first got to the club, and I was like,
Yeah, he's born in Penrith, grew up on the Central Coast, and
Well, that's in
played junior rugby
Queensland.
league for
That's in
Terrigal.
that's in Queensland. But yeah, anyway, yeah, Scotty Drinkwater, absolutely amazing. Hamiso amazing. Hiko amazing. All the players, like Cotter through the middle, what a fucking knock. Robson was great. Yeah, as you said, Timmy, they're getting the best out of every single player. Like, every single player is arguably playing career best form outside of Sam Lolo, but like his career best form is like so outrageous. It's almost too much. Now, Townsend, is he by the year or is he in the conversation?
Definitely in the conversation. He has to be a top 3 for me. I mean, just to go back to those stats earlier, the turnaround in this Cowboys team is unbelievable, and he has been the focal part of that.
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
So impressive.
Well, think about it like this. So I would argue, and I felt like Broncos had a better team on paper than Cowboys at the start of this year. I thought that. And I understand I'm biased, so I understand if people say, no, I think Cowboys do. But Reynolds went to the Broncos. Townsend went to the Cowboys. Cowboys are doing better than the Broncos. You know, and Reynolds is fucking the guy. So you have to show some respect to what he's done, Townsend.
Yeah. I thought it was great. You know, I already mentioned it before, that try that Scott Drinkwater scored at the end. He chipped over the top. Did you see the bloke that was sprinting into the in-goals with him? It was Chad.
Chaddy, you missed it.
Chad.
Ran past
Yeah, he
it.
ran past. But like in that situation, you know, I was watching them set up that play and assuming, the ball will go to Chad and he'll kick it. The ball went to Drinky instead and he kicked it, and Chad just goes, it's not my normal role, but I'll just be there.
Yeah,
I'll just get on my
absolutely.
bike and go, and that's great to see.
What do you reckon, Timmy?
Tell you what, I've seen some blokes who love footballers in my time. I'd give my life for David Staggs at club level, of course, not going near the Origin Arena. The Guru and his love for Royce Hunt, I thought had topped that. Mate, your love for the Chad,
I love
it's
the
right
Chad.
up there, and for good reason, mate.
I couldn't understand where I was like, I can't believe we signed Chad Townsend. Like, people don't get, like, I understand fans are just watching the game, so they don't have to like break it down. It's like Chad Townsend offers so much. His premiership winning. He has all the little things. Like, we constantly complain about they don't have a structured half. They don't have a structured. How many teams have we gone through today and said they don't have a 7 to direct around the park? That's what Townsend does. Does he get the try assist? No.
It's the best, mate. And that's it. Like, if Chad Townsend goes and busts 4 tackles, chips and chases and scores, but has a horrific kicking game or like just doesn't get the side around the park, people are going, pretty good game from the Chad, pretty good game. But you sit there and go, no. But when week in, week out, he gets his side around the park and produces that direction, it just does go so unseen to a lot of punters out there, and you're right. And it's great that we highlight it, or you highlight it, because, and they said, whether he's worth that money or not, at the moment, the Cowboys are coming third on the ladder, so yeah.
Yeah, and also it's all relative too.
Yeah.
Like, how much are you paying your 7? If you're paying your 700K, that's a good allocation of your cut.
Yeah.
Because everyone has the same amount of money to spend. If you've managed to get a 7 that's got you in the top 3 right now, it's a bargain, because you've got other teams paying their 7 $1 million sitting fucking 8th, 9th, or whatever. So, and look, it's early in the season, it's only round 8, but they're a 19 point better side.
In defence, they're a 22 point better side
22
altogether.
points. And that all comes, he is the guy directing around the park.
Can you
22
imagine,
points on average.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, Todd Payton, along with the recruitment team at the Cowboys, that's a big team there, we're going to give Chad Townsend 700K, the backlash we're going to cop from people. How's the faith he had in Chad Townsend to come up and deliver on that money?
Yep.
And he's just gone, I knew he'd do it, and here we are.
100%. And I just think that Chad Townsend is just grossly underrated. Like, he's won a comp. He's one of the most recent 7s to win a comp. If you go back before, like, I think last year, he was in, like, there was only 3 players that had won a comp in the last 5 years, 3 7s, sorry, and he was one of them.
And look at the impact he's had on Dearden.
Massive.
Which might be the most important factor of this whole thing.
Dearden is just looking great. So, look, Cowboys.
I think it's still the case, actually. I think it's just Chad, Hughes and Cleary in the last 5 years. Pretty sure.
Last 5 years.
Yeah. Which, you know what I mean? Like, think about that. There's only 3 7s in the comp that have won a comp in the last 5 years. Now, we may miss one person, but what it shows you is, like, this doesn't come around. You don't get a 7 that can win a comp just off, they don't grow on trees. Like,
I guess it's technically 6 years, but whatever.
Yeah, but even deeper than that, I mean, which other 7s have won a comp? Reynolds?
6 years is worse. It's crazier.
Yeah. But even before that, like, Reynolds is the only one still playing that's outside of that, and Ches, DCE. There's not many that have done it.
Yeah, it's very rare to find a premiership winning 7 when Cronk won so many of them in the last period. Like, Cronk was 3 of the last 6. So anyway, I'm stoked for Chad, because you know what? He's such a good bloke. Eels, are we concerned, boys?
I am, yeah. I'm concerned for them, because I look at Parramatta and I think they will beat up on all the bottom sides. They'll beat them. They haven't really been doing it overly well to start this season, but I look at them against the top sides, and I'm sorry, I think we have to start to consider the Cowboys as a top side, don't we? Like, it doesn't feel natural, but I think we have to start to consider them as one of those.
Yeah, one more big win.
At least a top 8 side.
Yeah, top 8 side.
At least a top 8 side.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought Eels, once again, we speak about it every week. I don't understand what on earth is doing with Dylan Brown. I'd honestly just be saying the same thing I said last week, so I don't know if it's worth it.
Everything I said last week, guys, I feel exactly the same. We won't go over it again, but ever since he's moved from there, their attack looks nowhere near as good. Like, that's just it.
They were lucky Newcastle arrived on their doorstep when they did, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And also, I think at least 2, but maybe even 3, were down his short side, him calling the play. And also, the points that they scored last night, guess who threw the pass that was crazy to score the try? It was Dylan Brown looking up, going, oh shit, throwing a crazy, through his back long pass to... Cartwright. Sorry? Cartwright to the winger. Like, that's where you scored your points. It's insane. Anyway, we won't go over it again, but outside of that, like, it's just... The concerning thing I have with the Eels is, like, if their forward pack turns up, they beat anyone. If they turn up and play the way they can play, they beat anyone. But some games, they just don't seem to have that same aggressive nature. What do you think about the Eels, Timmy?
Mate, to be honest, I'm not panicking at all if I'm a Parramatta fan, and it's for the exact reasons that you just mentioned, but it's not so much the attack, it's the defence. Watching that game, Eels and Cows, I think I counted 6 tries, and it may have been all 6, it might have been 5 or 6, were directly through Brown and Hayes Perham. Now, that combination is probably done as soon as this week. So Tom Opicic is due back within the next week or two. Sean Russell, due back in the next week or two.
Yep.
So they're going to slot in there. Brown's going to go back to the halves. Points are going to come off the back of that. The wingers will change, and they're going to get back to the edges that they've had basically for the whole season. But every single try went down that edge as a result of misreads or poor tackles or whatever from that edge. Up until this game, we've mentioned there's the odd game you can just write off, put a line through. I'd be doing that this week. When they get that edge stable again, they'll be fine. I'm very confident of it. Their attack will come good with Brown back in the halves. God, let's hope it's this week, and it should be. But I'm honestly not too disheartened by it if I'm a Para fan.
Yeah. I understand. I understand where you're coming from. I'm coming from the perspective of I think that they should go close to winning comp this year, and we're seeing the same problems that we saw last year with the team, where they would come out, blow teams off the park, and then the next week all of a sudden they're losing to, teams that are not struggling because Cowboys aren't struggling, but they've just been like this year, and they've been in and out of games. Like half the game they play well. And Cam Smith said something to me. He said, one of the things I learned in my career is how you play throughout the year, it always comes out in your last game of the season. He said it doesn't matter, every single year I played, how we played throughout the year, it always came out in the last game of this season. And my concern with the Eels is they go up and down, and they don't get that consistent, that ruthlessness like we see. Because to win the comp, you need to be like Penrith or Storm.
Yeah,
and that's what we need Eels to get at, and I think they've got the personnel to actually get there. And my concern is if they keep doing this, when it gets to the crunch, because I think they are a premiership threat, and I still think they're a premiership threat though, they get to the grand final or prelim, and they have one of these matches where they just all of a sudden turn up, and we're like, what team's this playing? It's not the Eels that we know and love. What do you think?
Just with the Eels, I think they might have got a bit disheartened, which isn't an excuse, but Cowboys didn't help themselves in the first half. Eels had a lot of ball and they just couldn't convert. And then I think they kind of flatlined in the second half because of that, which was kind of just frustrating to see as a fan. But I think the key thing to take out, and I don't know what your guys' opinion is, I think Madison's been their best player in the last 3 weeks.
So good.
And I think it might be time to start Ryan Madison.
Me and Guru have said he should start all year, to be honest. I really believe he should be a starter. He needs to be on the field as long as possible and getting through a bunch of work. He's safe. He's a good tackler. He's a good ball runner. So I'm not alarm bells. I'm talking from the perspective of I think they can win a comp. If you want to win a comp, you got to be ruthless.
And they're going to have to beat Penrith or Melbourne to win a premiership this year. Those two teams are conceding on average 11 and 13 points. Yeah. I was just having a look, the Parramatta Eels, take out the Newcastle game because I think that's a bit of an outlier because Newcastle didn't get off the bus. Their next best defensive game is 14 points against the Dragons. Penrith haven't conceded more than 14 points.
Yeah.
They haven't conceded more than 12 in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah. If you said this performance to me 3 years ago with Eels, I said nothing to worry about. They'll still be in the top 6. They're developing. It's just for me personally, in 2022, the standard has raised for the Eels. Yeah. They need to be. And
I agree. When they make those changes, they'll be okay. They won't be here. They'll be here, but they need to be up here. They live in this middle section. They have for a few years.
Look at Penrith. First 4 games, they're missing Fisher Harris. They're missing Cleary. They still come out and fucking put teams to the sword. And and maybe they're not there yet. Maybe they're not where Penrith and Storm are yet. But if you want to win a comp, unfortunately, you've got to beat them. But I understand I agree with what you're saying, though. It's not like they're going to come back next week, Brown's going to go in the halves, and they're still going to play like that. Personnel come back. They've had an outside back crisis. You have to pay respect to that. They've got decimated through the outside backs. They put Brown back in the halves. They get some proper centres there, build some combinations. All of a sudden, they're back in the shot.
They play Penrith this week, into the Roosters, into Manly with Turbo back.
Holy shit.
Next week's discussion, post-Panthers, hopefully Brown back in the halves. Yeah. We'll see where they're at there.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a really good indication, actually. Really good indication. Now, Knights Storm. We'll try and get quickly because it's getting long. Knights v Storm. Storm, what is there to say? These guys are absolutely incredible. They're almost unstoppable. The only team that's going to stop these guys is Penrith. What else do I say? Cam Munster is in career best form. Hughes is amazing. Pappenhausen is, he's just everywhere. He's constantly on the ball. He's constantly a threat. Anytime there's a period where you need him to be supporting, he's there. His defense is outstanding. His ball playing is improving every single week. Even his defense in contact is better. His talking is improving. I think Nelson Asafa-Solomona is having arguably one of the best years of his career. Harry Grant, he must be a punish to defend because it's almost like a guy that's as good a ball runner as a winger in 9, so you have to always be on the ball. Always be on the ball because he's strong as anything. He's got good footwork. He holds the marker so well. Then you got Cheese coming on, who's a menace through the middle there. They're looking incredible.
Yeah, I think there's a period from last week's game, the last 40 minutes and the first 40 minutes of this week, they must have scored almost close to 90 points.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane what they're doing at the moment. And
shout out Josh King, 212 metres.
Yeah. 63 minutes. Beast.
Against his own old club. It shows you that I kind of feel the Storm continue to prove that it's not a lack of talent that we have. It's a lack of good systems that we have, in my opinion. Because, and Blocker was really good. He called out in this scenario, Blocker was really good. He called out, he was like, when you look at the Storm's backline, they got Tigers reject in Pappenhuisen. They've got Olam, who obviously started footy a bit later. They've got a Wooden Spoon Broncos winger. They've got Nick Meaney, who's also from a Wooden Spoon club. And yet these guys are world beaters now.
Same as Remus Smith as well.
Remus Smith was at a Wooden Spoon. Like, they've got 3 of their outside backs are from essentially Wooden Spoon clubs. It's amazing, their system. It should be studied. Like, if you could, man, if I ran a club, I'd fucking send a spy in there. I'd send a spy in a Storm and say, motherfucker, film everything. Whatever they're doing there, we need to do something similar. Or I'm going into Penrith. Whatever these two are doing, you can never replicate it because you're never going to have the same culture, but you should be taking big bits from it. The problem is like a lot of these coaches have been in the Storm system, so they know what it's like, and yet they still aren't able to replicate it. What do you think, Timmy?
Well, I mean, on the Storm, you've said it. What else is there to add, really?
It really isn't.
I don't have much. I do have one thing which it's pestered me for a while now. Scrum tactics. Storm do it really well. Penrith do it really well. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Mate, it's so simple, but it's holding the scrum, allowing your halfback time to get out and create the extra man, and going a 4-on-3 or whatever it might be every single time. I do not know why clubs don't do it every single scrum. Like, instead of feeding it and going out the back and doing a 3-on-3, you can have an extra man every time, and you'll watch the Storm and Panthers, nearly every scrum they'll do that.
Yeah.
And I know it's a little nitpicky thing, but they score a lot of tries off it. I just don't see why teams don't do it every single scrum.
Well, what I was watching on the weekend, especially with the Storm, I actually just think that across the board, they are at a higher skill level when it comes, like the amount of passes that were sticking, like offloads, like quick hands. Like, I think they must put so many hours into just like tipping on, passing. I think if you could somehow measure the ball skill level of every player, I think Storm would be out and out way better than every team. Like, they execute so much better than every team. So much better than every team. And it's almost impossible to defend, whereas like other teams try to do the same plays as the Storm. They'll knock it on. The pass will be behind the player. They won't be able to tip it on, or, they won't square up. Whereas the level that they execute at when they're on, it's almost impossible to stop. Like, every play they do, the end goal, they always reach it. So if the end goal is we want to have an overlap, they create an overlap. Whereas how often do you watch footy and the end goal is to create an overlap and they don't create an overlap? The Storm do it every time. Yeah. It's incredible. The ball,
like on that, just the slick passing, how everything hits the mark. I was watching Justin Olam on the weekend, who's meant just to be this big wrecking ball, hard centre. It might have been the last try of the game. His catch and pass was just unbelievable. And again, it's these little things that are such big things, and they get right every time.
Every time. They must just drill so much. Like, every training session, they must all spend an extra 30, 40 minutes on passing. Like, they just must be drilling constantly. Anyway, we'll try and speed this up. Knights, Guru, speak to me.
Yeah, I'm worried. Unfortunately, this is the team that we spoke about in the preseason that, after week 2, I sort of thought, geez, I've missed the mark here by a long way. Cashed out on a very lucrative wooden spoon bet, but we'll talk about that another time. I hate money anyway, so that's fucking fine. Thank you, Newcastle.
You let the crowd get to you.
Tell me about it. Have they all still got me on Instagram or what? I haven't heard from them the last few weeks.
Yeah, where's the guys?
Where are they now?
Guru.
Anyway, As much as it looks like we were right, I hate being right. It's so shit.
Well, I mean, I wasn't in the same boat you were in. My boat wasn't as far down the ladder.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you're saying.
But unfortunately, we said this also 3 weeks ago that 2-0 can turn into 2-6 very quickly.
And it did.
Fuck, it's turned into a rapid rate. They've scored 4 points off penalty goals in the last 2 weeks. They've conceded 100 odd points. Mate, I'll tell you what stood out for me yesterday with Newcastle: the 2 kickoffs to start the halves.
Bruh.
Fuck.
Bruh.
One went out on the full, the other one bounced 7 times.
Oh, man.
Bounced on the 10-metre line and no one touched it.
Oh, fuck. Mate, I'm getting worried.
If my under-16 side, if the ball bounced that many times and went dead, they're 15-year-olds, and I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. At least have a crack at it.
Yeah, at least do something.
What do you reckon, Timmy?
Rather you knock it on.
Yeah.
There was one sort of play that stood out to me that sort of summed up the Knights at the moment. It was, I think, might have been Justin Olam's first try where he went through, and there was 4 blokes who just flung a few arms at him. And I know this is the kind of stuff that it's easy to say from behind a desk with a beer in front of you, but it was just pathetic defence from about 4 different players. And I am Kalen Ponga's one of his biggest fanboys. There's a few out there. I'm high up on that list. His last man defence is pretty bloody ordinary, and you will not unsee it now that I've said it now. A lot of tries, physically he's a good defender. We've seen when he came into the line in Origin, that was whacking blokes, awesome. When blokes go through the line and KP has to make that last tackle, he gets it wrong very often. And to the point that, especially with the Knights conceding a lot of tries, the next few weeks, or you can go back over the last few weeks, it happens often. And Olam, granted, good luck trying to stop Olam 1-on-1 5 metres out from the line, but he went through then, just threw nothing at him. It happens a lot.
Yeah, I wonder if he has shoulder problems, because even the game on the weekend, he had a stinger, and sometimes that can sway the way you defend. But I agree with you. Sometimes he does. What's hard though is Tarek Sims makes a break a few weeks ago, and it was a great tackle, put his body on the line. I don't think it's necessarily about putting his body on the line. I think Ponga is one of the braver fullbacks, but it's more decisions. I think his decision making, sometimes he can decide to go for the intercept or slide off to the other man. But he's definitely willing to put his body on the line.
For sure.
Yeah.
He's definitely, he just gets it wrong a lot.
Yeah. It's tough. The tough thing about the Olam one is that was all just energy. If they were on that game, that inside man, as soon as Olam skipped to the outside to that centre, that inside man would have drove straight into him. And even if he gets bumped, it would have been enough to stop Olam's momentum. But because their energy isn't high, the centre was just left to try and fight with him.
Yeah.
And by the time they got across, it was too late. Instead of being fuck yeah, there's a free shot at his ribs here, I'm flying in.
What makes that more disappointing, I guess, for Knights fans would be how the week before they conceded 3 pretty ordinary goal line tries, 2 to Papali'i, 1 to Lane, and then you just hoped they would have talked about that and fixed that this week, and the week before as well against Andrew McCulloch. I think that's what kind of compounds that disappointment.
Yeah, and we spoke about the Dragons game. It's that was a game so important to them, because it would have taken the sting off these last 2 weeks, because it's we're not 6 in a row now, but I'm really concerned. I feel sorry for the boys, because it just looks like one of those situations where nothing's working, and I don't know what the direction is.
Clemmer was the only forward that ran for over 75 metres.
I know.
Clemmer was the only player who had over 35 post-contact metres. Melbourne had 8 guys that ran for more than 35. It's just...
To be fair, in their defence, the Storm did have 63% of the ball. Now, the Knights completed at
55%.
55%, which is their fault.
Yeah.
Which is their fault.
To add to that as well, they didn't touch the ball till the 12th minute.
Yeah. So, I'm concerned, because it's they don't really... Yeah, they've got Brayley to come back in, but outside of that,
They've got some back rowers who were there when they won their first few rounds. And Mitchie Barnett's back in 2 weeks. Lachlan Fitzgibbon, who I'm not a massive fan of him, but he has had decent results there and had results there as a starting back row at the start of the year. So maybe they'll help out, but it's nothing substantial, is it?
Yeah.
I can't believe how good the halves looked in the first few weeks. The first few weeks, the halves looked to me like they'd played together for 5 years.
Yeah.
it's like they've become strangers.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is to do with Clune's injury.
Okay.
He was struggling yesterday with his knee again. I don't think he's right. I think that because he's been in and out of first grade so much, or not so much, but the last couple of years, and he's a bit older, I think he's so desperate to play that he's almost risking his own. He's coming back early because he doesn't want to miss a game. And I get that feeling like as a winger. Like I remember when I broke like a bunch of my ribs, my lung collapsed. I came back 3 weeks later like a fucking moron, like a moron. But I was so desperate to play.
Concerned about job security?
Yeah, but a mixture. I just fucking needed to get back out there.
And I think it's compounded. I mean, the coach said yesterday, he's like, we keep putting in bad performances and I want to drop guys, but I fucking can't. I'm struggling to put enough names on the list as it is.
And they have been unlucky with injury, but I still think, like, for example, completion rate. Like, that is an attitude thing. That's an attitude thing. 55%. So, look, hopefully, I don't think it's like the end of their season at all, but they're in a hole and they got to come together now and fight.
You mentioned Clune there. On stats, he had 9 runs for 30 metres. And that's a direct reflection of just how many times he got caught with the ball. And there was just nothing happening.
Oh, well, I think he was trying, but like no one was up.
But there was no one with him.
Yeah, and that's
there
the
was
thing
nothing
that Storm do so well is every time there's a quick... Like one of their most underrated things of the Storm is you have 17 blokes that are concentrating 80 minutes of the time. Like there's never a minute where the Storm... a player clocks off. They are always aware of exactly what's happening. And if they do clock off, Bellamy sprays them. But every time they get a quick play of the ball, there's 3 blokes. And whereas you look at the teams that are struggling, they get a quick play of the ball, and like no one's up there with the player. Like whereas the Storm, as soon as they get quick play of the ball, it's like they go into autopilot where they all know, oh boys, we need to just like fuck the plays out the back, all that stuff. Let's just get on the front foot. Let's just fucking go. Whereas it's
And just going back to your scramble stuff we've spoken about the last few weeks. The Knights missed 34 tackles. The Storm missed 27, So 8 more. 7 more, sorry. Storm had 10 line breaks to 0.
Yeah. Crazy.
Ronald Volkman signs with the Warriors. Official.
Yeah. Good signing for the Warriors.
Makes a heaps more sense now with Ash retiring.
Yeah, absolutely. They must have known that for quite a few weeks to bring him over. I mean, yeah, great signing, Warriors. Fantastic signing. One of the real young guns of the comp. So look, Knights... they're in a hole, man, and they need to find a way to come together. I don't think their season is over by any stretch, but this next month of footy, in their defence, they have had a rough run. The last 6 weeks they've played some of the better teams, but it's up to them now how they respond to this because they've got the side to be a top 8 side, in my opinion. They've got the side.
If Sportsbet want to unrefund my bet, reach out, please. I'm interested.
What's their next few games? Do you have their next few games by any chance? Because I think their next few games it gives them an opportunity to fight out.
Yeah, I think from memory it gets a little bit easier.
Cowboys, Bulldogs, Broncos, Warriors, bye.
Nice.
Like huge opportunity. Like if I'm Adam O'Brien, I'm going, boys, we have an opportunity here to erase that last 6 weeks. We got an opportunity here. If we win 3 from 4, all of a sudden we're a different footy side. We're sitting just outside the 8 probably, or maybe even on the edge.
I know we're looking pretty far ahead, but then after the bye they've got Panthers, which is obviously tough, but then they've got Canberra and Gold Coast. So it's a pretty
so
good
it's even
run.
like 8 week period, like 7 to 8 week. Huge opportunity. So Knights fans, the positive is the draw isn't against you this next 7, 8 weeks. You have the opportunity to turn this around. So hopefully they find that. Now, just quickly, the Dragons v the Tigers. Dragons get up, but I thought the Tigers looked really good.
Yeah.
Like, I was pleasantly surprised with their fight, their grit. They look like a totally different side. And also, Dragons are now 3 on the trot. So what do you guys think of this game?
I'm still trying to work out how the Tigers lost it. Honestly, if I were a Tigers fan, I'd take a lot out of that game.
Yep.
Their forward pack was so good.
Yeah.
They ran for close to 500 metres more, about 140 extra post-contact metres. Granted, they had more possession, but they were all just on a roll. All these blokes who I hadn't had a lot of time for the last 18 months, were just starting to go mad. Your Musgroves, your Offengowies, a lot of these blokes made line busts. They couldn't capitalise on this momentum and the dominance through the middle. I really thought they missed Dane Laurie because
massively.
Stafford Toa, he's a good, popping in there as a fullback in Laurie's absence. He's more of a centre. Laurie, just the support play. Honestly, when these forwards were going through, they were just screaming out for Laurie to be sniffing around the ruck. It could have turned 2 or 3 line breaks into 4 tries, game over. Gee, they missed him.
Mate, what about their halves? Luke Brooks, 150 run metres. Hastings, 176 run metres. This is a great game from the Tigers. I just think they, as you said, they're just missing the class in their backs. They were just missing that finisher that could just get him those extra... A ball player in the backs, really. Yeah. If they had a ball playing... Like, let's say they had Scotty Drinkwater at the back. You know what I mean? Like, that ball... Or they had Martin from Broncos, or... You know what I mean? Like, if they just had that little bit of extra class there, they probably get the win. So, Tigers fans, I would be proud of that effort. I thought they were great.
There was a moment where the Dragons were starting to get on top and the Tigers were coming out of their own end. And I think it was Hastings jumped into dummy half and he just went bang, 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 bang. Then he jumped into first receiver and he hit Musgrove on the inside and he went through. And Musgrove knocked the ball on as he went to play on. And you just see Hastings in the corner of the screen just sort of go, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was a big turning point in that because they were on the back foot and they just got out of their end. They were on the front foot all of a sudden, and then your front rower that just made you a 30-metre line break.
It was a beautiful line as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, perfect.
The Great 12, another week, another no-miss tackle, 32 tackles.
It's almost not impressive anymore. It's
oh,
just
my
consistent.
God. 186 metres, 32 tackles, 0 misses. I mean, what a knock. I mean, hasn't he hit some red-hot form? Red-hot form. I want to give Offengawa? Is that how you say it?
Offengawa, I've always said, but I'm not sure the exact,
how do you say it, Timmy?
Yeah, I'm in the he department.
Offengawa. Anyway, however you say it, apologies, bro, if I get that wrong. I want to give him raps. I think he's really improved each week. His ball playing has improved. I thought a few weeks ago, I was like, I don't see him as a 13. I think he's a front rower. I think he's been really good for him. And I think he's been a big reason why they've been able to put a few points on and be able to move through the park and get field position. I think he's been good, Joe. I really, really do. Leilua, we all know how good he is. Just all of them. I think Tamau has played the best since he got to the club. But yeah, Joe Offengawa has been the best since he's come to the club. Outside of that, that bomb that Madden put up when he came on the field was massive. Got him back in the game. Yeah, I would be really proud of that, Tigers fans. It's what I love about it is the consistency. Like, we're seeing a consistent game plan, a consistent team come in, week out, almost getting to the point where, like, is this the new Tigers now? Like, do we have a new Tigers in our hands where, we're maybe not win the comp yet, we need to recruit more, but we've got a game plan. We know where they're going to come out and put on a good performance. If they get beaten, it's not going to be by 50. They're just going to be solid. So, good stuff from the Tigers. Now, Dragons. 3rd win in a row. I think they're sneaking, good on them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the side that for the first 3 or 4 weeks when they weren't winning games, we sort of said that they're better than what they look.
Yeah.
They're a better side than what they've shown early. I only scored 2 tries, but the Tigers defended well. I thought, credit to them, just small things, but the try that Ben Hunt scored, Tariq Sims, he runs the decoy, and so many forwards just stand in the line after that.
Yeah.
You watch what Tariq Sims does. He gets through his line, then he sprints to the left. He gets out of the way just in case Ben Hunt decides to come off his right foot, and in that moment he did. If Tariq Sims would have done what a lot of guys do and just stood there, that would have been an obstruction and a no try. Just those little things that matter. I thought the other try they scored where Bud Sullivan went from dummy half. Francis Molo was in a wrestle and James Tamu was over the top. He fought Tamu off and threw him on his back behind him and then got to his elbows and knees, got the quick play the ball. So then there was one marker. Just those little things in the wrestle that can make such a difference. All of a sudden, Bud Sullivan picked up the ball and there was just space everywhere.
Yeah, and not being selfish and trying to get post-contact. Instead, you're focused on the quick play the ball. Because post-contact, it's okay, but it's not the be-all and end-all.
It's not as good as having one marker.
Absolutely, and the Panthers have identified that, of like, get to your front and play the ball. Fuck your extra 5 metres, because by the time you get those 5 metres, the line's set. They've got the ball wrapped up, no one cares. And plus, play the ball slow, because like, what happens is they've learnt how to tangle themselves up, so they're like, I can't get out there. And the ref's like, don't even... The amount of times the ref go, milking, I'm like, are you serious? Milking? You can't get out. Like, give me a break. So really unselfish play. Moses Sully, how good's he been? He's just so relentless with his out of trouble sets. He would be such a handful to tackle. What do you think about the Dragons, Timmy?
Sully, he's an interesting one. He's a bloke who's always probably unfairly being given this rap of being a lazy centre, sort of sits out there. Mate, he gets through and has for a few years now a lot of work, and he goes looking for ball, and it's super effective.
Most runs in his team.
Yeah, there you go. The Dragons, just gritting away wins, aren't they? They haven't overly impressed me as a side, but they're competing 3 weeks in a row now. They're getting wins, and look, as a fan, as a coach, whatever, sometimes that's all you want to see from a side who probably people had pegged to be definitely bottom 8. I still do, but, you know, they're winning games of footy. Big decision next week at the Dragons with Talatau Moan, because I'm a bit torn on where I'd have him, because he was terrific on the weekend, playing good footy. He's, you know, clearly, he's more of your future in the halves than Jack Bird is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he wasn't terrific early on as a starter. They're getting good footy off him off the bench. So do you stick to what's worked for them and, you know, I suppose develop him and nurture him in a sort of shorter role off the bench, building towards the next few years? Or do you just go, now, there's a serious footballer in this bloke, let's start him? What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, I think for now, start him. You win in game, like you won this game. He offers a lot in attack. Yeah, look, it just depends on his defence. You know, he missed 5 tackles, but Benny Hunt missed 9 tackles. So it's like, is the problem just a moan? Like, you know, they clearly in the halves they just need to be. And also, missed tackles can be deceiving. Like sometimes it's aggressive, sometimes it's because they're shooting out of line to cut things off. I like him at 6. I think it would build his confidence the longer he's there. But I can understand if you're focused on defence first, I can understand why you would put Bird there. So I guess it just depends what mindset Hook is in. What I will say with the Dragons is, remember a few weeks ago I said the problem with the Dragons is they're not playing the way they've been purchased to play. Like they've got these recruits to be this grindy side that, you know, they may not be the best or whatever, but they're going to grind out a win. What I like about the Dragons now is they're playing exactly the way Hook envisioned, which is a grindy side, not going to set the world alight, but they're going to be in every single match. They're going to complete really well or solidly. Their forwards are going to be grindy and gritty, do all the little things well. I like that they're playing to their coach's plan because that shows that they're listening. I do believe, though, I think you've got to bring Sloan back. I think he's got points in him. Is his defence that poor that he... I don't know. I think you've got to bring Sloan back. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I would have already brought him back. I'd be playing a Moan and Sloan in the side. I kind of feel like Hook's trying to outthink the room a little bit here. Mate, to me, it seems like a really obvious one to bring.
Seems obvious to me because, Moses Mbai, yes, he's experienced and he gets through his work or whatever, but it's not like he offers so much that you can afford to lose a guy like Sloan who's like killing it in New South Wales Cup.
And the upside of Mbai isn't enough for me to like. Mbai isn't so good that I'm not willing to accept a couple of mistakes out of Sloan here and there. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'd be making the move. It's a big month coming up for them. They play Melbourne next week at Amy Park. Big test for them. But then after that, heading into their bye, they play the Titans for Magic Round, Suncorp. They play the Warriors at home, and then they play the Bulldogs at Belmore. So heading into Origin, that could be 3 winnable games.
Yeah, they could be sitting in the 8.
Yeah, before who will they lose? Ben Hunt to Origin? Will that be Tariq Sims maybe?
I mean, they could that Origin period is a real opportunity for them to fucking... I mean, Hunt is such a big loss, though. Fuck. That team without Hunt, it's like, ooh. Great to see Bud Sullivan come on and do what he did. I thought it was a really good example of I love Macca. I think he offers so much. He's so grindy and gritty. But just that explosiveness that, a lot of other teams have, Macca doesn't really have.
Yep.
And I thought Sullivan was fantastic. So as long as you can get Sullivan... I don't like Sullivan at 9. I'd rather him play reserve grade and play 7 and lead a team around the park and learn his game. But if you're going to get him on there for 20 minutes and he doesn't have to get through that much work and he's going to do that, he's going to affect games that much, win matches, I'm willing to go, you know what, we need to win matches in NRL before we need to win.
Especially if you are playing that real grindy sort of style, to just throw an X factor on there.
Yeah.
The back end, I like it, and, it was the difference on the weekend.
Lomax, I thought he did great defence, 18 tackles, 0 misses. I think he just needs to be a little bit more selective on that flick pass. It's worked for him in the past, so I understand why he goes to it. But I think if you do it so often, not only does it become predictable, and I think eventually they'll start cluing onto it. But obviously you can make those errors. He got really lucky on the weekend where that flick pass, the guy hit it, the winger hit it. But I think it adds to your game more if you become selective because they don't know when it's coming.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, it's the best flick pass in the comp. It's fucking amazing. He's so good. He's another guy. Like, do you put him in for Origin? You know, I don't think he's been talked about that much, but I think imagine him in a top high quality side with good ball because he never gets good ball. It's always like, you know, he's just one-on-one, not much room, and he finds a way to make it work.
Yeah.
What do you reckon about the Dragons, Matty?
Yeah, I thought they were great. I think we haven't spoken about Josh Maguire. He's undefeated this year.
Yeah, he's been great.
He's been really good for them. I thought they started pretty poorly, to be honest. Like, I think Tigers had 2 line breaks in the first 10 minutes, and they missed about 9 or 10 tackles. But credit to the Dragons, like, especially because they had a couple of outs and a couple of late changes before the game. Honestly, I was so entertained the whole game. I tipped the Tigers. I was going for the Tigers, but like, it was just so to and fro the whole game.
It was a great game.
Loved it.
It was wasn't the highest quality game, but it was a great game to watch. Great game to watch. Anything else with the Dragons, boys?
All good.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much covered, yeah.
All good. That is us for the week, guys. Make sure to follow SC Playbook on Instagram and all social media and all podcast, all your great podcasting apps. Rugby League Guru on Instagram and all the social media apps and all good podcasting apps. Bloke jerseys next Monday, 6 p.m. Be there. Limited amount, 6 p.m. Bloke.shop. Also join the Bloke Club so we can send you a message. Limited amount. Once they're gone, they're gone. We may not even make this design again. The first ever Bloke jerseys. They're high quality, only $99. And as usual, I'll go and fuck myself. Thank you.